Hey everyone, I sincerely appreciate your support. If you enjoy my audiobooks, I would be truly grateful if you could subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to support even further, you're welcome to become a Patreon member, where you can access audiobooks of novels as long as they are freely available on the internet. Your kindness and support mean so much. Thank you.
The grandest villa in the village, long uninhabited, had been rented out. A key turned twice in the lock, and with a click, the door opened. Someone helped the drunken Fang Zhou inside, closing the door gently with a foot. A slender finger tapped the wall, turning on the lights. Bright light illuminated Fang Zhou's handsome face. He furrowed his brow slightly but didn't wake up. The slender woman beside him supported Fang Zhou, slowly moving through the hall towards the inner room. She kicked open the door, turned on the light, and accurately tossed the man onto the bed. The woman took a deep breath, as if expelling all her fatigue. So heavy. Her tone carried a hint of helplessness, but her usually cold face showed rare warmth, her lips curving slightly, not at all looking angry. If a third person were present, they would be shocked. Because this person was Han Shi. She had indeed been drinking, her mind not entirely clear. But her ingrained habits helped her overcome the alcohol's effects, catching up with Fang Zhou, who had left earlier. Fang Zhou lay quietly on the large bed, no different from how he had slept on the ground earlier. Han Shi sat at the bedside, quietly watching Fang Zhou. Half of his face was buried in the blanket, the other half exposed. His sharp jawline, high nose bridge, and delicate lips all indicated this man's extraordinary looks. Perhaps due to the alcohol, his cheeks had a faint pink hue, making him appear more approachable under the bright lights. Fang Zhou. Han Shi felt her head spinning, uncontrollably leaning closer to him, until their noses touched. At such close distance, Han Shi could see Fang Zhou's long eyelashes and his furrowed brows. She gently leaned in, placing a soft kiss on his brow, like a butterfly landing. At this moment, she resembled a clumsy child, using the most primitive method to comfort someone. Unfortunately, when she pulled away, his brows were still deeply furrowed. Don't worry. Han Shi's voice was low, a side effect of the alcohol and earlier excitement. She reached out, slowly massaging the space between his brows, hoping to smooth out his troubles. Finally, after her efforts, Fang Zhou's brow relaxed, though he turned away, presenting the back of his head. His black head lay still on the bed. This scene deeply affected Han Shi. Her usually narrow, phoenix eyes became teary. Always the back of your head. Every time, it's the back of your head. When will you face me? Han Shi leaned in, resting her head on Fang Zhou's shoulder, nuzzling him affectionately, whispering, "Ever since we reunited, I've been watching you, every day on the island, and now every day while teaching. I know you watched the sunrise with Chu Xinran. I know you helped feed pigs with Qiao Sisi. I also know you had meals with Zhang Xian and Li Siming. I know your sister is sick. I want to help, but I'm afraid you won't accept it. The more someone cares, the more cautious they become. Like holding a pearl, afraid to crush it, or holding it in their mouth, afraid to swallow." If she had to use force to keep Fang Zhou by her side, Han Shi could do it. But she feared Fang Zhou would turn into an emotionless, soulless person. Just like her mother. Always kept in a villa on the mountain by her father, without freedom, like a caged canary. Young Han Shi often heard her mother say, "Xiao Shi, you must be strong, be the master of your fate, have the courage to start over." Han Shi did become strong and confident, as her mother wished. But meeting Fang Zhou made it all seem absurd. Because this man would never submit to her. Though he claimed it was because she wasn't gentle enough. Han Shi knew it was her strong demeanor that drove him away. But she didn't want Fang Zhou to become like her mother, a caged bird, so she let him go. Yet fate brought them together again. Han Shi's eyes showed a hint of confusion. She sighed softly, like a deity from a distant time and space. "Fang Zhou, what should I do with you?" The man's face, warm from the alcohol, transferred heat to Han Shi's face as well. She felt a discomfort in her heart, unsure if it was from unspoken love or the spicy food from the banquet. She lifted her head, moving slightly, resting her head on Fang Zhou's shoulder, continuing to speak. "Every time I see you with them, I feel so sad. Why do so many people like you, Fang Zhou? And how many ex-girlfriends do you have? Among so many, is there anyone you truly loved? You said you liked gentle people. Over the past year, I've been learning to be less cold and less assertive with those around me. But you don't seem to notice. What do I have to do to win you back?" The woman's murmurs were heartfelt, words she had kept inside for a long time, struggling like a lone goose in a storm. Usually reserved with words, she now couldn't stop speaking, wanting to pour out everything in her heart. But sadly, the person she wanted to confide in remained deeply asleep, eyes closed, lost in his dreams. Han Shi murmured for a long time, finally realizing that the man wouldn't respond to her at all. She chuckled softly, straightening up, and scanned Fang Zhou's body from top to bottom, as if tracing his outline with a brush. Suddenly, her gaze stopped at a certain part, staring blankly. Her face grew warm, and the surrounding air gradually heated up. "Why does it feel like you've changed quite a bit?" Han Shi's mind replayed their first time together. Youthful passion, uncontrollable, lasting until the early morning. The first impression was memorable, not just because of the pain, but the pleasure that followed and Fang Zhou's gentleness. Whenever they had time and opportunity afterward, they would explore the mysteries of the human body together. Women tend to view the man who conquers them with a thick filter, and Fang Zhou was Han Shi's first and only man. Han Shi tilted her head, using her remaining rationality to ponder if her feelings for Fang Zhou were merely physical dissatisfaction, unwilling to lose a man who could please her, not wanting to spend a lot of time finding another compatible partner with mutual satisfaction, or perhaps because she was usually the dominant one, but in bed, she was at a disadvantage. So now, is this a good opportunity? An opportunity to assert her dominance? If she seized this last chance, could she completely let go of Fang Zhou? Han Shi stood there for a long time, ultimately denying her previous thoughts. No, she liked Fang Zhou for more than just his body. After they broke up, her friends had tried to set her up with muscular young men to help her forget Fang Zhou, but Han Shi couldn't accept them even before touching them, quietly telling them to leave. Her friends lamented, You're stuck on Fang Zhou. What's so good about that jerk? Time is the best healer. You'll forget him eventually. But her usually successful friends were wrong. Han Shi didn't forget Fang Zhou over time. She buried him deeper in her heart, reminiscing during quiet nights. These accumulated feelings gradually changed her psyche. So when she re-encountered Fang Zhou on the show, she couldn't help but focus all her attention on him. Han Shi knew following him was wrong, an invasion of personal rights, but she couldn't control herself. Not wanting to miss any information about him, whether good or bad, just knowing where he was and what he was doing was enough. Fang Zhou, what should I do with you? This was the second time Han Shi uttered this phrase. However, now her tone was no longer confused, more like a signal to herself. A battle cry for advancing. Han Shi stood up, approached Fang Zhou, and started unbuttoning his shirt, revealing his skin. Although she had denied her previous thought, reliving it once wasn't bad. Meanwhile, at the banquet, Xiao Sisi noticed 2 empty seats beside her, deep in thought. Fang Zhou left first, followed shortly by Han Shi. Besides them, Qin Yun was also absent. What were these 3 doing? For some reason, Xiao Sisi felt uneasy. A thought flashed in her mind, and she stood abruptly, knocking over a disposable cup. Sisi, your clothes are wet. Tang Wan frowned. Xiao Sisi's tie-dye shirt was stained with a large wine blotch. I'll go change. You all keep drinking. Taking the opportunity, Xiao Sisi prepared to leave. Zhang Zihang called out, Hey, wait. I'll take my sister back too. Let's all go together. And Xinran, she's drunk. I'll take her with us. Tang Wan, always kind, remembered Chu Xinran crying and hugging Zhang Ziyan after losing the poetry game. Xiao Sisi felt a flash of impatience. She wasn't really going back, she was looking for Fang Zhou, but she had already made the excuse and was on live camera, so she had to agree. Okay, let's go together. Zhang Zihang, being sober, drove them, 5 people fitting neatly in the car. Xiao Sisi's unease grew stronger. Sitting in the passenger seat, she dialed Fang Zhou's number. Hello. But the voice on the other end wasn't Fang Zhou's, it was a husky female voice. He's drunk and resting. The call ended abruptly. The voice was very familiar, so familiar that Xiao Sisi immediately recognized it. Han Shi. She was with Fang Zhou, and Fang Zhou was drunk? Dangerous? Stop the car. Xiao Sisi, in a panic, urged Zhang Zihang to stop. She had to find Fang Zhou. They were halfway up the mountain, just a few meters from the school. Zhang Zihang tried to calm her. Let's drop them off first, then I'll go with you, okay. Zhang Zihang was worried too. With everyone watching, Xiao Sisi had left with him. Now she wanted to get out without explanation, which was dangerous, especially in the wilderness. Xiao Sisi glanced at the 3 women in the back seat, pressed her brow, knowing priorities, and reluctantly agreed. About 10 minutes later, when the car returned to the village at the mountain's base, Xiao Sisi suddenly stopped Zhang Zihang. Stop. She stared at a brightly lit villa, feeling a strong premonition. Fang Zhou and Han Shi must be here. Time rewinds to several minutes earlier in the villa. Han Shi had just managed to strip Fang Zhou's shirt off and was about to remove his pants when a sudden ringing interrupted her. Looking down, she saw Fang Zhou's phone, which had been in his pocket, ringing. A hint of annoyance flashed in Han Shi's eyes. She didn't want to answer, but the incessant ringing grew louder and more insistent, unsettling her. Reluctantly, she stopped what she was doing, pulled the phone from Fang Zhou's pocket, and saw it was Xiao Sisi calling. Her irritation grew. Why were so many women calling him? She raised her hand to hang up the call, but in her drunken state, her fingers fumbled, and instead of swiping down, she swiped up, answering the call. Hello. Xiao Sisi's sweet voice came through, making Han Shi roll her eyes. She responded curtly, he's resting, and hung up. She had no time for this, she had other things to attend to. Stupid women deal with women, smart women deal with men. Looking at the man lying motionless on the bed, Han Shi smiled slightly. There was still plenty of night left. However, when Han Shi faced Fang Zhou's D1CK, she was left dumbfounded. Why was he like a marshmallow? No matter what she did, she couldn't turn a marshmallow into a hard candy. The little physiological knowledge Han Shi had, she learned from Fang Zhou. She had heard of drunken indiscretions but didn't know that truly drunk men were incapable of performing. After 5 or 6 minutes of effort, Han Shi's hands felt sore. She collapsed onto the bed, her dizzy mind wondering if she should use her mouth. A hint of hesitation appeared on her face. Even the thought made her blush. This isn't right, it's too shameful. but the opportunity is rare. Her thoughts bounced between these two options. When Han Shi finally made up her mind, a sudden pain at the back of her neck made her black out. She collapsed next to Fang Zhou's legs. Unbeknownst to Han Shi, someone had quietly entered the villa while she was hesitating. The bedroom door was open, and Han Shi, facing away, didn't notice anyone entering. Tut, almost lost your innocence there, Fang Zhou. The person set down a water bottle they had grabbed and looked at the unconscious Han Shi with interest. The usually cold and aloof CEO now had a flushed face, seemingly lost in her fantasies. Looking at the completely naked Fang Zhou beside her, Qin Yun's smile deepened. Getting drunk won't accomplish anything. It was unclear if she was speaking to Fang Zhou or Han Shi, but neither could hear her, both unconscious. Qin Yun pulled up a chair and slowly sat down. She hadn't touched a drop of alcohol tonight, secretly pouring it out whenever villagers came to toast her. Drinking leads to trouble, a lesson Qin Yun had known since childhood. She didn't dislike drinking but hated the consequences. So when everyone else was drunk, the air filled with the scent of alcohol, Qin Yun felt uncomfortable. She left the banquet, standing under a nearby street lamp, waiting for everyone to leave together. Soon, she saw Fang Zhou leave alone, staggering as if drunk. Qin Yun raised an eyebrow but didn't follow. She wasn't one to follow others. But to her surprise, Han Shi followed Fang Zhou 3 minutes later. This piqued Qin Yun's interest. Late at night, a man and a woman alone, something was bound to happen, right? Not on her watch. Qin Yun's possessiveness was strong. If she couldn't have Fang Zhou, neither could Han Shi. So she followed Han Shi, watching her help Fang Zhou into the villa. Qin Yun watched from the window for a while, only acting when Han Shi started undressing Fang Zhou. Talking is one thing, but action is another. Sitting by the bed, Qin Yun felt an eerie calm. If she hadn't come, would Fang Zhou have been taken advantage of? Would he wake up to see Han Shi beside him and understand what happened? Given Fang Zhou's awkward nature, he would feel responsible. He would commit to Han Shi because of a drunken mistake. Then, all of them would be out of the picture. Han Shi would stand at the finish line, looking at her with a victor's gaze. The thought was unbearable. Unfortunately, Qin Yun couldn't use Han Shi's method. Fang Zhou was too wary of her, especially after a previous incident, making him distrustful. Even if it was a drunken mistake, Fang Zhou would think she spiked his drink. He would be repulsed, possibly even call the police. Qin Yun sighed deeply, lamenting, same situation, different fates. As one of Fang Zhou's ex-girlfriends, she could tell he treated each of them differently. Chu Xinran, for example, received his utmost patience, perhaps because of her youth and frailty. Qin Yun would never enjoy such treatment. It made her envious, but she had accepted it. The process didn't matter, the result did. Who would win in the end depended on their methods. Qin Yun's gaze shifted from Fang Zhou to Han Shi. Seeing her serene face, something stirred inside Qin Yun. Using such means to control Fang Zhou, was this really the formidable Han Shi from the news? If the roles were reversed, Han Shi's actions would be despicable. Qin Yun stood and approached Han Shi, her fingertips tracing Han Shi's face, poking her cheeks harder and harder. Annoying. How dare you covet my man like this? Perhaps it was the pain from Qin Yun's nails digging into her flesh that woke Han Shi, causing her to let out a soft whimper. This sound made Qin Yun's gaze deepen even further. Her nails, which she hadn't trimmed in 2 weeks, had grown long enough to leave marks on Han Shi's face. Does it hurt already? If I used something else, you might cry, Qin Yun whispered, as if speaking to Han Shi, or perhaps just murmuring to herself. Her hand slowly moved to Han Shi's neck, lightly grasping her throat. So fragile. The curly-haired woman tilted her head, seeming to contemplate where to apply pressure. Release dash. At that moment, Fang Zhou muttered in his sleep, interrupting Qin Yun's actions. She slowly withdrew her hand, exhaling gently. Qin Yun reminded herself not to act impulsively. This woman held a high position, and if something happened to her here, it would undoubtedly be investigated thoroughly. Besides, Fang Zhou didn't like her at all. There was no need to harm Han Shi and bring trouble upon herself. At the crucial moment, Qin Yun controlled her impulses. However, her attention finally shifted to Fang Zhou. Glancing at the man lying completely naked, he looked like a patient awaiting surgery. Qin Yun frowned slightly, disliking the sight. She preferred a healthy and lively Fang Zhou. She carefully covered Fang Zhou's private parts with his clothes and then draped a blanket over his upper body, finally satisfied. But she heard Fang Zhou's muttering again, not understanding his sleep-talking. Deliver. Deliver what? Qin Yun leaned closer to Fang Zhou's face, trying to catch his words. Damn, the wedding ring. Qin Yun was confused. What ring? Olympic rings? Contraceptive ring? Sleep talkers often speak softly, and with a half-closed mouth, it was even more unclear. After waiting for a while without hearing more, she gave up. Just as she was about to take further action, a knock at the door interrupted her. Knock, knock. Is anyone there? A male voice called out. Qin Yun frowned slightly, puzzled. Wasn't this house rented by Han Shi for company employees? Weren't they supposed to arrive in a few days? Could they have arrived early? Regardless, this scene couldn't be seen by anyone else. Otherwise, even if Fang Zhou had 10 mouths, he couldn't explain it clearly. Qin Yun was suddenly grateful she had locked the door when entering. Otherwise, the embarrassment would be on her. With the two of them either drunk or unconscious, she was the only one awake, which would be hard to explain. A sudden idea struck her, and she quickly moved Han Shi to the adjacent room, took off her shoes, and covered her with a blanket, making it look like she was sleeping. Outside, Xiao Sisi and Zhang Zihang were anxiously waiting. They had been knocking for a while, but the people inside seemed not to hear, even though the lights were on. Maybe they were asleep. Or perhaps they were busy with something else. The thought of a certain possibility made Xiao Sisi feel a pang of jealousy. Let me. She pushed Zhang Zihang aside and pounded on the expensive mahogany door with force. Is anyone there? Xiao Sisi's voice was more penetrating than Zhang Zihang's. Being an actress, she had strong vocal projection. It was impossible for Qin Yun not to hear. She immediately recognized Xiao Sisi's voice and felt a wave of relief. She slowly smiled, glancing at the room where Fang Zhou lay, and said softly, "Is she here for you again?" Qin Yun quickly unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of her blouse, tousled her hair, and pinched a few red marks on her exposed neck. She walked towards the door, smiling as she opened it. The heavy door opened slowly, revealing a woman with disheveled hair, flushed cheeks, and a slightly dazed expression. Her shirt seemed hastily buttoned, exposing the red marks on her neck, looking like the aftermath of a passionate encounter. Anyone could guess what had happened, and it was hard not to think the worst. Xiao Sisi froze, momentarily speechless. It's you? What's the matter? The mature woman's voice was husky and steady, exuding a decadent aura like a fully bloomed rose. Oh, we were passing by and needed to use the restroom. As you know, us girls have special needs. Zhang Zihang started to explain but was cut off by Xiao Sisi. The actress put on her best performance, smiling gently. Her eyes glanced inside the house, implying, I didn't expect to see you here. Xiao Sisi subtly pointed out Qin Yun's absence from the banquet, justifying their visit. Qin Yun, equally adept, opened the door wider, letting Xiao Sisi in. I thought there were too many mosquitoes on the mountain, so I decided to stay here. Feel free to use the restroom. Her response was gracious and appropriate, leaving Xiao Sisi with no complaints. Besides, she just wanted to see if the man with Qin Yun was Fang Zhou. As she walked into the living room, she paused by the inner room, spotting a man lying on the bed. Only a black head and long, bare legs were visible. Her heart sank, emotions flaring up. They were indeed doing that. But was this man Fang Zhou? Xiao Sisi's hesitation caught Zhang Zihang and Qin Yun's attention. What's wrong? That's not the restroom. Qin Yun kindly reminded, pretending ignorance of Xiao Sisi's thoughts. In reality, she was smirking inside, persistent, aren't you? Would she not be convinced until she lifted the blanket and saw Fang Zhou and her exploring the mysteries of the human body? Actually, it wasn't impossible. Out of sight, Xiao Sisi's eyes reddened. She forced a smile, but her eyes didn't curve with it. I think I saw someone I know. The actress stood at the doorway, motionless, questioning Qin Yun. I saw someone familiar. I'm not sure if it's someone we all know. Standing at the door, Qin Yun could easily guess her thoughts. Initially, she just needed a glance to confirm it was Fang Zhou. Now, she demanded verification. Since that was the case, Qin Yun didn't mind indulging Xiao Sisi. The usually gentle elder sister figure slowly walked to Xiao Sisi's side, placing a hand on her shoulder, whispering, if you want to know, you can go in and see for yourself. As she spoke, Qin Yun smiled, with a hint of shyness. To Xiao Sisi, this smile was pure provocation. It seemed to mock her foolishness and recklessness. We've come this far, and you still don't believe it? Do you need to see for yourself? I pity your stubbornness. Xiao Sisi felt like her mind was being gnawed by countless white ants. She couldn't think calmly nor find the flaws in Qin Yun's words. Had she calmed down a bit, she would have realized if they were really doing that, why leave the door open, almost inviting spectators? And Fang Zhou, would he really lie there doing nothing in the face of her? Her fingers trembled uncontrollably, trying to grasp something but finding nothing. At this moment, she felt like a small boat in the ocean, tossed by waves, unable to find land, and unable to stay in the eye of the storm without being torn apart. Her heart ached unbearably, as if someone was cutting it with a blunt knife, not fatal, but excruciating. No need. Xiao Sisi finally uttered, her voice hoarse. She forced her gaze away, looking elsewhere, smiling mechanically. The restroom is over there, right? Her pride prevented her from taking another step. She wouldn't lift the blanket to verify if Fang Zhou was truly naked or if they were really exploring the mysteries of the human body. She feared seeing the scene she imagined, Fang Zhou's annoyed face for being interrupted, and her own pitiful state being mocked by Qin Yun. The most humiliating part was fearing Fang Zhou would ask, we broke up years ago, what right do you have to interfere? She might go mad on the spot and grab a knife to kill him. At least, not seeing Fang Zhou's face, she could deceive herself it might not be him. In this moment, Schrodinger's cat had a concrete representation in Xiao Sisi's mind. Yes, the restroom is over there. Qin Yun's amused voice came from behind, making it clear she was laughing. Laughing at her cowardice, her overestimation, and her reluctance to unveil the truth despite being so close. Xiao Sisi took a deep breath, forcing her body not to tremble, and walked step by step towards the restroom. She thought she needed cold water to calm down. Otherwise, she couldn't suppress the urge to kill. Unexpectedly, the third person in the room spoke up. Zhang Zihang's gaze was also on that room, raising an eyebrow and asking, who is it? Do I know them? He spoke while walking towards the room, seemingly intent on verifying who it was. Qin Yun's smile froze, thinking, what's it to you, big guy? Can't you see we're in the middle of something? Why join in? Nonetheless, she gently reminded, I think you might not want to know. After all, Zhang Zihang was Zhang Xian's brother, and Zhang Xian liked Fang Zhou. If his sister knew about Fang Zhou's affair, she'd be hurt. Unexpectedly, Zhang Zihang smiled and calmly said, I didn't want to know initially, but now I must. A hint of displeasure flashed in Qin Yun's eyes, but she quickly understood. It's good if Zhang Zihang sees it, so he can persuade his sister to give up on Fang Zhou. She replaced her smile with a gentle one, spreading her hands, if you want to see, go ahead. After all, Fang Zhou was indeed naked. Even if he wasn't conscious, it wouldn't be easy to explain. Zhang Zihang walked step by step towards the room, and Xiao Sisi stopped. A voice in her head urged her to leave, not to wait for the cruel truth. But Xiao Sisi felt rooted to the spot, unable to move. Holding her breath, she waited for Zhang Zihang to unveil the truth. Zhang Zihang held his phone, and if he unlocked it, he'd see he was chatting with his sister. The message read, Brother, can you find Fang Zhou? All the male guests have returned, but he hasn't. While Xiao Sisi and Qin Yun talked, Zhang Zihang suddenly realized Fang Zhou might be here, explaining Xiao Sisi's urgency. Before coming here, he had been following his sister's participation in this program. When Fang Zhou appeared on screen, it matched the photo hidden in his sister's room. It was a graduation photo of them in high school, smiling brightly, with his sister looking at the boy with love. Zhang Zihang vaguely knew his sister's departure had something to do with the boy she liked. As an outsider, he shouldn't interfere. But Zhang Xian drank tonight. If she didn't hear from Fang Zhou soon, she might foolishly come down the mountain. That would be more trouble for him. What choice did he have but to pamper his sister? So, risking being a third wheel, he had to confirm Fang Zhou's whereabouts. Xiao Sisi also waited, hoping Zhang Zihang would reveal if it was Fang Zhou. She had never felt time drag so long, every second an ordeal. Who is he? Fang Zhou had a dream where his ex-girlfriend, Song Qinghuan, was getting married. She even sent him an invitation, asking him to attend the wedding. Fang Zhou had no interest in playing the fool at his ex's wedding, especially one who had seamlessly moved on to someone else. No one could swallow such an insult, and Fang Zhou was no exception. Coincidentally, another friend was getting married the same day. When he arrived at the venue, he realized it was the same hotel where Song Qinghuan's wedding was taking place. At the hotel entrance, he saw Song Qinghuan greeting guests. She assumed he was there for her wedding and greeted him with a sarcastic tone. I thought you wouldn't come, but it seems you still have feelings for me. Infuriated, Fang Zhou retorted, Song Qinghuan, look at yourself. Why would I still care about you? This harsh remark on her big day caused someone beside the bride to rush at Fang Zhou, grabbing his collar, ready to punch him. Fang Zhou's friends, not ones to back down, immediately joined the scuffle, leading to a chaotic scene. Amidst the chaos, Fang Zhou spotted several bridesmaids. They were his 4 ex-girlfriends, Chu Xinran, Xiao Sisi, Han Shi, and Qin Yun, all looking at him with disdain, as if he were a corpse. Each held a knife, approaching him, muttering, I loved you so much, yet you let yourself be hurt by others. You're pathetic. No. Fang Zhou shouted and suddenly woke up, but instead of seeing a ceiling, he saw a face, very close to his. Terrified, he instinctively pushed the person away. What are you doing? Fang Zhou sat up, realizing he was completely naked, the blanket slipping off his body. His lower body felt cold and uncovered, filled with unease. He seemed to be naked. Completely exposed? Wide-eyed, he looked at the person he had pushed away, shocked to see it was a man. His mind raced, finally settling on the terrifying thought that a man had undressed him. You. Damn, this guy looked familiar. Like who? Still groggy from the alcohol, he couldn't immediately recall. What's your problem? Zhang Zihang, who had just wanted to check if it was Fang Zhou, was caught off guard by the push, almost losing his balance, feeling irritated. He could have stayed out, but for Fang Zhou's safety, he had to confirm. But Fang Zhou's reaction was infuriating. Fang Zhou, still shaken from his nightmare, was even more disturbed by his nakedness. Squinting, he finally recognized the man. Zhang Zihang. You damn well like men. Zhang Xian? Your brother likes men, do you know that? More importantly, do you know your brother tried to take advantage of me? This thought terrified Fang Zhou. He quickly covered himself with the blanket, touching his rear to check if he had been violated. Joking with Li Siming was one thing, but if this was real, Fang Zhou felt he'd never lift his head again. Fortunately, there was no pain. He hadn't been violated. Wait, could he have been the one who? Fang Zhou's gaze returned to Zhang Zihang, scanning him up and down. Internally, he screamed, damn it. Zhang Xian's brother is a bottom? Fang Zhou's actions and expressions, even Zhang Zihang couldn't ignore. His forehead veins bulged, every cell screaming to punch Fang Zhou, but he restrained himself. His tone was harsh. Hey, what's with that look? I'm not gay. If you're not gay, why did you undress me? Fang Zhou was skeptical. 2 men naked in a room at night was too strange. Wait, 2 men? Something felt off. He looked towards the door, seeing 2 women, each staring at them with intriguing expressions. It was Xiao Sisi and Qin Yun. These 2 had been the most vicious in his dream, almost wanting to behead him. Instinctively, Fang Zhou shrank back, his muddled mind suggesting a wild thought. Was it a foursome? That was even more horrifying. proving that imagination can be harmful, especially when it involves such scenarios. Silence fell, a bizarre silence, broken only by the cicadas outside. Zhang Zihang couldn't stand Fang Zhou's victim look, gritting his teeth. I didn't undress you. I just came to see if it was you lying here. Don't drag me into your games. He felt like the biggest victim here. He was straighter than steel. Hearing Zhang Zihang's angry words, Fang Zhou's sanity returned somewhat. He silently turned to the two women at the door, silently asking, did you undress me? Xiao Sisi, seeing the man suddenly sit up, exposing his bare back, felt despair. In that moment, she had already started looking for the kitchen. But hearing him question if Zhang Zihang undressed him, the tension in her heart eased. Even he didn't know how he got undressed, proving it wasn't done while he was conscious. Either he undressed himself drunk, or Qin Yun forced him. She slowly turned to Qin Yun, smiling. What's going on? Now it was Qin Yun's turn to be the clown. Xiao Sisi couldn't describe her feelings, but she felt an inexplicable joy, so much that she wanted to go out and sing. Maybe even Qin Yun hadn't expected Fang Zhou to wake up suddenly. All the previous ambiguity might just have been her wishful thinking. Xiao Sisi's true joy came from not losing. At this moment, the three people in the room opened their eyes, staring at Qin Yun, seemingly demanding an explanation. Especially Xiao Sisi, whose eyes almost screamed, you orchestrated this, you took advantage of him. However, the elegant elder sister figure wouldn't be easily defeated. She moved her body, slowly closed the door, and then sat leisurely on a chair in the living room. With a somewhat affected smile, she said to the crowd, men and women, it's natural. Why are you all looking at me? She spoke as if discussing the weather, not something taboo. Zhang Zihang, finally freed from the bizarre misunderstanding, let out a sigh of relief and said in a low voice, sorry to disturb you. I'll be leaving. As he spoke, he shot Fang Zhou a look as if to say, see clearly next time, don't accuse a good person. Who knew how painful it was for a straight man to be misunderstood as gay? Zhang Zihang was about to leave, giving Xiao Sisi a glance, silently asking, are you coming? Xiao Sisi stood rooted to the spot, unable to move. Qin Yun made it sound so trivial, as if it wasn't a big deal. Was it too common, or were they the same kind of people, indifferent? Xiao Sisi shifted her gaze to Fang Zhou's face, seeing his shock and disbelief, even a bit of existential doubt. Her heart eased. As long as Fang Zhou didn't willingly do it, it couldn't count as consent. Though it was still disgusting, her eyes darkened with a brewing storm. She asked softly, how far did you go? This question was directed at Fang Zhou. Sitting on the bed, Fang Zhou saw his clothes discarded beside him, feeling terrified. His lips quivered, wanting to say he didn't know. But Xiao Sisi's murderous gaze made him change his words. Nothing happened. Right, nothing should have happened. He felt nothing? Xiao Sisi nodded in satisfaction, smiling faintly, silently mouthing to Fang Zhou, you wait. She then glanced at Qin Yun, who sat calmly on the chair, as steady as a mountain, as if nothing could faze her. Sorry, but Fang Zhou is needed back at the donation center for verification. She had to take Fang Zhou away, couldn't leave him here. Qin Yun was too cunning, even she couldn't see through her. Leaving him here was like a lamb to the slaughter. Hearing Xiao Sisi's clumsy excuse, Qin Yun's expression didn't change. She merely smiled softly. Must you leave now? I'm afraid someone might fall ill from holding it in. It's bad for health, you know. Her hand tapped her knee leisurely, showing no shame discussing such matters, her aura making everyone else seem like younger siblings. Xiao Sisi gritted her teeth, turning to Fang Zhou. You really went this far? Fang Zhou waved his hands, defending himself. No, really nothing happened. I'll go with you now. Do I need to lift the blanket to prove it? Drunk, I really couldn't get up? Fang Zhou knew his limits. Compared to the predatory Qin Yun, he preferred going with Xiao Sisi. Though she could be terrifying when mad, at least Zhang Zihang was around, she'd restrain herself. So Fang Zhou preferred to leave now. Grabbing his clothes and pants, he started dressing, realizing it was inconvenient with so many people around. So Fang Zhou looked at them sincerely, asking, could you turn around? Qin Yun smiled, annoyed Fang Zhou woke halfway and now wanted to leave. She stood up abruptly, walked into the room, saying, I'll help you dress. Then she shut the door with a kick. Zhang Zihang outside was dumbfounded, thinking, this guy gets such treatment? Damn, too popular with women, have to warn my sister. Being too popular is a problem? Xiao Sisi stared at the dark door, her gaze sinking. Finally facing this situation. My treasure boy, coveted by others. Fang Zhou didn't know, people like him should be locked up to prevent trouble. So annoying. Inside, Fang Zhou had dressed his upper body, only his pants left. Qin Yun grabbed the other end, saying, you're drunk, let me help, so you don't wear them wrong. This felt like their dating days. Whenever Fang Zhou wanted to do something, Qin Yun would accompany and help. She'd say, without me, you can't do anything right, so wait for my help. Fang Zhou's temple throbbed, yanking his pants, standing up, quickly dressing and zipping. No need, I'm not useless. His vigilance surpassed shame, making him swift. Are you shy? Qin Yun stared at his long legs, interested. It's not like I haven't seen before, why so embarrassed? Fang Zhou felt reasoning with Qin Yun was futile, she'd twist anything. Though I don't know what happened tonight, I expect an explanation tomorrow. He was clearly on the roadside, how did he end up here? No one would believe there wasn't something fishy. Fang Zhou finished, quickly putting on his shoes, and opened the door. Let's go, we're leaving. Ignoring Qin Yun's angry face, he strode out. Xiao Sisi and Zhang Ziheng followed, the three of them left together. Only Qin Yun and Han Shi in another room remained in the villa. Sitting in the car, Fang Zhou felt the night wind, realizing he forgot to wear underwear in his haste. TLN, fuck, bro going commando. Fang Zhou realized he had forgotten something, opening his mouth to ask Zhang Ziheng to turn back. But he was met with Xiao Sisi's piercing, disdainful gaze, as if she could read his mind. What? Regretting it? Want to go back? The car had only driven a few hundred meters, going back was easy. Fang Zhou inexplicably felt a chill around his neck, as if an icy thread was ready to slice his throat. No, I just left something there, wanted to get it. Is it important? If not, get it tomorrow. Xiao Sisi squinted slightly, not agreeing to go back. It was easy to leave the first time, but the second time might not be as simple. Fang Zhou pondered for a moment, realizing it wasn't that important. Forget it, let's go. Facing Qin Yun's predatory nature wasn't worth it. For his own safety, he resolutely abandoned his underwear. Zhang Ziheng glanced at Fang Zhou in the rearview mirror, sneering internally, this guy sure is lucky, so many women vying to be his girlfriend, even my sister has been infatuated for years. But he couldn't understand, besides his looks, what did he have that attracted these outstanding women? Sweet talk? Who knows, better observe more. If he's a scumbag, I'll make my sister give up. The night wind blew in, bringing a cool breeze, clearing Fang Zhou's muddled mind. He began to think about why he was in that villa, but his last memory was the starry sky, nothing else. Damn, drinking really messes things up? Was it enjoyable? Xiao Sisi suddenly asked, confusing Fang Zhou. Huh? What? I asked, was it enjoyable being with Qin Yun? Xiao Sisi stared at Fang Zhou, not avoiding the presence of another person in the car, directly asking about his experience. This straightforwardness was enough to make anyone's toes curl in embarrassment. Fang Zhou quickly glanced in the mirror, seeing Zhang Ziheng focused on driving, reducing his awkwardness. I was drunk, don't know anything, but nothing should have happened. What do you mean? Xiao Sisi's emphasis made Fang Zhou's face stiffen. Absolutely nothing. He changed his words, firmly stating his position. Heh. Xiao Sisi gave him a mocking look, deciding not to push further in the car. She feared losing control and doing something irreversible. Especially with a third person present, it wasn't suitable. Thanks to Zhang Ziheng, Fang Zhou escaped further questioning. Meanwhile, in the villa they just left, Qin Yun locked the door. She decided to stay and rest there for the night. Slowly, she returned to the room Fang Zhou was in, throwing herself on the bed. The faint scent of alcohol and Fang Zhou's unique scent relaxed her, her pores opening up. A sense of security spread through her. She couldn't remember the last time she was so close to Fang Zhou, maybe a year ago, or longer. Since their reunion, they hadn't even hugged, with Fang Zhou's high vigilance towards her. Qin Yun felt some regret. Sigh, I miss the old days, she murmured to the white walls. Sleepiness overtook her, and she got up to freshen up, preparing to sleep. If she couldn't hug him, sleeping in his scented bed was enough. But as she lifted the blanket, seeing a pair of black underwear, she froze. Her mind flashed back to Fang Zhou dressing. It seemed he didn't wear any undergarments. In his haste, he grabbed his pants and quickly left. Qin Yun hadn't noticed this detail. Now, seeing the black garment, her mind heated up. Her deep, crazy love for Fang Zhou turned into an invisible hand, pushing her forward. It pushed her to the bed, making her pick up the underwear. Anyone nearby would be scared by Qin Yun's gaze. It was a predatory, highly aggressive look. Like a lion on the savannah, eyeing its prey, ready to pounce. She slowly lay on the bed, removing her clothes piece by piece. Her hand holding Fang Zhou's garment trembled, not from fear, but excitement. Her desire clashed with rationality, like two ends of a fine thread wound around her. Don't do this, Qin Yun, how can you be so shameless? A rational voice warned her. But another voice quickly took over. He's my lover, merging with him is natural. If possible, I want him here, not just his clothes. Qin Yun closed her eyes, imagining Fang Zhou beside her. Their bodies close, his hand roaming her, his chin on her shoulder, their legs intertwined. His warm breath on her face, his gentle eyes looking at her, softly asking, does it feel good? Do you like it? Just thinking about it made Qin Yun tremble with excitement. Her breathing grew heavier, body heating up, as if in a furnace with just her and Fang Zhou. She felt like on a plane, soaring to the clouds, fireworks of joy exploding, her cells screaming from the altitude. Fang Zhou, I love you so much. Finally, Qin Yun called Fang Zhou's name, falling into a wonderful dream. The car slowly drove back to the mountain, entering the school and stopping below the dormitory building. It was probably because it was the weekend and everyone had drunk quite a bit, so they had gone to bed early. In the two buildings, only a few lights were on, one being the staircase sensor lights, and the other from a room. Zhang Ziheng parked the car and was about to speak when Xiao Sisi beat him to it. You go ahead, I need to talk to Fang Zhou. Zhang Ziheng raised an eyebrow and tactfully left. As he walked, he texted his sister Zhang Xian, we're back. Ji Inland, glad you're back. Is Fang Zhou okay? Zhang Ziheng typed 2 words, not dead. Ji Inland, great, as long as he's safe. Thanks, brother. Zhang Ziyan clearly hadn't gone to bed, waiting for his message, replying almost instantly. Zhang Zihang shook his head, sighing. Convincing his sister to give up on Fang Zhou would be tough. She had a love-struck brain, worrying about Fang Zhou even when drunk herself. Tonight's sky was full of stars, the moonlight bright, casting a glow on Xiao Cici's half-face through the car window, making her look like a divine maiden. What do you want to say? Fang Zhou had been waiting for Xiao Cici to speak, but she remained silent, only speaking when he asked. What's your relationship with Qin Yun? From Xiao Cici's perspective, the 6 female guests all had some fondness for Fang Zhou. Besides her being his first love, the closest was Zhang Ziyan. Though they claimed to be just friends, it was clear Zhang Ziyan wanted more. As a woman, Xiao Cici understood Zhang Ziyan's intentions but didn't consider her a threat since Fang Zhou didn't show special care for her. However, tonight's biggest threat was Qin Yun. To know oneself and the enemy is to win 100 battles. Xiao Cici didn't mind finding out more. Fang Zhou instinctively shifted his gaze from Xiao Cici's face to the window, seeing the school building's faint outline in the moonlight. Avoiding her eyes, he answered, nothing much, it's all in the past. Just like you and me, it's all in the past, nothing more. In Fang Zhou's view, the past should stay in the past, leaving good memories, not dragging it out to end in regret and unhappiness. So, you had a relationship in the past, right? Xiao Cici's understanding was spot on, easily deducing that Fang Zhou and Qin Yun knew each other before. Given her knowledge of Fang Zhou, though he easily fell into relationships, he wasn't casual about them. In the short time of the love show, he couldn't have gotten so close to Qin Yun without prior acquaintance. Fang Zhou blinked, hesitating to tell her. After all, she had gone crazy over him wiping Zhang Ziyan's tears. Knowing Qin Yun was his ex might make her snap. Xiao Cici smiled, her sharp mind seeing Fang Zhou's concern. Don't worry about me losing control. I've already prepared myself, I won't act rashly. Prepared? Sister, you might misunderstand your own destructive power. Fang Zhou's expression was serious, his body tense, clearly not trusting her words. Xiao Cici chuckled, opening the door and moving to the passenger seat beside him. If you're scared, is this far enough? She waved her hands, showing they were empty. After the villa scene, she was much calmer now. As long as Fang Zhou wasn't willingly with another woman, it was forgivable. She wanted Fang Zhou's heart. Attacking the body, attacking friends, but ultimately, capturing the heart. Once she had his heart, everything else would follow. Fang Zhou took a deep breath, knowing this would come out eventually, especially with Xiao Cici determined for answers. He decided to tell her the truth, she's my ex-girlfriend. A simple, clear statement. But it dimmed Xiao Cici's gaze. She thought, as expected, just as I guessed. How long were you together? When did you break up? Xiao Cici couldn't resist wanting to know their story, despite the pain, seeking to understand Fang Zhou's life away from her. He was so cold, she couldn't find him in games, he always avoided her at university. As her career grew, she had no time to look for him. All her love and pain were buried in her heart. Fang Zhou was stunned by her questions. Not long, less than 3 months. We broke up over a year ago. Such non-detailed matters, Fang Zhou didn't mind sharing, especially since Xiao Cici was speaking so calmly. Less than 3 months. So, it was similar to her, even shorter. Xiao Cici felt a strange satisfaction, as if winning an invisible battle, lifting her head proudly. She was Fang Zhou's first love, after all. I saved you today. How do you plan to repay me? Xiao Cici dropped the Qin Yun topic, planning another approach. She wanted to show Qin Yun she wasn't the only one who could be close to Fang Zhou. Others could too. What do you want? Fang Zhou's tone was calm, knowing he needed to thank Zhang Zihang and Xiao Cici for tonight. But he also knew Xiao Cici wouldn't miss this chance to trouble him. Usually, when she asked such questions, she already had an answer, rejecting whatever he proposed. So he asked directly. The next morning, everyone returned to Hope Primary School on the mountain. On this day, the director was back in the live broadcast room, sporting his familiar bald spot. Dear viewers, today is the final day of our second episode of 100% Love. We've reached the segment everyone eagerly awaits, the thrilling and exciting mutual expression of affection. The director, grinning, was very pleased with the show's results and decided to give the audience a big surprise. Today, we won't be using the message method. Instead, we'll do it directly, live. As he spoke, he stepped aside so the audience in the live broadcast room could see the items behind him more clearly. It was a row of traditional Chinese fans, each with a different design. For this episode, only the male guests can express their feelings. Please, male guests, choose a fan and give it to the female guest you like the most. The moment he finished speaking, the audience in the live broadcast room began to cheer. Exciting? Real men play like this? Enough with the fancy stuff, I want to see this. Ha ha ha, the director knows how to play. Will the guys fight on site? I wonder who they will choose? Or will they choose no one? The audience, eager for entertainment, filled the screen with comments. The only ones truly nervous were the 5 male guests. Some glanced at the director resentfully, cursing him internally. This is only the second episode and we have to express our feelings already? What if we change our minds later? How embarrassing would that be? Others were excited, their eyes shining, ready to make their choices. Fang Zhou stood quietly, feeling several gazes on him, the most obvious being Han Shi's. She stared at him blankly, deep in thought, seemingly pondering something. In reality, Han Shi was indeed thinking about why she suddenly fell asleep last night. How could she have fallen asleep at such a critical moment? Moreover, when she woke up, she was in another room, and the entire villa was empty except for herself. Fang Zhou was nowhere to be seen. Han Shi suspected that Fang Zhou might have woken up midway and knocked her out, but she had no evidence. She couldn't just go to Fang Zhou to verify, or her stalking would be exposed. With no other choice, Han Shi had to swallow this bitter pill. She leaned more towards another possibility that a third party had entered the villa, separated them, and taken Fang Zhou away. Oh well, these things couldn't be brought to light. Han Shi could only digest them herself. What a pity, such a good opportunity last night. Han Shi, lost in her thoughts, someone calling her name brought her back to reality, realizing someone stood before her. It was Dong Donghui, holding a fan with a mandarin duck design, offering it to her. Dong Donghui spoke earnestly, Han Shi, although we met long ago, it's only through this show that we truly got to know each other. I think you're a wonderful girl, deserving of this fan. Han Shi's eyes dimmed. She wished it were Fang Zhou giving her the fan. Wow. People around them cheered, surprised by Dong Donghui's sudden gesture. In their eyes, Dong Donghui was mature, reserved, and rarely showed his emotions, almost like a male version of Han Shi. They expected him to express his feelings privately, not openly. But his action today was unexpected. Their thoughts aligned with Dong Donghui's initial plan. He had intended to slowly win Han Shi over. However, Han Shi's investment in a breeding farm in the mountains caught his attention. Though not yet profitable, with the love show and teaching support, it was only a matter of time before it made money if managed well. Moreover, the public had a higher tolerance for charity work, meaning the farm's future error margin was higher. A company with a higher error margin had more influence in the market. Thus, Han Shi showed great investment potential. Such a person, if she became his wife, would mean a powerful alliance. So, Dong Donghui couldn't wait. He had to win Han Shi quickly to avoid any complications. At that moment, not only the other guests on site but also the live broadcast audience were placing their bets. I told you the CEO duo was the best match. It's happening. Come on, he's just expressing his feelings, not a final confession. Don't exaggerate. I still support Han Shi and Fang Zhou. I think Dong Donghui is after Han Shi's money. Even though he's a CEO, his company is still far behind hers. While the comments section was full of debate, the site remained calm. With a polite smile, Han Shi took the fan from Dong Donghui. Thank you, Mr. Dong. Please remember me for future business opportunities. She easily diffused the intimacy and ambiguity in Dong Donghui's tone, framing it as a business collaboration, downplaying the act's significance. In the live broadcast, she still had to give him some face, as their companies were collaborating. Overdoing it would harm her company, as public opinion could impact market trends. Han Shi had a keen sense of balance and handled it gracefully. Meanwhile, Sun Haoshan and Qi Eli also gave fans to Chu Xinran and Qiao Sisi. Their reactions varied. Chu Xinran bowed apologetically to Sun Haoshan, not accepting the fan. Sorry, I don't like the design. She was merely saving face. She had already made it clear that she liked Fang Zhou. Sun Haoshan returned with the fan, his spirits low. Qiao Sisi, however, took the fan from Qi Eli, spun it in her hand, and then handed it back to him. Courtesy demands reciprocity. This is for you. The actress's move puzzled everyone. However, what Fang Zhou did next surprised everyone even more. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he took the floral bird fan and walked over to Qiao Sisi, handing it to her. Here, for you. Fang Zhou didn't say anything more, just those simple 3 words. The simpler the words, the more information they conveyed. This action left all the guests present stunned. Why did Fang Zhou suddenly change his mind? He had been completely non-committal before. No matter how the female guests vied for his attention, he remained unmoved. Why did he suddenly express his feelings for Qiao Sisi? Among the male guests, Lu Hao was the most surprised, his mouth agape. From his perspective, Fang Zhou seemed more likely to prefer someone like Chu Xinran. Qiao Sisi, the proud celebrity, didn't seem to fit his taste at all. Sun Haoshan, who had been brooding over his own disappointment, was now even more shocked, frowning as he glanced at Chu Xinran. He thought, she must be feeling pretty bad, right? After all, the person she had been pursuing all along didn't care about her feelings and turned to someone else instead. That feeling must be incredibly bitter. He even felt that, in a way, he and Xinran were kindred spirits. As for Chu Xinran, whom he was watching, she was in a daze. She looked at Fang Zhou confusedly, standing diagonally opposite her. Her mouth opened as if she wanted to ask something but eventually swallowed her question. Why? Why give it to Qiao Sisi? They had only been teaching in this mountain area for 3 weeks. How did they progress so quickly? Chu Xinran went from being dazed to perplexed and finally felt deeply wronged. Was it because they were leading the class together and had more time to interact? But she had been working hard too. It must be because she wasn't good enough. She suddenly felt like there were countless bugs crawling on her wrist, making her itch and feel uncomfortable. She wanted to scratch until blood flowed and flesh was torn before she could stop. Her fingers twitched unconsciously, but she forcibly restrained the urge to raise her hand. No, at least not in front of everyone, or he would think she was despicable. For a moment, she did consider using this method to attract Fang Zhou's attention. As long as his gaze stayed on her, she would be the happiest person in the world. However, she quickly dismissed the thought. She felt like her mind was as dirty and despicable as a rat in a sewer. How could she do such a thing? Fang Zhou shouldn't worry about her. He should be the happiest person in the world. Even she shouldn't trouble him. So, Chu Xinran used all her strength to hold herself still, not moving an inch. Next to her, Xiao Sisi looked at the fan in front of her and Fang Zhou's handsome face, accepting it without hesitation. Thanks a lot. Xiao Sisi smiled brightly, her eyes curved into crescent shapes. Her entire demeanor was relaxed, and the wind blowing through her hair added a touch of gentleness. The screen was filled with exclamation marks and WTF. WTF? Does Fang Zhou like our Sisi? Isn't this a direct challenge to Qi Li? Hey, did you notice? Qi Li's fan was returned, but Fang Zhou's wasn't. Is she leaning towards Qi Li or Fang Zhou? I'm freaking out. I want to be a worm in Sisi's stomach and know what she's thinking. I bet she likes Fang Zhou because you only need to be polite to outsiders, not to your own people. Qi Li is crying, so am I just part of your play too? This scene was captured by fans, used as wallpaper, and they exclaimed over their goddess's new iconic image while digging up information on Fang Zhou. Xiao Sisi's fan club wasn't to be underestimated. They were experts at controlling public opinion, voting, gathering information, and even digging up dirt on rivals and partners. In their eyes, anyone close to Xiao Sisi needed to be thoroughly investigated. Whether it was good or bad, it had to be screened and approved by them before getting close to Xiao Sisi. Ha! A soft laugh, barely audible unless you listened closely. But Fang Zhou heard it. He glanced sideways at Qin Yun, who was 2 people away, not missing the blatant sarcasm in her eyes, like needles wanting to stab someone. Fang Zhou felt that she wanted to stab him. Qin Yun, who always presented herself as gentle, wasn't hiding her emotions now. If this wasn't extreme anger, what was it? Besides Qin Yun, several other gazes were on him, surprised, angry, or cold. Fang Zhou felt them all clearly. However, once given, the fan couldn't be taken back. Moreover, he had promised Xiao Sisi. Fang Zhou's mind drifted back to the scene from last night. In the car, Xiao Sisi did, as he expected, make a request, but it wasn't difficult for Fang Zhou to fulfill. She said, "It's simple. If there's an activity about expressing affection tomorrow, just choose me." The celebrity's excuse was reasonable. After all, I don't want too much attention from being on this show. If possible, having a shield would ease the pressure. Xiao Sisi wanted Fang Zhou to be her shield for a while. At that time, Fang Zhou's mind was still foggy from the alcohol, unable to think clearly. Since she came to the show voluntarily, what shield was she talking about? Xiao Sisi was already a top-tier celebrity. No one could force her to be with anyone. Obviously, her intention wasn't just about the show but about Fang Zhou. But Fang Zhou didn't realize this at the time, thinking it was an easy task. So he readily agreed. Standing there today, he finally understood, but it was too late to back out. After all, it was with Xiao Sisi's help that he left the villa so smoothly last night. Oh well, consider it repaying her. In an unnoticed corner, Han Shi's cold eyes stared at the two of them, her face expressionless, but waves were raging inside her. Men, they only behave when hung on the wall. Next to her, Zhang Xian also looked desolate, averting her gaze to avoid seeing them, as it only made her feel worse. Back then, Fang Zhou was with Xiao Sisi, personally tearing off her veil of shame, telling her, "I don't like you." Today, it felt like fate's wheel had turned back to that day. For a moment, her expression turned dazed as a voice inside her asked, was it really worth coming back for him? Apart from the interaction between Fang Zhou and Xiao Sisi, which sparked heated discussions in the live broadcast room, another pair also attracted considerable attention. That pair was Lu Hao and Tang Wan. Both of them were a bit shy. First, Lu Hao, blushing, handed the fan to Tang Wan and said, "I want to see you use this fan when you wear traditional clothes next time." Tang Wan, also shy, nodded and accepted the fan from him, replying, "Next time, for sure." Ha ha ha, what a next time for sure. Tang Wan is killing me with laughter. She's so witty, this girl. One is a voice actor with a versatile range, and the other is a smooth-talking lawyer. Honestly, I'd love to see them have a debate. I wonder who would win. Hehe, I think they make a great couple. If possible, I hope they go all the way. My ship must sail. The director, seeing the high number of viewers in the live broadcast room, couldn't stop smiling. Although the romantic developments among the guests were somewhat unexpected, they achieved the goal of trending on social media, and that was enough. In this interaction, the biggest winner was Xiao Sisi, followed by the production team. Xiao Sisi and Tang Wan, holding their fans and smiling brightly, looked very happy, which made several other female guests envious. They wished they could rush over and grab Fang Zhou by the collar and ask, "Why? Why her? After all these days of maintaining decorum, why change today?" As a fellow woman, Xiao Sisi could almost guess what they were thinking, and it made her feel even more triumphant. Even if it was fake and her own request, so what? Fang Zhou still gave her the fan. If he really didn't want to, he would have had 100 ways to refuse. This meant that Fang Zhou's heart wasn't as unyielding as a rock. There was always a chance to win him over. The more Xiao Sisi thought about it, the more feasible it seemed. She began secretly planning her next steps. This was their last day in the mountain area. The children, having heard the news of their departure, came to see them off. The director successfully diverted everyone's attention to the end of the teaching stint. This was an opportunity to elevate the theme, enhance the show's stature, and gain a wave of popularity. The director would never miss such a chance. The guests have been teaching here for a long time and have formed deep bonds with the children. They've come spontaneously to see everyone off. Look over there. With a wave of the director's arm, the camera panned to the playground, revealing a large group of children of various ages, heights, and builds, all waving enthusiastically at the guests. Teachers. As the director's gesture lowered, the children, like little beasts released from their cages, rushed over, surrounding the guests to bid them farewell. Some brought local specialties, others handmade gifts, and some even brought small animals to give to the guests. As the most popular teacher, Fang Zhou found a little puppy placed in his arms by a chubby child with a cute face still showing baby fat. The chubby child earnestly said to Fang Zhou, "Teacher, this is the fattest puppy from my home. I'm giving it to you, but you can't let it lose weight." Everyone found it both amusing and touching. The girls in Fang Zhou's class were crying, holding onto his sleeves and asking when he would come back to see them. "I'll come back to see you when I get the chance," Fang Zhou promised each child, then returned the puppy to the chubby boy, patting his head, and said, "I'm entrusting you with the important task of raising this puppy well, making it your loyal companion." Xiao Sisi and Han Shi were also surrounded by many people. The two girls Xiao Sisi had sponsored clung to her arms. "Miss Xiao, thank you for your help. I'll work hard to get into college. Miss Xiao, will I still be able to see you on TV?" The usually distant celebrity awkwardly patted their heads and took out 2 candies from her pocket, giving them to the girls. "You will. The harder you work, the luckier you get." Han Shi, though not talkative, did many things that everyone noticed. Though they didn't dare to hug her, some still gave her gifts. Her previously sour mood seemed to be soothed. At that moment, Han Shi suddenly felt that she didn't have to revolve around men. All the guests received small gifts. Even Sun Haoshan got a bouquet made of wildflowers, smiling like a Maitreya Buddha. Tang Wan and Lu Hao received a pair of grasshoppers made from leaves, which looked very realistic. They praised the students for their craftsmanship. Zhang Xian, Qin Yun, Qi Eli, and Dong Donghui were busy taking photos with the students. The scene was bustling with excitement. Watching the live broadcast, some viewers began to empathize. "Oh my gosh, I have separation anxiety. I can't watch scenes like this without crying. Boo-hoo, it looks like the children really love these guests. They're sobbing. Damn you, production team, you're milking my tears. I'm getting old and can't help but empathize. I think the production team brought a lot of benefits, and countless people have benefited. Their good deeds will be remembered." The sentimental and sorrowful atmosphere enveloped everyone, even making the guests reluctant to leave. Only Onion, grinning, said to Fang Zhou, "Teacher, I wish you a safe journey. If I get the chance, I'll come to see you. And about that suggestion last time, why don't you take it and be with those female teachers? I really think they're great. They suit you." The little girl's earnest words earned her a light flick on the forehead from Fang Zhou. "Wait until you grow up to be a matchmaker." But he still showed extra care for Onion. Onion was the only one thinking about going out to see the teachers, rather than wanting them to come back to see her. In her heart, she always held the thought, she wanted to see the outside world, the skyscrapers the teachers talked about. Fang Zhou's gaze softened, feeling a great sense of relief. After all, he never expected a short teaching stint to change the children's destinies. But if what he did could be like a butterfly flapping its wings, causing the surrounding leaves to rustle, it would be good. Because these branches and leaves were still too tender. They deserved to stretch out further and higher, to see a broader world. The rain in the mountains always comes without warning, falling so casually, so abruptly. It rained from evening until the next morning. When everyone set off, the sky was still gray, as if it wanted to pour down all the rain for the entire year. The director's team, worriedly looking at the weather forecast, sought everyone's opinion. Yesterday, the local meteorological bureau reported that this is the largest rainstorm in the XX area in recent years. Should we wait another 2 days before leaving? Sun Haoshan, impatient, tapped his phone and showed the screen to everyone. "Director, it looks like the rainy season has just begun. If we don't leave now, we might have to wait 10 days to half a month, not just a day or two." His time was precious, and he had important matters waiting for him back home. "My dad is hospitalized. I need to hurry back to see him. Let's not wait. If we delay, I might lose my job." Everyone chimed in, and soon a consensus was reached. The director's team finally decided to leave today, though the director's furrowed brows didn't relax. He could only instruct all departments to take safety precautions against any sudden incidents. The sound of the rain hitting the bus's windows had a peculiar power, as if it could soothe everyone's thoughts and put them to sleep. Fang Zhou, who had already had enough sleep, closed his eyes again amidst the bumps and rain sounds. Everyone was sitting on the bus arranged by the production team, and Lu Hao was beside him. Lu Hao was sleeping even more soundly, snoring loudly. Fang Zhou couldn't ignore the thunderous snoring right next to his ear. He opened his eyes abruptly and raised his hand, about to pat Lu Hao's shoulder to wake him up for a chat. His motto was, "If I can't sleep, neither can you." But suddenly, he felt a sticky gaze from the diagonal rear. He turned his head and saw it was indeed Chu Xinran. She wasn't sleeping but was staring at him with her big, wet eyes. When Fang Zhou looked back, her expression quickly turned into one of resentment, with a hint of grievance, as if accusing him of not sitting with her. When they first got on the bus, Fang Zhou did look for a seat. Chu Xinran watched him eagerly, almost saying, "Sit next to me." However, Fang Zhou sat next to Lu Hao and didn't go further inside. He didn't expect her to still hold a grudge over this. Fang Zhou withdrew his gaze, intending to talk to Lu Hao, but when he glanced out the window, he felt uneasy. A rushing river was right beside them. The turbulent water looked like a ferocious beast, opening its bloody mouth, waiting for food to be thrown in. Fang Zhou pulled back the curtain on his side and looked out. He found himself surrounded by continuous mountain peaks. But these were not the green mountains covered in vegetation, but bare rocky mountains. Occasionally, rocks fell, making the scene look very dangerous. Although Fang Zhou grew up in the countryside, his hometown was in a plain area. He had never seen such a spectacle. His first reaction was that something was wrong, and it seemed dangerous. He unbuckled his seatbelt and struggled through the seats to the driver's side. The rain still poured outside, and the windshield wiper had to keep working, or the driver's view would be blocked. How long until we reach the city? They were on a bus heading directly to the city, without needing to transfer, but it would take a long time. About an hour and a half more. The driver was quite optimistic, answering Fang Zhou's question with a smile. This road looks very dangerous. Please drive carefully. Fang Zhou wanted to remind the driver to be cautious. The driver laughed and said, "Don't worry, I've been driving this road for over 10 years and have never had any accidents. I'm an old hand, I know this road well." Fang Zhou wasn't worried about the driver's skills but the road itself. It looked too dangerous, with falling rocks and rushing rivers, and it was still raining. But there was no other way now. They could only take one step at a time. Fang Zhou returned to his seat and found someone else sitting beside him. Lu Hao, who had been next to him, had moved to Chu Xinran's seat. He looked at Fang Zhou innocently, as if saying, "Brother, I've helped you as much as I can." Fang Zhou felt a faint headache, not sure if it was from the long ride or something else. Given the situation, he couldn't ask Chu Xinran to leave, so he sat back in his seat, crossing over Chu Xinran. Her black Mary Jane shoes were polished shiny by the rain, looking small and cute. Chu Xinran blinked and asked softly, "Why did you choose Sisi yesterday?" She was still hung up on this, wanting a definitive answer. Fang Zhou felt a surge of annoyance, both from the worrying road conditions and from being pestered about yesterday's incident. Chu Xinran wasn't the first to ask him. Qin Yun, Han Shi, and even Zhang Xian had directly or indirectly asked if Qiao Sisi was the one he liked. Fang Zhou, a person who disliked trouble, didn't want to use Qiao Sisi as a shield, so he answered honestly. "She helped me with something." "What did she help you with?" Chu Xinran pressed on, wanting to know more. Explaining the details would be too much. Fang Zhou feared she couldn't handle it. So he shook his head and said softly, "It's inconvenient to say." Then he closed his eyes, ending the conversation. Feeling neglected, Chu Xinran pouted, feeling a bit wronged. Unable to control herself, she reached out and hugged Fang Zhou's arm, resting her head on it. "I'm sleepy. Let me borrow your shoulder for a nap." Fang Zhou wanted to pull away, but the cramped space made big movements noticeable to the people behind them. Qiao Sisi and Han Shi were sitting right behind them. So he gave up. Unable to sleep, he opened his eyes and watched the scenery outside. Yellow mud mixed with rainwater flowed on the road. The muddy river was even more turbulent, looking very dangerous. Wait, why did the mud seem to be increasing? Fang Zhou suddenly stood up, startling Chu Xinran awake. "What's wrong?" she asked with a hint of annoyance. "Landslide," Fang Zhou shouted, trying to wake everyone up. "There's a landslide behind the bus." Fang Zhou's words were like a thunderclap, jolting everyone awake. Outside the rear window, yellow mud mixed with stones from the mountain was rolling down, like a beast chasing the bus, ready to devour it. The landslide mixed with the blocked river beside it, turning the water into yellow mud that quickly spread onto the road. Seeing the murky yellow water outside the window, everyone's heart sank. No way, are they really that lucky to encounter a landslide? Oh no, they might die here. For a moment, the entire bus became chaotic, with everyone talking over each other, discussing what to do. The director, seeing the dire situation, quickly dialed the emergency number. A landslide is no small matter, and who knows if there are vehicles trapped behind them. Fang Zhou quickly walked to the front of the bus, observing the road through the front windshield. The front seemed okay, just some falling rocks, but not far behind them, the rolling mud and stones looked like a giant beast chasing the bus, ready to devour it at any moment. The driver panicked for a moment but soon calmed down, loudly reassuring everyone. "It's okay, don't panic. I'll speed up and get through this section. It's only about 2 or 3 kilometers more." The landslide behind the bus had a limited flow path, so it wouldn't chase them for long. But there were still 2 or 3 kilometers of road ahead with increasing falling rocks, making it extremely dangerous. Screams and exclamations filled the bus. "Ah, that rock just hit the window? It almost broke it. Wah, I don't want to die here. I'm so young, I haven't even held a boy's hand yet. Help, there's no signal here. I can't even send a video." Besides the guests, there were over a dozen people from the production team on the bus, including 2 fresh graduates with faces full of collagen. Fang Zhou knew that panicking wouldn't help, it would only affect the driver's judgment. Once panic spread, the situation would become uncontrollable. He walked back, trying to calm everyone down one by one, but in a life and death situation, who would listen? Even the director was anxiously clutching his phone. "Everyone, quiet down. Let's calm down first. Don't panic. If you need to text your family, do it now. If you need to make a call, do it quickly. If no one calls, call me. Fang Zhou loudly said this in one breath, his humorous and slightly playful words easing the tense atmosphere inside the bus. In life and death situations, people's greatest wish is to see their family again, the most honest and sincere emotional expression. Chi laughed and replied, "You brat, don't jinx us. I still want to live a few more years." Fang Zhou shrugged helplessly and said, "This is the only way to get everyone to calm down." The director knew that panic would only make things worse, so he also stood up and took on the director's responsibility, comforting everyone one by one. "Everyone, don't panic. We have insurance? At worst, our families will benefit." His words, though harsh, had a surprisingly soothing effect. "Ha ha ha, director, how much insurance did you get for us? It better be at least 5 million. Xiao Sisi laughed and joined in, knowing that panicking wouldn't help. The director laughed heartily and winked at Xiao Sisi. "Don't worry, I set a small goal." "Ha ha ha ha, that's more like it." Laughter returned to the bus, easing the earlier panic. After this, everyone finally calmed down again. Even those who spoke did so more quietly. Fang Zhou exchanged a glance with the director, nodded slightly, and sat back in his seat, ready to continue observing the road conditions. Chu Xinran grabbed his arm, looking at him with her wet eyes, and whispered, "I'm a little scared. I heard landslides can kill people." Her voice was small, not daring to speak loudly, afraid of affecting others' emotions. Fang Zhou could see the obvious panic and tension in her eyes. Her delicate eyebrows were furrowed, and her fair face was tight, like a little animal ready to be frightened by any noise. In her amber eyes, his face was reflected, as if he was her only support, the only thread holding the kite in the sky. Fang Zhou's heart softened. This pampered young lady had never seen such a scene before. Coming to the mountains for teaching was already the most remote place she had ever been, and she never expected a landslide. Fang Zhou gently reassured her, "It's okay. We have to believe in our..." He was about to say luck, but remembered his own bad luck and quickly changed his words. "We have to believe in your luck. Your luck has always been good, right?" Back in university, Fang Zhou often took Chu Xinran to scratch lottery tickets. They would each buy 10 tickets worth 10 yuan each at a small shop. Every time, Fang Zhou would lose almost everything, at most getting 20 yuan back, lamenting his bad luck. Chu Xinran, on the other hand, would always win, sometimes 100, sometimes 200, and the most was 3,000. She never lost, always getting at least her money back. Fang Zhou called her a little European because of her good luck. With her European emperor aura, who could compete. As for himself, Fang Zhou could only sigh, gamblers never end well. "I won't come next time." But every time they went shopping, he couldn't resist dragging Chu Xinran to the lottery shop, with the same result. Every time, Chu Xinran would hand him her winning tickets and softly say, "Don't be sad, what's mine is yours." Fang Zhou's reassurance worked, and Chu Xinran nodded obediently, holding his arm tighter. She whispered, "You're right. We shouldn't be that unlucky." Fang Zhou wasn't sure whose luck would prevail, his bad luck or Chu Xinran's good luck. The answer came quickly. A falling rock hit the windshield right next to an empty seat, and Fang Zhou knew. "Ah!" Two girls in the back row screamed in terror, quickly unbuckling their seatbelts and moving to the other side. More rocks fell, and the rain poured in through the broken window, bringing an unusual chill. Everyone's mood grew heavier. Would they be able to get out of this? The moment the falling rock shattered the window, Qin Yun, who had been staring blankly outside, suddenly turned her head, instinctively looking in Fang Zhou's direction to see if he was all right. The sound had come from that direction. But it wasn't Fang Zhou's row, it was the row behind them. When she first saw Chu Xinran clinging to Fang Zhou's arm, Qin Yun couldn't help but narrow her eyes slightly. Her gaze lingered on Chu Xinran's hands wrapped around Fang Zhou's arm, and she suddenly smiled. How glaring. "Fang Zhou, you tolerate your ex-girlfriend so much that you let her cling to your arm, yet why are you so repulsed by me?" Qin Yun felt really uncomfortable, her hands unconsciously clenching at her sides. Recalling how Fang Zhou publicly chose Xiao Sisi yesterday only made her feel even worse, like she had swallowed something filthy. Why can they both do it, but I can't? Qin Yun's mood was as gloomy as the rainy weather outside, shrouded in mist and pouring rain. The driver at the front had no idea about the thoughts of the people on board. He gripped the steering wheel with full concentration, not daring to relax for a moment. He had driven this road for over 10 years and had encountered rainy days before, but this was his first landslide. He was very nervous. Falling rocks constantly tumbled down ahead, big and small stones sliding past, always giving the feeling they might be hit at any moment. Sitting at the back, Fang Zhou had the illusion of crossing a bombing zone in a game, feeling as if justice from the sky would strike at any moment. Everyone was on edge, the tension and fear spreading, weaving a heavy net that enveloped them all. Under this immense pressure, worry and anxiety could turn into a sharp knife ready to pierce the net at any moment. And now, it was just barely maintaining calm. This fragile calm was shattered as another rock hit the window. This time, the passengers weren't so lucky. Chi got hit by the shattered glass, injuring his arm. Though it wasn't serious, the sight of blood flowing out acted like a signal, igniting everyone's emotions. "Stop the bus? It's too dangerous. Don't drive any further." Someone stood up and shouted, wanting the driver to stop the bus. That sharp voice was like the first stone breaking the calm surface of the lake, revealing what lay beneath. Yes? Stop the bus, don't drive any further, it's too dangerous. Why is this road so long? Why haven't we reached a safe area yet? A young girl started crying out of fear, her unrestrained sobs igniting everyone's emotions like fireworks. More and more people began to speak up, saying they shouldn't go any further. The director, feeling helpless, had to ask the driver to stop. Stop for a moment. He was also under great pressure, regretting not waiting a couple of days. Rushing this 1 or 2 days, he had no idea what lay ahead. Luckily, there was a doctor on board to bandage Chi. Open the door, I want to get out. Someone pounded on the door, asking the driver to open it, seemingly wanting to walk out. Fang Zhou stood up, walked over quickly, and pulled the person back. Don't get off the bus. Falling rocks don't have eyes. If one hits your head, it'll be disastrous. Fang Zhou's harsh words were necessary, such mountain accidents were too frequent. On the bus, at least they had some protection. Outside, they'd be at the mercy of the falling rocks. The person thought for a moment and found Fang Zhou's words reasonable, retracting their hand and sighing deeply instead. So what should we do? Fang Zhou went to the back to check, seeing that the mud from the landslide had already moved some distance away, though the road was still muddy, it wasn't life-threatening. The yellow mud mixed with rainwater pounded on the roof, like a young beast anxious for milk, making everyone uneasy. Looking at the side of the mountain, the rain was washing down, causing rocks to slide occasionally. The entire mountain had no trees to cover it, and the top was out of sight, making it impossible to predict when danger might strike. Fang Zhou made a decisive decision, running to the front to speak to the driver. Drive, sir, go through this section as fast as you can. His words coincided with the driver's thoughts. Based on his years of experience, staying here was the most dangerous. With Fang Zhou's encouragement, the driver floored the accelerator, and the bus sped off. Due to inertia, everyone's bodies leaned forward considerably, those without seat belts crashing into the front seats. Luckily, the leather seats cushioned the impact. However, this unconsulted action of driving off caused anger among the passengers. Especially Chi, who was still being treated. The alcohol swab in the doctor's hand stabbed into his flesh, causing him to inhale sharply in pain. Fang Zhou, what are you doing? Chi was so angry he reverted to his native dialect. Yeah, we said to stop, why are we suddenly driving off again? It's dangerous. Please, our lives matter too. What if we get hit again going forward? Complaints and grievances followed, while Fang Zhou stood by the driver, helping him bear the pressure. He whispered to the driver, don't mind them, just drive. Fang Zhou, are you even listening to us? You're too autocratic. Why should the driver listen to you? Damn it. Fang Zhou calmly observed the right side mirror, his gaze fixed on the mountain behind them, ignoring the accusations. In critical moments, equality is useless and only hinders judgment. If they had discussed, most would have chosen to wait for rescue, and they would have wasted time. It was better to be the bad guy and act first, explain later. Yeah, why don't we just wait until the rain stops? Why the rush? Before he could finish, a loud rumble drowned his voice. The deafening sound echoed through the valley, like a thunderbolt striking the hearts of everyone, making their pulses race. Everyone looked outside in panic and saw more mud and rocks suddenly appearing beside the bus. Looking further back, they saw that the spot where they had just stopped had experienced another small collapse, right onto the road. So this is what it means to be a hair's breadth away. Everyone turned pale, looking at Fang Zhou with gratitude. He had just saved them. The torrential rain poured down, the sound of it hitting the glass windows like the rhythm of some kind of music. The outside moisture seeped through the shattered windows, filling everyone's nostrils with a slightly unusual scent. Perhaps astonished by the recent dangerous situation, the entire bus fell silent, not a single sound to be heard. Everyone was still immersed in the near-death experience. Fang Zhou, however, remained standing by the driver's side, observing the surroundings. Be careful on this road. If there's an emergency, stop the bus immediately. Sweat dripped down the sides of the driver's forehead, and the back of his shirt was soaked through. The situation just now was incredibly dangerous. If it hadn't been for this young man telling him to drive, the entire bus would have been buried here. So close, so close. We can't stay here. The longer we wait, the more dangerous it becomes. Let's go quickly. The director finally reacted, running to the front of the bus and urging the driver to speed up. The others seemed to be awakened from a pause by the director's actions, and they began to speak. Damn, we almost died just now. Oh my god, we just brushed past death. This really feels like a scene from a movie. No way, I need to tweet about this. Wait, damn it, no signal. How much longer until we can get out of here? It's really dangerous. Before anyone had a chance to thank Fang Zhou, the driver suddenly slammed on the brakes, almost throwing everyone off again. What's going on? Before they could blame the driver, everyone looked ahead and let out sharp screams. Ah! About 10 meters ahead, the mountain suddenly collapsed, blocking the bus's path. The massive sound echoed in the valley, just like the hearts of the people, suspended and unable to settle. In front of them, a white car was almost buried, its front half already covered. A middle-aged man stumbled out of the car, crawling and running in terror. Reverse the bus. Fang Zhou made a decisive call, directing the driver to reverse about 20 meters to ensure the landslide wouldn't affect the bus. Then he quickly opened the bus door and ran out to support the man. Uncle, are you all right? Seeing someone come to help him, the man spoke with a trembling voice. I am fine, don't worry about me, go save. Is there anyone else in the car? Fang Zhou asked. He feared there might be more people in the white car, still trapped and their fate unknown. My wife is still in the car. The man's arm was injured. Fang Zhou helped him onto the bus, asking the doctor to bandage him. Then he grabbed a small shovel and helmet from the bus's toolbox, preparing to go back down. What are you doing? Someone grabbed his arm. It was Zhang Xian. There are still people in that car. I'm going to see if I can rescue them. It's too dangerous. Zhang Xian didn't agree with his decision. Their conversation attracted the attention of others. Qin Yun and Xiao Sisi both stood up and spoke, wait for the police. How can you dig them out by yourself? Han Shi didn't speak, but her eyes were fixed on him, showing a trace of worry. Chu Xinran rushed over, hugging Fang Zhou's arm tightly, refusing to let him go. No, you can't go down, it's too dangerous. Several landslides had just occurred nearby, and another collapse could happen at any moment. Fang Zhou, a mere human, wanted to fight against nature. It was like a hell-level difficulty. The director's team also didn't agree with him going, and they began to persuade Fang Zhou. We've already called the police. They should be here soon. Seeing everyone trying to stop Fang Zhou, the man, now being bandaged, cried out. My wife is still in there? Please, save her. Everyone fell silent. No one was willing to risk their lives at such a critical moment, even though their conscience told them not to leave someone to die. But compared to their own safety, they couldn't be blamed. It's okay, I have a helmet. Don't worry about me. TLN, ha 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 ha. Fang Zhou, did you really thought a helmet can help you with landslide? Ha ha ha. Fang Zhou pushed Chu Xinran's hand away and quickly got off the bus. In the eyes of everyone on the bus, the man in white walked briskly towards the landslide site. His destination was the half-buried car. No way, doing good deeds without me. Lu Hao quickly followed. Hey, if we're playing heroes, count me in. And me. I'm going too. More and more men got off the bus, joining the rescue effort. They followed Fang Zhou fearlessly, like heroes in a disaster movie who never looked back at explosions. Fang Zhou reached the side of the car and peeked inside. The back seat was empty. The man's wife must be in the front passenger seat. He looked inside and saw a piece of red clothing. Together, they started moving the rocks they could manage, eventually pulling the woman out. The woman's head and body were covered in blood, and she was completely unconscious, severely injured. Let's get her on the bus. Back on the bus, the man cried tearfully, thanking everyone. Exhausted, Fang Zhou slumped into the first seat, glancing at Qin Yun, wondering why she hadn't moved yet. Qin Yun was still angry that Fang Zhou had gone down without listening to anyone's advice. Why was someone else's life so important? Was it more important than his own? On such a dangerous road, he wouldn't let others get off, but he rushed down himself. If a rock had hit Fang Zhou's head, he would have become a corpse. A disobedient man like him really needed to be chained up to stop him from running around and making her worry. Fang Zhou didn't know that his rescue attempt had accelerated Qin Yun's descent into darkness. He turned and shouted, Qin Yun, can you come over and help? Among the people on the bus, there were only 2 doctors, one still bandaging the man. Only Qin Yun had the capability. The elegant lady indeed walked over, crouching beside Fang Zhou, but her first action wasn't to check the patient's wounds. She handed Fang Zhou a tissue. Wipe your sweat. Don't look so disheveled, or I won't be able to control myself. Control myself from breaking your legs, chaining you up, and locking you in a room, away from the dangerous outside world. The outside is too dangerous, only by my side is safe. Feverish, coding through illness, isn't this worth a bit of love-powered motivation? Qin Yun looked at Fang Zhou, her eyes darkening with a twisted resolve, her thoughts spiraling into possessive madness. The tissue handed to him was neatly folded, looking as orderly as Qin Yun herself. Fang Zhou didn't have time to ponder the deeper meaning behind her gaze. Thank you. He took the tissue from Qin Yun and roughly wiped his face before looking back at her, as if silently asking, can we save her now? Qin Yun finally smiled slightly, opening the portable medical kit she carried and began treating the old woman's wounds. The injuries of the old man and woman were like a bell ringing on the mountain, reminding everyone of the danger here. For a moment, the bus was silent, everyone waiting for Qin Yun's diagnosis. The sight of the old woman's blood was shocking. About 10 minutes later, Qin Yun finally removed her medical gloves, taking the bottled water Fang Zhou had found for her to wash her hands by the door. How is she? Fang Zhou followed her off the bus, and everyone's eyes were on her, waiting for an answer. The wound is too large. Given the current conditions, I can only stop the bleeding temporarily. Further treatment will need to be done at a hospital. Qin Yun finished washing her hands and casually threw the trash into the plastic bag Fang Zhou had prepared. Their actions were smooth and coordinated, as if they had rehearsed countless times. Someone on the bus watched with a tinge of jealousy. Thank you. Is she out of immediate danger? Fang Zhou couldn't help but glance at the old man on the bus. He had just finished his bandaging and was eagerly checking on his wife. Qin Yun looked up at the nearby rocky mountain, towering and majestic, with only a small part visible against the sky. Even if the rescue team arrived, it would take days for the bus to get out of here. If they wanted to save people, they would have to risk crossing the collapsed mountain and river or go out themselves. Fang Zhou would likely choose to scout ahead. Just thinking about it gave her a headache. How could she stop him? Qin Yun's eyes darkened, countless thoughts flashing through her mind before she decided to tell the truth. She's stable for now, but without medication, it's hard to say if we delay too long. Damn it, the previous incident had already made him so wary of her. If she lied again, he would surely want to escape even more. Sometimes, Qin Yun hated her love for Fang Zhou. She loved him so much that even a well-meaning lie required careful consideration, ultimately leading to compromise. If only she could, like in an anime, ignore all societal norms, even his aversion, and keep him by her side forever. Fang Zhou had no idea what the curly-haired woman beside him was thinking. He only furrowed his brow, looking at the collapsed mountain ahead, contemplating his options. About a minute later, he ran back to the bus and asked the director, "When will the rescue team arrive?" The director had called again during the rescue and received a more accurate time. About half an hour. Fang Zhou nodded, indicating he understood. He then asked the driver, "How much longer on this route?" If it was 2 or 3 kilometers earlier, there shouldn't be much left now. About a kilometer. Once we pass this section, it's a flat area with no high mountains on either side. The falling rocks continued to rain down, threatening the bus and everyone's safety. Staying put could mean being buried by the mountain. Leaving meant crossing the collapsed rocks and river, and dealing with falling stones. A tough choice. The director, being conservative, suggested everyone stay and wait for rescue after Fang Zhou explained the situation. No one wanted to take risks, they preferred to wait. Fang Zhou didn't force them. He couldn't sit still on the bus and got off to observe the surrounding mountains. If there were changes, he could warn everyone to evacuate. After all, he had a helmet. Even if rocks fell, he should be safe. On the bus, everyone had different expressions, lost in their thoughts. Perhaps Chu Xinran's worry was too evident, so even Zhang Ziyan couldn't help but comfort her. "Don't worry too much. We'll get out soon." Zhang Ziyan, feeling a natural care for her youngest and most delicate sister, spoke softly. Chu Xinran withdrew her gaze from Fang Zhou, smiling lightly. "Ziyanji, was he like this in high school too?" "Like this." Zhang Ziyan didn't understand her meaning, so she repeated. "When something happened, did he also protect everyone like this?" That short sentence made Zhang Ziyan nostalgic, memories flooding back. She nodded slightly, unable to resist talking about their high school days. "In our first semester of high school, we were required to go on a 30-mile hike. At that time, we were all 15 or 16, some with good stamina, others not so much. I was always the last, while he was at the front of the class." Zhang Ziyan's gaze fell on Fang Zhou, bringing her back to the young boy from over a decade ago. Back then, she lagged far behind due to exhaustion, almost out of sight of her classmates. She could only see the endless road and the wild grass around her. Fatigue and loneliness overwhelmed her, her calves ached, and her waist felt like it carried a mountain's weight, almost making her want to give up. But it was about the class's honor, and the teacher's words before they set off still echoed in her mind. "It's okay to fall behind, as long as we're not dead last." She didn't dare to stop and become the last, so she walked with tears streaming down her face. The head teacher got worried and grabbed her, saying, "Ziyan, why don't you take the bus? I don't want to be last." At that moment, Fang Zhou appeared. The boy, with a bright smile, took Zhang Ziyan's hand and led her forward. "If you don't want to be last, just follow me." He had stopped at some point, searching for her in the crowd, and upon hearing she was at the back, he ran to find her. Seeing she couldn't keep up, he carried her on his back, keeping pace with the group. High schoolers loved to joke, saying Fang Zhou was like Pigsy carrying his wife. Fang Zhou wasn't angry, instead, he laughed and responded, "If I could marry such a beautiful wife, turning into Pigsy would be worth it." He spoke carelessly, but she took it to heart. From that moment, 15-year-old Fang Zhou moved into Zhang Ziyan's heart, and he stayed there for 11 years. After hearing Zhang Ziyan's story, Chu Xinran couldn't help but smile. "I knew it, he's always been so good." Zhang Ziyan raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Did you know him before?" Although she suspected that the female guests on the romance show had special feelings for Fang Zhou, without confirmation, she couldn't be sure and could only speculate. Chu Xinran smiled and took out a previously deleted photo of her and Fang Zhou, showing it to Zhang Ziyan. "We actually met in college." The photo, once deleted for unknown reasons, reappeared on Chu Xinran's phone because she had a backup. However, her tears that day were real. She genuinely thought Fang Zhou had deleted it, believing he was so heartless as to not even keep a photo. Looking at the perfectly matched couple in the photo, Zhang Ziyan couldn't smile anymore. She blinked and looked elsewhere, saying meaningfully, "I see. I thought you didn't know each other before." At that moment, Zhang Ziyan was 80% certain that Chu Xinran was one of Fang Zhou's ex-girlfriends, including Xiao Sisi, that maid too. Perhaps the others were also entangled with him. Zhang Ziyan's mind flashed with vivid dreams she had, and her once calm heart grew anxious again. Could Chu Xinran be the one who hurt Fang Zhou? Originally, they thought they could stay safely on the bus and wait for rescue. Unfortunately, the river beside the highway had other plans. Blocked by collapsed mountains on both ends, the river's water began to rise. After only 10 minutes, the water had reached their calves. Fang Zhou frowned, sensing danger. If the water level continued to rise and slammed against the mountain, even the stable parts might collapse. They had to leave this area. He decisively explained the situation to everyone on the bus. Realizing the urgency, no one dared to stay. They followed Fang Zhou and the director's suggestion to walk through the area. Fang Zhou found a rope from the toolbox, having the heaviest Sun Haoshan lead the way, with everyone else holding the rope in line. The water flowed harder, and lighter people like Chu Xinran could easily be swept away. Holding the rope provided some security. Someone led the way, and Fang Zhou stayed at the back, watching everyone to ensure no one fell behind. They struggled through the water, stepping on the recently collapsed rocks, slipping and stumbling. Someone carried the unconscious old woman, moving even slower. A few hundred meters felt exceptionally difficult. Xiao Sisi slipped and fell into the water, her face soaked. Someone quickly helped her up, asking softly, "Are you okay? Can you walk? Do you need me to carry you?" Xiao Sisi glanced at Fang Zhou, who was watching her indifferently, as if she were causing trouble on purpose. Feeling a bit wronged, she tightened her grip on the rope and said, "I'm fine, thank you." Then she limped forward, forcing herself to move. Fang Zhou breathed a sigh of relief, not because he feared she'd ask him to carry her, but because it would hinder his observation of the surroundings. Before he could think more, a falling rock headed straight for the group. Lu Hao, 2 steps left. Lu Hao's body reacted faster than his mind, moving 2 steps as Fang Zhou suggested. A rock the size of a palm fell by his feet with a thud. Damn. Lu Hao realized Fang Zhou had just saved his life. Without his warning, he could have been seriously injured or worse. Thanks, man. Separated by several people, Lu Hao wished he could run over and hug Fang Zhou. Hurry up, we're almost there. Fang Zhou urged everyone to move faster. The water had reached his thighs, nearing his waist. If they didn't leave soon, they'd have to swim, and the raging river was too dangerous to cross. Despite rushing, it took several minutes for nearly 20 people to traverse the path. When it was Fang Zhou's turn, it had already been several minutes. Stepping on a rock, Fang Zhou was about to take another step when the rock slipped, and he fell into the water. The water cushioned his fall but still hit hard. Muddy water rushed into his lungs, making it hard to breathe. Fang Zhou. Someone called his name, but he couldn't respond. One hand pounded his chest, the other supported him to keep from falling. Suddenly, someone grabbed him, pulling him from the water and patting his back, helping him breathe again. Tears from choking blurred his vision. He wiped them away and saw Zhang Xian beside him. "Why did you come back?" He looked up, seeing everyone had made it past the collapsed mountain to safety. Why had she returned? "I'm walking with you." She supported him, heading up the rocky mountain together. She had looked back and, not seeing Fang Zhou, worriedly returned to find him fallen. "Why did you come back? It's dangerous." Fang Zhou couldn't help but scold her, partly out of concern and partly touched. "Let's go, no time for talk." Zhang Xian climbed the rocky mountain with Fang Zhou, noticing his bleeding leg. "Your leg? It's fine, just needs some medicine later. Let's go." Fang Zhou waved, urging Zhang Xian to move. But he underestimated the wound. Soaked in water, it didn't hurt much, but now the wind and moisture made it excruciating. Taking a step, his leg gave out, and he almost fell. Fang Zhou. Zhang Xian, too weak to hold him, fell with him. In a critical moment, Fang Zhou wrapped his arm around Zhang Xian, protecting her head as they tumbled down like rolling stones. Before losing consciousness, Fang Zhou had one thought: damn, this hurts? After the heavy rain, the sky was as clear as if the world had been washed clean, leaving no trace of dirt, only purity and beauty. The pebbles on the riverbank were spotless, without a trace of mud, except for the still muddy river water, which continued to surge forward. Someone dragged their exhausted body to the riverbank, then pulled another person from the water, finally collapsing on the stones, breathing heavily. After a moment, the person gathered some strength and knelt beside the unconscious individual, shaking him. "Fang Zhou, wake up." This person was none other than Zhang Xian, who had fallen with Fang Zhou. Both were swept away by the river. Fang Zhou lost consciousness, but Zhang Xian managed to hold his neck to keep him from sinking, though she couldn't stop them from being carried by the current. Fortunately, she could swim well and found a chance to drag Fang Zhou ashore. She had no idea how far they had drifted. Zhang Xian shook Fang Zhou for a long time without any response, growing increasingly anxious. She searched for her phone, but it had been washed away. She had no communication tools. She then checked Fang Zhou's pockets, but his phone was also gone. Her eyes landed on his watch. There's hope. Zhang Xian quickly removed his watch, preparing to call for help, but the screen was black and showed nothing. The watch had been waterlogged and couldn't make a call. Just then, Fang Zhou coughed out some water and slowly opened his eyes. "You're awake." Zhang Xian was overjoyed and immediately asked about his condition. "How are you? Are you uncomfortable anywhere?" Her enthusiasm wasn't met with a corresponding response. Fang Zhou slowly sat up, listening to her voice, then cautiously asked, "Xian, is that you?" Zhang Xian's smile froze, like sugar melting in the sun. "What's wrong with you?" Her voice was filled with panic, not understanding why Fang Zhou was asking such an obvious question. "I don't know if it's dark or what, but all I see is black. I think I'm blind." Fang Zhou's voice remained steady, his expression calm, but his words left Zhang Xian speechless. "You can't see? How is that possible?" She waved her hand in front of Fang Zhou's face, but his eyes didn't focus. Disbelieving, she got up and leaned close to him, so close that her breath touched his face. He called her name. Xian. Even then, he didn't avoid her, unable to tell where she was, only knowing she was very close. Zhang Ziyan saw her own face reflected in his pupils, filled with surprise, pain, and confusion. Fang Zhou was blind? Would he be blind for life? Losing sight is hard for anyone to accept, especially for a streamer like Fang Zhou who relies on his vision. It was a huge blow. Zhang Ziyan felt a sharp pain in her heart, like a blender churning it to pieces. The pain made it hard to breathe. Each breath felt like torture. He got severely injured protecting her. She thought that 11 years after he helped her, she could help him in return. But fate played a cruel trick, and she ended up being protected again. She collapsed, sitting on the ground, looking at Fang Zhou in a daze. Tears fell uncontrollably, and she kept muttering, "It's my fault." Fang Zhou's body ached everywhere, each movement pulling at countless wounds, especially the back of his head, which felt like it had been hit by something heavy, both heavy and painful. He could see nothing but darkness, like a leaf floating in water, lost and directionless. A strange unease filled his heart, but hearing Zhang Ziyan's voice gave him a sense of reliance. "It's not your fault, don't blame yourself." Fang Zhou gently comforted her. He reached out, trying to touch her head but couldn't find the direction and came up empty. Seeing this, Zhang Ziyan quickly grabbed his hand, crying and blaming herself. "If I hadn't come back for you, you wouldn't have used yourself as a cushion to protect me and gotten so hurt." The guilt and self-blame felt like two invisible mountains pressing down on Zhang Ziyan, suffocating the usually confident and talented writer. I'm sorry, Fang Zhou." Zhang Ziyan's sincere apology made Fang Zhou feel uncomfortable. He followed her hand, finding her head, and gently stroked her wet hair. "It's really not your fault. I had already fallen and hurt my leg before you came back. But you shouldn't have come back. Now you're stuck in the wild with me." Her hair was still wet, and the only sounds around were birds, beasts, and the rushing river, indicating they were still not safe. Fang Zhou smiled as he spoke. His tone was light, not like someone who had just learned he was blind. "Besides your eyes and leg, are you seriously hurt anywhere else?" Zhang Ziyan wiped her tears, wanting to check for other injuries, but Fang Zhou stopped her. "It's fine, just minor injuries. A few days of rest will heal. Save your strength." Not knowing when rescue would come, and with him blind, Zhang Ziyan might have to take on the responsibility of caring for both of them. Zhang Ziyan knew he was just trying to stop her from worrying and feeling guilty. With tears in her eyes, she stared at Fang Zhou and thought, "You're always so warm. Even when hurt, you comfort others first. Wherever you are, there's always support." Zhang Ziyan suddenly remembered her brother's question. Fang Zhou has no money, no career, nothing but a face. What do you like about him? She thought, now she could finally answer her brother. She liked his personality. Personality is abstract, but with Fang Zhou, it's so concrete. He treats everyone and everything with warmth, passion, stability, and reliability. Like a high mountain to look up to, a path to follow. That's why so many girls are willing to follow him. "Fang Zhou, I will stay by your side, no matter what," Zhang Ziyan whispered, holding his hand tightly. Zhang Ziyan helped Fang Zhou sit under a tree, using a torn piece of cloth to fetch some clean water, which she handed to Fang Zhou. Maybe it was the exhaustion, but Fang Zhou found the water incredibly sweet. "That's enough." Fang Zhou drank deeply, signaling Zhang Ziyan to stop. She nodded lightly, then remembered he couldn't see at the moment, so she spoke up. "All right, let me know if you get thirsty again." Zhang Ziyan leaned her back against the tree trunk, quietly looking at Fang Zhou's face, her feelings a mix of emotions. Even after being soaked in the muddy river, his face was still so resilient. Dappled sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting a halo around him, making him look like a fallen hero from a fairy tale. Clearly, Fang Zhou didn't have to suffer like this if he hadn't stayed behind to protect everyone. The more she thought about it, the more it pained Zhang Ziyan. "Where are we now? Can we contact the outside?" After resting for a while, Fang Zhou felt a bit more energy returning and asked. He couldn't see anything, relying entirely on Zhang Ziyan for information. "I searched around earlier. My phone was washed away, and your watch is waterlogged and useless. We'll probably have to wait for rescue or hope for nearby villagers." Zhang Ziyan sighed, telling him the truth. If they weren't injured, they could try moving south, but after falling and being swept away, they were too exhausted. It was better to stay put and wait for rescue. The river likely doesn't have many branches. The rescue team just needs to follow the river to find us. "Don't be scared, we'll be out of here soon." Fang Zhou gently reassured Zhang Ziyan, trying to comfort her. Zhang Ziyan was amused by his words. "Why does it sound like you're the one comforting me when it's you who can't see?" Her laughter lightened Fang Zhou's mood, and he smiled broadly. "I'm just worried you might be scared." They both laughed, easing the heaviness of their situation. "Besides, think about it. We survived being swept away by a flood. We must be destined for good fortune. I'll buy a lottery ticket when we get back, maybe we'll win 5 million. Fang Zhou spoke with such hope that Zhang Ziyan couldn't help but laugh along. "You mean the flood washed away your bad luck?" "Exactly. In novels, the protagonist always gets stronger after falling off a cliff or facing hardship. With you, a great writer, by my side, you must be my wise mentor. Hehe, when we get back, you'll help me pick the lottery numbers." Fang Zhou's bright smile made Zhang Ziyan feel he was even more dazzling than the sunlight, almost too bright to look at directly. "Sure. If I could, I'd give you all my good luck." She softly agreed, her gaze shifting to the scenery behind him. A lush green mountain stood firm and steady. The sunlight after the rain felt like a hand lifting a maiden's veil, revealing her shy beauty. In ancient times, Liang Shanbo dared not look at Guanyin, and now, she dared not face the Green Mountain. Fang Zhou, what do you most want to do? At that moment, Zhang Xian suddenly wanted to know Fang Zhou's wishes. If she could, she wanted to help him. My wish? I just hope my little sister gets better soon. Fang Zhou couldn't see anything, but his mind conjured images of his sister. He had promised to be back today to see her, but it seemed he'd break that promise again. Fortunately, his sister Fang Wenjing was always understanding, knowing he was busy and never blaming him for not making it back. Fang Zhou felt bittersweet, both sad and comforted. Their parents passed away early, and his sister matured quickly, living at school and taking care of herself from a young age, only asking her brother for help with things she couldn't handle alone. What's wrong with your sister? Zhang Xian frowned, not knowing the situation. She had met Fang Zhou's sister before. With a 10-year age gap, when they were in high school, Fang Wenjing was still a cute little girl. She'd come to the school gate to pick up Fang Zhou, who could lift her with one hand like a doll. Back then, classmates joked about his brotherly strength. She's sick, but I'll make money soon to get her better. Fang Zhou's smile faded slightly, but he didn't mind telling Zhang Xian. After all, she was a good friend, and it didn't matter if she knew. Zhang Xian's heart sank, sensing something was wrong. For Fang Zhou to be so worried and constantly thinking about it, it couldn't be a minor illness. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked. Why apologize? It's not a secret. Now wasn't the time to delve into it further. She decided to investigate more when they got back. If you need my help, just ask. Zhang Xian spoke cautiously, fearing that offering help might hurt his pride. Fang Zhou chuckled lightly. If she had offered half a year ago, he might have broken his principles and borrowed money from a friend. But now, they had enough for the kidney transplant. It's fine. Let's not talk about that. What about you? What do you most want to do? Fang Zhou asked in return. I probably want to write a book. A book? Haven't you written many already? Fang Zhou was puzzled. This one's different. I want to write something based on reality, not fiction or fantasy. She silently added, I want to write our story. About my secret love and the story behind it. In her past books, the characters always had a bit of Fang Zhou in them. This time, she wanted to make him the protagonist and write a story about him. With your skill, you'll write it easily. Good luck, and let me read it when you're done. Ha ha ha, ouch. Fang Zhou laughed so hard it pulled at his wounds, making him wince in pain. Zhang Xian smiled helplessly and walked behind him, speaking softly, don't move, let me check your back. She gently lifted Fang Zhou's shirt, shocked by the sight of the deep cuts, frozen in place. The wounds crisscrossed his back, caused by sharp stones. You fool, it's clearly painful, so why do you keep smiling? Author's note, Fang Zhou's blindness is only temporary, he will recover. Zhang Xian saw the wounds on Fang Zhou's back and was shocked and heartbroken. Tears fell from her eyes immediately. One tear accidentally landed on one of Fang Zhou's wounds, causing him to wince in pain. Ouch, is it raining? He felt the drops on his wound, which stung like salt being rubbed in. Zhang Xian quickly wiped the tears from his back, but she couldn't stop the tears from falling from her face, making his back wetter. Fang Zhou finally understood that the silent Zhang Xian must have been crying. Are you crying? Fang Zhou asked cautiously, thinking his wounds might have scared her. He hurriedly pulled his shirt down and tried to comfort her. Don't look, don't look. Zhang Xian finally controlled her emotions and asked in a low voice, does it hurt a lot? With so many wounds, it must hurt terribly. If she hadn't asked, would he have never told her? It's all right, it hurts a bit but I can bear it. Don't cry, I'm fine. Fang Zhou couldn't see her, so he clumsily grasped the corner of her clothes to comfort her. Why had she, like Chu Xinran, turned into a crying mess? People always said girls were made of water, he thought these two must be made of seawater, with tears both salty and plentiful. Just as Fang Zhou was inwardly complaining, he suddenly felt a soft body press against him. Zhang Xian had embraced him. Her arms wrapped around Fang Zhou, crossing at his waist. Though they seemed close, she was careful not to touch his wounds. Her head rested against his neck as she whispered, you didn't have to take care of us. If Fang Zhou hadn't stepped up to be the leader, he wouldn't have stayed behind and wouldn't be in this current misfortune. Zhang Xian knew that for Fang Zhou, that was impossible. His character had been shaped since he was young, he could never be someone who ignored others. But out of concern for him, she still said it. If Fang Zhou had been a bit more selfish, at least he would have been safe. Fang Zhou knew she was only saying this because she cared too much. He smiled and released her clothes. I wasn't being selfless, someone needed to step up, and it just happened to be me. Besides, it was a natural disaster, something no one could predict. Thank you for coming back to pull me out. Fang Zhou sincerely thanked Zhang Xian. From childhood to adulthood, in group activities, whether it was hiking, volleyball games, or sports meets, Fang Zhou had always been the one to take care of the big picture. This was the first time someone had turned back to help him. As he spoke, he placed his hand on Zhang Xian's arm, gently pulling her away. If her need for a hug was just from the anxiety of their situation, the time should have been enough. Unexpectedly, as soon as he pulled her away, Zhang Xian's hands went back around him. Don't push me away, Fang Zhou. I'm scared. Her voice was filled with confusion and unease, with a slight tremble if one listened closely. Because at that moment, Zhang Ziyan remembered the dream where Fang Zhou had died horribly. I had a dream. She could no longer bear the pressure and slowly began to speak. Fang Zhou was silent for a moment, thinking to himself, girls really are creatures with an extreme lack of security. So he let her hug him a bit longer. What dream? He continued the conversation. When he couldn't see anything, his hearing became more sensitive. He heard Zhang Ziyan's breathing become rapid, and her hands around his waist tightened, almost gripping his flesh. I dreamed about you. I dreamed you achieved great success and were admired by thousands, but you were locked in a dark room with no light. Zhang Ziyan's speech slowed, with pauses between each sentence, as she needed to calm her emotions. For her, recalling the dream was no less painful than seeing Fang Zhou die in the real world. The suffocating and helpless feeling of near-death cut her throat and heart like a dull knife. Huh? I was locked in a dark room? Why? Did I do something illegal? Fang Zhou's first reaction was wondering if he had been caught watching certain websites at night and taken in for questioning. Cough, cough, that couldn't be right. With so many people watching, why would they only catch him? Moreover, the websites were given by Li Siming. If anyone got caught, it should be him first? Zhang Ziyan paused for a moment, then continued, because you were locked up by a woman. In the end, you were forced to jump off a building. She didn't say the last two words. She feared her words would come true, that something that wouldn't happen would happen because of her. There was a thing called metaphysics in the world. People in their circle often talked about cause and effect. If Fang Zhou's fate, which he shouldn't bear, came true because of her dream, Zhang Ziyan would deeply regret it. What happened in the end? Fang Zhou pressed. Her stopping halfway was like scratching an itch halfway, making him uncomfortable. Zhang Ziyan decided to change her words. In the end, you met a bad fate. Fang Zhou finally understood her euphemism and asked, I died a horrible death. Her silence confirmed his interpretation. He laughed heartily and said softly, it's just a dream, don't take it too seriously. Zhang Ziyan shook her head, explaining earnestly. No, you must take my words to heart. Fang Zhou, remember, stay away from your ex-girlfriends. They're dangerous. Her tone was firm and serious, something Fang Zhou had never heard before. His mood also became heavy. So, in Zhang Ziyan's dream, he died horribly because of his ex-girlfriends? Given that none of them were normal, it seemed somewhat believable. They were all yanderies. Damn, could Zhang Ziyan's dream be prophetic? Fang Zhou suddenly felt panicked. Was his karma for being a jerk coming back to bite him? No, he was a socialist successor, a staunch materialist. It was just a dream, it couldn't come true, right? But she was right, staying away from them would definitely increase his safety. Fang Zhou, will you promise me? Behind him was Zhang Ziyan's fragile and helpless voice. She didn't know how to help Fang Zhou or how to prevent those people. All right, I promise you. Fang Zhou solemnly agreed, easing Zhang Ziyan's heart a bit. No matter what, she would never let the dream come true. After what felt like a long time, Zhang Ziyan finally let go and leaned back against the tree trunk. She chatted with Fang Zhou about interesting topics, trying to divert their attention. But as she spoke, she began to feel drowsy herself. Being swept away by the river and the intense tension after reaching the shore had left Zhang Ziyan physically and mentally exhausted. Now, leaning against the tree, fatigue slowly took over. She closed her eyes lightly and whispered to Fang Zhou, I'm going to nap for a bit. Call me if you need anything. All right, you sleep. Fang Zhou replied. In truth, he couldn't see anything. Even if something unexpected happened, he might not be able to react in time. But he just wanted her to get some rest. Once Zhang Ziyan fell truly asleep, Fang Zhou could even hear her shallow breathing. Apart from that, there were only the sounds of birds and flowing water. To be honest, this was his first time being blind, and he was quite scared. But he couldn't show it just now. Since they hadn't escaped their predicament, if he showed weakness first, Zhang Ziyan would also collapse, then neither of them would be able to hold out until rescue arrived. He should be thankful that the person beside him now was Zhang Ziyan and not any of his ex-girlfriends. At least she wouldn't cause any trouble that would force him to deal with their conflicts while they were in this situation. As he was lost in thought, he suddenly heard the woman beside him talking in her sleep. Fang Zhou leaned his body closer, trying to hear what she was saying. Fang Zhou, don't die. He could barely make out these few words. Fang Zhou chuckled to himself, whispering, even in your dreams, you're telling me not to die. I guess your dream was pretty scary. As he was mulling over this, he suddenly heard someone calling out from a distance. Hey, who are you people? His heart leaped with joy. It must be the rescue team. Hospitals always smelled of disinfectant. Some people got used to it, while others couldn't stand it and had to cover their noses with tissues. A pair of velvet-tied high heels clicked into the ward, drawing the attention of the person on the bed. Fang Zhou tilted his head slightly and asked softly, who's there? With the help of the rescue team, he and Zhang Ziyan had quickly boarded a vehicle to the city and were taken to the hospital. Due to limited medical facilities in the city hospital, he was transferred to a hospital in the capital without delay. Today was his second day in the hospital. Like him, Zhang Ziyan had undergone a full-body checkup and was allowed to leave after confirming she had no major issues. As for him, the results of an MRI scan would be available today. The visitor didn't respond, but Fang Zhou knew they hadn't left. The feeling of being watched was strong, even if he couldn't see, he could sense it. The person remained silent, just standing in the ward and watching him, making Fang Zhou feel puzzled. Suddenly, He felt the bed sink a bit, indicating the person had sat down. Then, a cold voice spoke. Can you really not see? It was Han Shi's voice. Fang Zhou was taken aback, not expecting her to be the first to visit him. Han Shi had returned to the capital, and there must have been a lot of work waiting for her, but she had left everything to come to the hospital. Surely, it wasn't just to check on a former subordinate. He paused for a moment before replying, yes. Han Shi rarely wore high heels. She had dressed up for a luncheon today but rushed to the hospital as soon as she heard Fang Zhou was admitted. Before returning to the capital, Zhang Xian had contacted the director's team, who informed the guests they were safe, and everyone returned. But the director hadn't mentioned that Fang Zhou couldn't see. Otherwise, she would never have left him and waited until today to visit. I asked the doctor, it's likely temporary blindness caused by a head injury. You'll recover soon, don't lose hope. The usually stern and efficient CEO, even when consoling someone, sounded a bit cold. But to Fang Zhou, these were the kindest words Han Shi could muster. Usually, if she didn't throw a few sarcastic remarks, something would feel off. It's okay, I'm not afraid. The director bought insurance, so if worse comes to worst, I can claim tens of thousands in compensation. Fang Zhou said with a cheerful tone, making Han Shi frown slightly. Tens of thousands for your eyesight. She seemed a bit displeased, her tone reflecting her annoyance. Fang Zhou scratched his head and said towards the direction where the bed had sunk, well, I'm still alive, so that's something. In truth, he had considered various ways to make money, including some unethical but not illegal methods, like claiming insurance money. But after understanding the risks, he decided to be a law-abiding citizen. Seeing his nonchalant attitude about his life, Han Shi's anger slowly rose, and the atmosphere around her grew colder. She grabbed Fang Zhou's hospital gown collar, leaning in closer as she spoke. From your tone, it sounds like you regret not getting a few $100,000 in compensation for dying. The faint scent of her perfume, like gardenias after a rain, grew stronger with her emotions, filling Fang Zhou's nostrils. He subtly moved back a bit to let more fresh air in and then responded, well, it wouldn't be too bad. After all, how many ordinary people can earn a few $100,000 in their lifetime? If he could give that money to his sister and let her live well, it wouldn't be so bad. Sometimes, Fang Zhou felt immensely tired of this world. Of course, this fatigue was temporary, not a constant presence in his heart. It's better to live miserably than to die easily. If one can live, who would choose to die? He simply saw things more clearly. Everyone dies eventually. If his death had meaning and value, that wouldn't be too bad either. Han Shi's grip tightened, her voice low and intense. Fang Zhou, don't you ever dare talk like that again. Fang Zhou's reasoning, which seemed sensible to him, infuriated Han Shi. She laughed coldly, as if provoked, and her grip on his collar tightened unconsciously. A few $100,000 can buy your life? So your life is that worthless? Though her face remained calm, her eyes seemed to hide ice, so cold that even a glance could freeze someone. Fang Zhou felt goosebumps on his hand, sensing Han Shi's displeasure. He swallowed the words he was about to say. How is it worthless? A few $100,000 is a lot, and kept them inside. Ha ha ha, no, of course my life is valuable. I was just making an example. He laughed awkwardly, feeling Han Shi's proximity and quietly moved back a bit, but there was nowhere to retreat with the headboard right behind him. They say a woman's heart is like a needle in the sea, hard to grasp. Fang Zhou couldn't agree more. Even Han Shi could be so unpredictable, so what woman in the world had stable emotions? What he didn't know was that Han Shi's heart was in turmoil at this moment. She felt upset about Fang Zhou's disregard for his own life and annoyed that she wasn't with him when he was swept away by the flood, unable to be there for him immediately. Now Fang Zhou couldn't see. He kept saying it was fine, but when a person has to rely on others for basic tasks like eating and drinking, it's a huge blow to their self-esteem. Han Shi had seen it firsthand, how just being unable to walk normally turned a gentle woman into someone irritable and unpredictable. Back then, Han Shi was only 12, just starting middle school. Her family had hired a tutor for her, a pretty and quiet college girl whom Han Shi liked a lot. With the tutor's help, Han Shi finished a year's worth of coursework ahead of time and performed excellently. Her busy father, upon hearing this, personally talked to the tutor in his study, even offering her a raise. He also invited her to stay for dinner. But this action enraged Han Shi's mother. Seeing her mother wheel into the study with a grim face, Han Shi felt curious and eavesdropped outside the door. She saw her mother smash her father's treasured Yuan dynasty porcelain and scream at him, I knew you liked young and pretty girls. If that's the case, why don't you bring that tutor home? I'll make space for her. Then you two can be together openly, and I won't be here to disgust you. That hideous side of her mother was something Han Shi had never seen before. Her mother, who rarely got to go outside, always greeted everyone with a smile, even if she disliked them. But after falling and breaking her leg on the back hill, losing her ability to walk, her personality changed. She became unpredictable, moody, and sometimes talked to the birds in the house. Or she'd throw feed into the koi pond until the fish overate and floated belly up, and only then would she smile contentedly. Han Shi knew from a young age that her mother hadn't married her father willingly, and being confined to the mountain villa made her unhappy. Everyone longs for freedom, even if it's rare, some are willing to sacrifice a lot for it. She had also witnessed her mother's numerous attempts to escape, using all kinds of methods. After breaking her leg, her mother could no longer escape and became a different person. She became sensitive, insecure, and twisted. Even her father's act of kindness towards Han Shi's tutor caused her to lash out. Perhaps she truly loved her father, but she also hated him. So she feared being replaced but also hated being confined by him. At 12, Han Shi listened at the study door, hearing them argue, accuse each other, her father complaining about an ungrateful wife, her mother accusing him of infidelity with the young tutor. Finally, unable to bear her closest people hurting each other, Han Shi rushed in to stop the fight. But her mother slapped her hard, sneering, "Do you want a young, pretty, elegant mother too? Do you wish I'd die soon so you and your father can start a new family?" That slap seemed to knock the spirit out of Han Shi. She cried her heart out under her blanket. Even when her mother tearfully apologized later, saying she lost control because of her love for them, Han Shi couldn't forgive her. "Sorry, Shi, I love you so much that I lost control. I'm afraid of losing you and being replaced." But similar things kept happening until Han Shi grew numb and stopped listening to her mother's explanations. Her busy father, focused on the company and her mother, had no time for her. He only asked about her grades, ranking, when she could skip a grade, and set high standards for her to meet adult expectations. From that day, the once lively Han Shi became quiet and withdrawn. She suppressed all her emotions, solving problems on her own without seeking help. One accident changed the fate and character of 3 people. She didn't know if staying cheerful and making different choices at different crossroads would lead to a different life. So Han Shi genuinely feared Fang Zhou might end up like her mother. Her grip on his collar tightened as she leaned closer, whispering, "Money isn't the most important thing, health is. A mere few 100,000 if you want it, I can give it to you. But your life cannot be exchanged for it, by anyone. Do you understand?" Han Shi's aura was overwhelming, making the room feel colder, causing Fang Zhou to shiver. He hadn't expected her to be so serious and could only nod obediently, replying, "Yes, I understand." Perhaps it was Han Shi's serious attitude that influenced Fang Zhou. After responding, he no longer joked about his health. If Fang Zhou could see right now, he would notice the usually emotionless and cold-faced Han Shi showing a complex expression. In fact, she had just lied. The doctor had said there was a high chance of temporary blindness, which also meant that permanent blindness was still a possibility. The thought of this possibility made Han Shi unable to think calmly. She already had an example to follow and didn't want Fang Zhou to end up like her mother, destroyed by insecurity. If he was afraid, she didn't mind providing him with enough security. "Fang Zhou, don't be afraid. Even if your vision doesn't recover, I'll take care of you," Han Shi suddenly said, catching Fang Zhou off guard. Did she even know what she was saying? Was the female CEO offering to support him? This scene was straight out of those idol dramas where the male lead expresses deep feelings after the female lead is injured. But unfortunately, life wasn't an idol drama, and they weren't the gender-reversed protagonists. Fang Zhou turned his head to avoid Han Shi's breath and calmly said, "It's okay. Even if I can't see, I can still do blind massages. I shouldn't need someone else to support me." Not to mention that their relationship was only that of exes, why would she support him? And his blindness had nothing to do with her. Even if his vision couldn't be restored, Han Shi shouldn't be responsible for his remaining life. Maybe it was just Han Shi's sudden sympathy as a businesswoman. Han Shi knew her straightforward offer was hard for him to accept, but she couldn't understand why Fang Zhou could call a top supporter in his livestream sister but couldn't agree to her request. Wasn't it the same way to earn money? She was offering him the same. In a flash of inspiration, she took out her phone, searching for something. Suddenly, her fingers paused as she found it. It was a post Fang Zhou had made 2 months ago. At that time, they hadn't joined the show and didn't know when they would meet again. The post read, "I don't want to try anymore. Is there a rich woman who sees through my weakness and lets me avoid struggling for 20 years? It was accompanied by a meme of Tom the cat lying down. Han Shi tapped her finger on the screen to get Fang Zhou's attention and asked seriously, "Since you can post about finding a rich woman, why not reconsider me?" Fang Zhou's mind was filled with question marks, wondering when he had ever made such a post. Then he remembered, that day, he was indeed short of money, and with the dwindling income from his live stream, he had posted it as a joke. He still remembered being scolded by his then-girlfriend, Song Qinghuan, for it. She accused him of being unfaithful and fishing for attention. But honestly, he was just joking. Soon, he coaxed Song Qinghuan, and the matter was resolved, never expecting Han Shi to bring it up now. He laughed awkwardly and explained, "That was just a joke. No one took it seriously." "I did." Han Shi's tone was serious. She released his collar and grabbed his arm. The moment their skin touched, they both felt each other's warmth. "I happen to have some money, and many people call me a rich woman." Fang Zhou's inner thoughts, "Don't think I don't know what you're up to. You just want my body." He coughed lightly, covering his mouth, preparing to speak, but Han Shi continued, "Of course, I'm not giving it for free. Your body happens to please me. It's a win-win situation. And if you're afraid of societal judgment, we can resume our relationship as boyfriend and girlfriend, making it legitimate." The more Han Shi spoke, the more feasible it seemed. Her eyes sparkled with hope and expectation. At this moment, she wasn't the aloof, strategic CEO but an ordinary girl waiting for her beloved's response. If Han Shi had said this 2 months ago, Fang Zhou might have agreed. Most people, when desperate, wouldn't care if the helping hand would later push them into the abyss, they'd just want to escape their current plight. Back then, Fang Zhou had thought about asking Han Shi for money. After all, a man's pride was nothing compared to his sister's life. He even went to her company, hoping to run into her. But instead, he ran into her friend, Guo Zhu, who had once cornered and beaten him. Guo Zhu recognized Fang Zhou immediately, sneering and mocking him. "Oh, look who it is, Fang Zhou. What are you sneaking around here for?" Fang Zhou knew his breakup excuse with Han Shi was terrible, angering her friends and even getting him beaten up, which he accepted. But that day, he wanted to borrow money, so he didn't retort and honestly said he was looking for Han Shi. Guo Zhu's smile faded, her eyes filled with disdain and hatred. "You made Han Shi lose her appetite, work like crazy, and collapse in the office, hospitalized for 3 days, and now you dare to come to her. You want to get back together? No way." Guo Zhu got angrier, almost hitting Fang Zhou but restrained herself. Fang Zhou stood there, digesting her words, realizing how much the breakup had affected Han Shi. She was a stubborn person, always striving to be the best. Finally having a relationship, only to feel played with such a lousy excuse. She must have hated him to the core, unable to swallow her anger. He hadn't expected Han Shi to numb herself with work, even landing in the hospital. Fang Zhou felt guilty and couldn't bring himself to ask her for money. He apologized to Guo Zhu. "Please tell her I'm sorry." Then he left, never thinking of asking his ex for money again. Now, everything was different. He no longer needed to borrow money from others or rack his brain for money. The outcome naturally changed too. Han Shi looked at him intently, waiting for his response. Fang Zhou, feeling the warmth of her hand on his arm, took a deep breath and said, "Han Shi, I appreciate your kindness, but I must decline." Han Shi tightened her grip slightly, her eyes showing a mix of disappointment and determination. "Why? Why can't you just let me help you?" Fang Zhou sighed, "Because I can't rely on you for my entire life. I need to stand on my own." Han Shi's eyes softened. "You're not alone, Fang Zhou, you have me." Fang Zhou smiled faintly. "Thank you, Han Shi, but I need to do this for myself." Han Shi's expression hardened again, her grip firm. "Then let me help you until you can stand on your own." Fang Zhou chuckled. "You're really stubborn, aren't you?" Han Shi smirked. "I learned from the best." Fang Zhou felt a warmth spread through him, realizing that despite everything, Han Shi genuinely cared for him. "All right, Han Shi, let's take it one step at a time," he said softly. Han Shi nodded, her eyes shining with determination, one step at a time. They sat there in silence, a newfound understanding between them. Han Shi's offer was indeed tempting. Unfortunately, Fang Zhou was no longer the same as he once was. He stepped back a bit, ultimately choosing to refuse. "I don't need it, but thank you for your kindness." Han Shi sneered inwardly, thinking, "You're quite polite, aren't you?" However, she knew that this was an offer Fang Zhou would never accept. Despite his usual good temper and easygoing demeanor, he had a clear sense of what he could and couldn't do. Han Shi suppressed her disappointment, put away her phone, and placed both hands on either side of him, trapping him with a standard kabedon. "It's all right. This offer stands indefinitely. Whenever you want, you can come find me. Life is full of various difficulties, most of which can be solved with money." One day, Fang Zhou would come to her. Han Shi was just waiting. Fang Zhou felt Han Shi's proximity, frowning slightly as he subtly suggested, "Thank you for visiting me, but you must be very busy." In essence, he was indirectly asking her to leave. He felt that today, Han Shi was acting a bit strange, her words and actions surpassing the limits of the Han Shi he once knew. Perhaps she was under some sort of stress, and it would be best for her to leave. Han Shi, of course, understood his meaning, but it didn't stop her from pretending not to. "Not busy. I cleared my schedule for today, specifically to take care of you." She didn't say the latter half out loud, silently adding it in her mind. She was never good at expressing her feelings, only implementing her plans through actions. Han Shi remembered that Fang Zhou didn't seem to have friends or relatives in the capital and now, with his eyes not seeing, he needed someone. The moment she said this, Fang Zhou knew she wasn't planning to leave. When Han Shi wanted to do something, others generally couldn't stop her. He decided to keep quiet, any more words would be ungrateful. "Fang Zhou, I have a question for you." Han Shi's cool voice sounded close to his ear, so close that he could almost feel her fragrance. "Yes, go ahead. The night before we left the mountains, where did you go after you drank?" Why didn't she see Fang Zhou when she woke up? Did he wake up and leave by himself, or did someone take him away? This question had been stuck in Han Shi's mind for days, like a thorn in her throat that wouldn't go away until it was addressed. Taking advantage of the privacy today, she needed to know where Fang Zhou had gone. Fang Zhou stood frozen, not expecting Han Shi to ask this question. That night, the only ones who knew he had been to the villa were Qin Yun, Xiao Sisi, and Zhang Zihang. These people weren't gossips, so how did Han Shi know to ask this? He opened his mouth, about to answer. "I was." Suddenly, a sweet, playful voice interrupted, laced with provocation and laughter. "He was with me." Fang Zhou couldn't understand, finding the voice familiar but strange due to something obstructing it. Han Shi withdrew her hands and turned to see a woman in a black sun-protective jacket, wearing sunglasses, a mask, and a hat entering the ward. The woman had a good figure, long legs partially hidden by wide-legged pants, a beautiful sight. Han Shi squinted slightly, recognizing her. "Xiao Sisi." The woman removed her sunglasses and hat, her hair fluttering in the air. Her pink hair had faded to a golden brown, making her even more dazzling in the bright summer sun. Xiao Sisi beamed, radiating energy and looking as if she were in high spirits. He was with me. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Her words were straightforward and clear, filled with blatant possessiveness, like a declaration of war to Han Shi. Xiao Sisi walked further in, her eyes glancing at Fang Zhou, as if urging him to cooperate. However, unable to see, Fang Zhou couldn't catch her signals. He opened his mouth to refute, but upon reflection, she wasn't wrong. After waking up, he had returned to school with them and chatted with Xiao Sisi in the car. Unable to argue, it was the truth. Han Shi fell silent, noticing Fang Zhou's lack of rebuttal, and felt a chill in her heart. You spent the night together. Her eyes were cold, her question more direct. No, don't spread rumors. Fang Zhou quickly denied it, knowing such claims could get him torn apart by Xiao Sisi's fans. Xiao Sisi, unbothered by Fang Zhou's denial, leisurely sat down, choosing the other side of Fang Zhou's bed, opposite Han Shi. She calmly said, we didn't spend the night. We just had a pleasant time in the car. Her words were full of implications, and any adult could infer what she meant. Fang Zhou's eyes widened in horror. Hey, big sister, you can't just say things like that. Just as he was about to explain, a sharp pain shot through his waist, turning his words into a cry of agony. Xiao Sisi had reached under the blanket, pinching his waist hard to stop him from speaking. What's wrong? Han Shi frowned slightly, concern showing in her eyes. She thought Fang Zhou's injury was acting up, causing him pain. Otherwise, why would he look so pained? Xiao Sisi withdrew her hand, smiling as she explained, maybe he was too tired that night and hurt his waist. Being swept away by water only made it worse. Her suggestive words and ambiguous smile made it impossible for Han Shi not to misinterpret. Her mind automatically filled in the scenes. A dark, windy night, a shaking vehicle, heavy breaths mingling with the sound of cicadas. Han Shi's face turned cold, her gaze towards Xiao Sisi hostile. So it was her who took Fang Zhou from the villa. And Fang Zhou had some indescribable interaction with her. It was you. Her words were icy, capable of freezing someone solid. She had long known many women had designs on Fang Zhou, but she hadn't expected Xiao Sisi to act first. The atmosphere in the ward grew tense, and even the birds outside seemed scared, flying to another branch. Fang Zhou, feeling the tension, broke the silence. Han Shi, it's not what you think. Han Shi's tone was harsh. The two words it was you carried a strange force, making it seem like she could flip the entire ward at any moment. But Xiao Sisi faced Han Shi fearlessly, calmly saying, it was me. She knew Han Shi also liked Fang Zhou, and she had noticed her actions over the past few days. However, that didn't mean she was going to step aside. Even if Han Shi was wealthy, beautiful, and a capitalist. So what? Xiao Sisi wasn't inferior to anyone. For a moment, the entire ward was silent, with none of the three speaking. An invisible battlefield quietly commenced. Xiao Sisi and Han Shi locked eyes, sparks seemingly flying between them. Fang Zhou, still in pain from being pinched, was trying to recover. Since the other two weren't speaking, he couldn't find an opening to say anything either. Good job, Fang Zhou. Finally, Han Shi spoke. The moment she did, Fang Zhou felt like he was back in the freezing southern winter, with an icy wind cutting through him until he turned into an ice sculpture. Even though he couldn't see, he could feel a cold gaze fixed on him. A sense of dread filled him. He knew Xiao Sisi's words would lead to trouble, causing Han Shi to misunderstand, and he'd be the one to suffer. Enduring the pain, he was about to explain to Han Shi when Xiao Sisi spoke first. President Han seems quite angry? Could it be that it was your car? Really sorry about that. Should I have it cleaned? Han Shi had indeed sponsored several cars for the show, so her words made sense. The vehicles used for outdoor activities on the show were essentially Han Shi's. Fang Zhou almost fainted upon hearing her. Xiao Sisi wasn't explaining, she was adding fuel to the fire, fearing Han Shi wouldn't be enraged enough and adding more fuel. He had always thought Xiao Sisi was a delicate flower on the surface, but an arrogant troublemaker underneath. Never had he imagined that over the years, she had turned into a master of stirring up trouble. The strong aroma of her words was almost overwhelming. Even Fang Zhou could tell she was doing it on purpose. Surely Han Shi could, too, right? Fang Zhou mentally comforted himself, then tried to explain. We didn't. He had barely said a few words when Xiao Sisi whispered in his ear, don't forget what you promised me. You need to play along. Yes, he had promised to be Xiao Sisi's shield. But wasn't that over already? He heard the clicking of high heels and thought Han Shi might have been angered away. However, he was wrong. Han Shi wasn't leaving in anger. She stood up and walked to the window to make a call. Hello? Have all the cars sponsored for the show thoroughly cleaned, inside and out? Why? No reason, just that someone used them as a toilet. It's a bit disgusting. Han Shi didn't respond to Xiao Sisi's words directly but countered her in another way. Since you claimed it was dirty, I'll confirm it and have them all cleaned. I'm not short on money, but I won't let you disgust me. Xiao Sisi's smile froze, thinking, indeed, the women Fang Zhou attracts are not to be trifled with. She reached out again, pinching Fang Zhou's arm, then leaned her head on his shoulder, coquettishly saying, it's all your fault. I told you not to, you're so annoying. Fang Zhou's skin crawled. Stop it, I can't take it, really. He felt like an old lady trying to thread a needle for hours, only to realize she was holding a golden needle mushroom and a pancake. It was beyond absurd. Fang Zhou withdrew his hand, gritting his teeth. Enough already, what exactly do you want? If you want me dead, just say it, don't torture me like this. Xiao Sisi glared at him, ignoring his words, her eyes still fixed on Han Shi. She's not gone yet? Han Shi's composure was impressive, her tolerance high, truly underestimated her. Most women would have stormed off when she mentioned the car, yet Han Shi stayed. She admitted her methods were crude and somewhat despicable, but so what? In love, the righteous lose everything, while the despicable enjoy the fruits of victory. Xiao Sisi's smug expression only irritated Han Shi further. She felt an urge to destroy everything, to burn it all to ashes. But reason told her to stay calm, not to fall for Xiao Sisi's provocations. Losing control would have consequences neither of them could bear. Xiao Sisi's words didn't mean anything had happened, as Fang Zhou hadn't woken up even after her efforts that night. Who would believe anything actually happened? Yet the intimate actions of the two in front of her felt like a green-headed fly buzzing around, impossible to swat away. After a long pause, Han Shi finally took a deep breath, her expression returning to the composed CEO who kept others at a distance. Ignoring Xiao Sisi, she spoke directly to Fang Zhou, it's lunchtime. I'll get you some food. She then walked out of the ward, her high heels clicking. Winning a short-term victory was meaningless, she wasn't here to argue with Xiao Sisi. She wanted Fang Zhou to feel her sincerity. Once the room was left with just Fang Zhou and Xiao Sisi, he finally shook off her hand, his voice low, why did you say things to make her misunderstand? Xiao Sisi didn't answer directly but instead asked, do you care about Han Shi? Fang Zhou was momentarily stunned, blinking as he almost fell into her trap. It's not about caring or not, but your words lead to wild imagination. I agreed to be your shield for that show, but not beyond that. You're making things difficult for me. Luckily it was Han Shi here today. If it had been Chu Xinran or Qin Yun, there'd be a corpse in this ward. Though he couldn't see, he felt the flames of anger burning within him. Despite his words, Xiao Sisi didn't respond, instead holding his hand, asking with concern, your hand is injured too, does it hurt? Fang Zhou was about to explode from anger, her ability to change the subject was remarkable. It doesn't hurt, I don't need your concern. Please leave. This was the first time Fang Zhou had shown a cold face to Xiao Sisi since their reunion. In the quiet ward, Fang Zhou's words suddenly echoed, wiping the smile off Xiao Sisi's face. I just got here, why are you already asking me to leave? Xiao Sisi couldn't understand. He wasn't like this before. Even if he was uncomfortable, he would endure it instead of lashing out. Could it be that Han Shi really mattered so much to him? Otherwise, why would he treat her this way? Thank you for your kindness, but I don't need it, Fang Zhou said in a deep voice. Perhaps Fang Zhou's overly serious expression made Xiao Sisi finally realize that he wasn't joking, he truly wanted her to leave. She also dropped her smile, staring at Fang Zhou. Do you know how much risk I took coming here today? If even one person recognized me, rumors about me would be everywhere tomorrow. Xiao Sisi felt a pang of heartache. Why couldn't he understand her good intentions? As a top-tier celebrity, she was very likely to be recognized by paparazzi. They could claim she had plastic surgery, was unwell, or even pregnant. Xiao Sisi had been navigating the entertainment industry for years and knew the paparazzi's nature well. Yet she still took the risk because Fang Zhou was injured, and she was too worried to stay home or take jobs. She needed to see Fang Zhou with her own eyes to be at ease. But what she faced was Fang Zhou turning against her because of another woman. How could she not feel disheartened? Xiao Sisi's honesty made Fang Zhou pause. He hadn't considered these things. But the problem was, her visit didn't make him happy, it made him angry. So Fang Zhou chose to stand his ground once more. You've seen me now, I'm fine. There's no need to take such risks for me in the future. We have no relationship anymore. Besides being a shield once, we probably won't have any further interactions. He thought he had made himself clear, but couldn't understand why his ex-girlfriends never seemed to get it, always stubbornly holding on. He disliked dragging things out unnecessarily. If they couldn't even be regular friends, it was best to cut ties completely to avoid mutual harm. Clearly, Xiao Sisi wasn't someone who could be an ordinary friend. She was a big star, and he was just an ordinary person. If any scandal arose, public opinion would support her, not him. People needed to be a bit selfish to survive. He admitted his actions might embarrass her. But when Xiao Sisi said those things, she hadn't considered his feelings. Those few words from Fang Zhou broke Xiao Sisi's defenses. Her big, round eyes gradually filled with disappointment and confusion. You've changed. You weren't like this before, Fang Zhou. The heavy tone and slow pace of her words made Fang Zhou feel her sadness. But he hardened his heart, thinking it was better to be clear. Not knowing where Xiao Sisi was sitting, he spoke into the air. People change. Maybe I was immature before. Enough. I didn't come here to talk about this. Xiao Sisi cut him off, not wanting him to continue. His cold tone and short phrases were too hurtful. Like a knife stabbing her heart, causing pain and discomfort. Xiao Sisi was the type who, if she couldn't feel good, wouldn't let others feel good either. She feared losing control and stabbing Fang Zhou to death. Your eyes can't see now, so rest well. No matter how you change, I won't abandon you. This was the most advantageous thing Xiao Sisi could say for herself. She could have said more, but in her bad mood, she didn't want to say anything else. Facing Xiao Sisi's words of concern, Fang Zhou couldn't bring himself to say anything harsh, so he replied softly. Yeah, I understand. Thanks. Then he automatically ignored her last sentence. Is thank you all you can say to me? His attitude made her furious. Xiao Sisi couldn't help but stand up and grab Fang Zhou's arm, demanding an answer. For some reason, Xiao Sisi felt powerless, as if punching a cotton ball. And Fang Zhou was that cotton ball. She kept reminding herself, stay calm, he's injured, he's a patient, be considerate, don't get agitated. What else do you want to hear? Fang Zhou looked up, staring at Xiao Sisi. Seeing his unfocused eyes, she felt only heartache and sadness, unable to vent her anger. She could only tighten her grip on his arm, using a bit of force to release her frustration. Fang Zhou had stayed behind for everyone's sake. He was a hero, but not just her hero, everyone's hero. Yet this hero was treating her so poorly, as if regretting saving her from those people. Reflecting on her actions, Xiao Sisi didn't think she was wrong. Facing a rival, she took a bold move to defend her love. What was wrong with that? She took a deep breath, exhaling the grievances and anger as carbon dioxide. She put on her best temper, smiled, and gently released Fang Zhou's hand, saying, if possible, I hope the next time you tell me you love me, it's about time. Get some rest. I should go. I'll visit you tomorrow. Xiao Sisi didn't give Fang Zhou a chance to speak, quickly saying her piece before striding out of the ward, leaving Fang Zhou alone. She was genuinely afraid Fang Zhou would say more rejecting words. Though she had navigated the entertainment industry for years, it was rare for someone to reject her outright. She had pride and self-respect. Being repeatedly rejected was hard to bear. She needed to go back and process it alone. She could only console herself that sick people often have bad tempers, and she owed him this. Though thinking about it still made her mad, what could she do? She still loved him. In the past, Fang Zhou had given in to her many times in their relationship. This time, she would give in to him. In life, you eventually have to repay your debts. Besides, love is about mutual tolerance and compromise. Though seemingly perfect relationships often end in failure, she believed her changes would make Fang Zhou understand. Hearts are made of flesh, and over time, he would be moved. Outside the hospital entrance, a nanny van had been waiting for a long time. As soon as Xiao Sisi got into the van, her manager began questioning her. Why did you come out so quickly? Didn't you say you'd be there for a long time? The manager was puzzled. Xiao Sisi had initially agreed to go to an event, but suddenly called them halfway, saying she wasn't going anymore. She wanted to postpone the event to visit a friend in the hospital. She said she'd be there for at least an hour, but it had barely been 10 minutes before she came out. Now their event was postponed for nothing? Xiao Sisi, her mood sour, didn't even take off her sunglasses. She simply said in a low voice, let's go back and rest. No work today. Noticing her low spirits, the manager, having good judgment, could see something was off. Recalling what happened on the dating show before, it clicked that the person she came to see was Fang Zhou. You still can't forget him. This manager had been with Xiao Sisi for 2 years, no longer the one from her early days. Although she hadn't witnessed their love firsthand, she knew all about her artist's personal matters. The official reason for their breakup was incompatible personalities, which had always bothered Xiao Sisi. In reality, the agency was the mastermind behind it. Xiao Sisi had suspected as much, leaving that agency after achieving some success. She had even seen Xiao Sisi drunk late at night, calling out Fang Zhou's name. Even her insistence on joining the dating show couldn't be stopped. As an artist with her own wings, the manager couldn't control her. All she could do was silently prepare for any fallout, ensuring it wouldn't affect her career. I can't forget him, Sister Zhu. Xiao Sisi gave a bitter smile, a smile that was pale and weak, not like a radiant star but more like a girl who had just been heartbroken. She lowered her head, her mind filled with Fang Zhou's cold demeanor toward her. She really couldn't stay any longer. If she lost control, she might do something to hurt Fang Zhou, something she'd regret. Even though Xiao Sisi often thought if she couldn't have him, she'd destroy him. But now, in this stage of effort, she couldn't let her impulsiveness ruin everything. Unless she truly saw no hope, she'd take Fang Zhou with her without hesitation. The manager, Sister Zhu, patted Xiao Sisi's arm comfortingly. It's okay. If you can't forget him, then win him back. I have faith in you. These were merely comforting words. The manager had seen enough of the dating show to know that the boy didn't care much for Xiao Sisi, yet she was like a moth to the flame. Well, no amount of advice would help. She'd have to hit the wall and get hurt herself. The black nanny van quickly started up and left the hospital entrance. At the same time, another car rolled down its window, and a man looked at the black nanny van with a thoughtful smile. He raised his camera, checking the photos he had just taken, and excitedly called his friend, I'm going to strike it rich. I've got some explosive news today. After Xiao Sisi left, the ward returned to its serene state. Fang Zhou waited for a long time, but Han Shi, who had said she was going to get food, never returned. Forget it. A busy CEO like her wouldn't have time to get food. I'll wait for Li Siming to come. He shook his head, thinking he had overthought it. Meanwhile, Han Shi, who Fang Zhou had been thinking about, was in the cafeteria, feeling a headache watching the long line. In the first episode on the island, there weren't this many people in the cafeteria when she got food for Fang Zhou, but this was a capital city hospital, naturally crowded with patients. However, lining up with so many people was beyond Han Shi's capability. She stepped out to make a call, arranging for food to be delivered. Half an hour later, a special car parked in the hospital lot. 4 or 5 people emerged, carrying insulated boxes full of food. President Han, which floor should we deliver to? The person called Han Shi, quickly spotting her. Follow me. Han Shi pressed the button for the 16th floor, leading them directly to Fang Zhou's ward, finding him lying in bed listening to a book. Last time, Tang Santang and his disciples left the kingdom of women. Han Shi paused, surprised to find Fang Zhou listening to Journey to the West. She hadn't expected him to listen to classics when bored, making her realize she didn't know him well enough. Hearing the chaotic footsteps, Fang Zhou called out to stop the audiobook, listening intently. Who is it? It's me, time to eat. Han Shi lifted her chin, signaling for the others to set up. Sir, we're from XX 5-star hotel. This is a special meal prepared for you by President Han. The staff, sharp-eyed, quickly introduced the dishes to Fang Zhou. There's corn and crucian carp soup, yam and lily soup, and steamed chicken wings with cordyceps flowers. We consulted the doctor, and there are no dietary restrictions. Do you dislike any of these dishes? Fang Zhou remained silent, not responding. He hadn't expected Han Shi's getting food to mean arranging such a grand meal, rather than simply fetching from the hospital kitchen. How much must this have cost? Why would he deserve such a feast? Recalling his usual simple meals, quickly gobbled up, he suddenly felt unworthy of such gourmet food. Seeing his silence, Han Shi answered for him. Just eat. If there's anything you don't like, we can pick it out later. All right, sir. I'll start by feeding you some porridge. The staff, very accommodating, rolled up their sleeves, setting up the food before sitting by the bed to feed Fang Zhou. Fang Zhou, feeling threatened, retreated repeatedly. No need for that. I think I can eat by myself. Apart from the incident on the island, he had never received such treatment. Han Shi smirked coldly, dropping a light remark that hit Fang Zhou like a whip. What, are you planning to feed yourself through your nostrils? Or do you want me to feed you? I can, but you'll need to cheer me up first. She was still annoyed by Chiao Sisi and needed Fang Zhou to soothe her. Fang Zhou choked on his words, determined to feed himself. And as expected, the first spoonful went straight to his nose, just as Han Shi had predicted. Inwardly, Fang Zhou conceded, fine, your sharp tongue strikes again. With the assistance of the hotel staff, Fang Zhou managed to finish his meal smoothly. Although it wasn't exactly an enjoyable meal, Han Shi had helped him significantly. He couldn't afford to show any displeasure and could only thank her. President Han, we'll head out now. We'll come back in the afternoon. If you need anything, just call us. Okay. Han Shi responded indifferently. The hotel staff quickly left the hospital. Their departure wasn't too noisy, but Fang Zhou thought Han Shi had also left. He relaxed, lying back on the bed, ready to continue listening to Journey to the West. Han Shi suddenly spoke up. Don't you need to use the bathroom? I've been here for a while and haven't seen you go. Her cold voice echoed in the quiet ward, startling Fang Zhou. He had thought he was alone. But wait, what kind of question was that? Why ask about something like going to the bathroom? If I need to go, I'd call the nurse. Fang Zhou found it strange. Could she be thinking? I don't need to go right now. No matter her intention, it was best not to reveal his needs. All right, call me when you need to. Han Shi didn't insist. Instead, she found a table, took out her tablet, and started working. Although she had freed up time today, it was just personal freedom. She still had many work-related matters to handle. After all, she had been in the mountains for a long time, and many meetings awaited her. She couldn't come back tomorrow. Han Shi's work on the tablet made almost no noise. The Bluetooth keyboard was very light, and she herself wasn't much of a talker. The ward fell silent once again. Fang Zhou thought of asking her to leave. But then he remembered he had just eaten her food. The saying you can't be too demanding when you're eating someone else's food came to mind, so he decided against it. Might as well lie down for a bit. Miraculously, just a few minutes after lying down, he felt the urge to use the bathroom. Fang Zhou silently cursed his bladder. Can't you be more dependable, buddy? Thinking about it, he admired Han Shi's ability more than her wealth. Whatever she said seemed to come true. It looked like Han Shi wasn't planning to leave this afternoon. After a brief hesitation, Fang Zhou decided to seek help. I need to use the bathroom. Can you help me? Actually, this ward was specially designed for patients with special needs. There were handrails along the walls leading to the bathroom. After 3 or 4 days, one could navigate to the bathroom easily. But Fang Zhou was only in his second day and couldn't distinguish directions yet, so he needed help. Of course. Han Shi promptly put down her work and walked to his bedside, taking his hand. At the touch of their hands, she felt her body's cells screaming, like a person finding an oasis in the desert. Han Shi knew this was her desire for Fang Zhou. It was her body's instinctive need for her loved one. But just holding hands wasn't enough. Every cell screamed, not enough, more. Han Shi suppressed her inner turmoil, placing both hands on his to guide him to the bathroom. The short walk quickly ended, and she led him inside, saying, "The toilet is here." Fang Zhou nodded lightly, indicating he understood. But he didn't hear her leaving. He found it strange. Did she leave or not? Han Shi. Fang Zhou called out tentatively. Yes, I'm here. Amusingly, her reply sounded like a voice assistant from some phones, short but inexplicably comforting. I need to use the bathroom. Fang Zhou hinted. But she didn't move, not even a step. Go ahead. Fang Zhou felt awkward. I need you to leave so I can use the bathroom. Lady, are you a pervert, Han Shi? People are strange. When he was dating his ex-girlfriends, he didn't feel embarrassed about such things. But after breaking up, exposing any private part felt shameful. Probably because the relationship wasn't as close anymore. Could you step out and close the door? I'll call you when I'm done. Fang Zhou thought he was being polite and straightforward. She should understand, right? Unfortunately, Han Shi wasn't someone easily dismissed. Her intentions were never pure from the start. She crossed her arms, leaning against the wall, glancing at Fang Zhou, and said nonchalantly, "Go ahead. I'm not stopping you." Fang Zhou, speechless. Suddenly, he didn't feel like going anymore. "It's not convenient with you here. Could you step out?" Fang Zhou didn't have a habit of using the bathroom in front of others. But Han Shi was blunt. "I'm just worried you might fall. Besides, it's not like I haven't seen it before. Are you shy?" Before Fang Zhou could respond, she smiled and continued. "Oh, should I hold it for you? It'd be troublesome for the cleaning staff if you made a mess." Fang Zhou? He looked in her direction, filled with shock and disbelief. Does she know what she's saying? You're a CEO? You're the high and mighty woman who views everything as insignificant? You're a billionaire CEO, what are you saying? If Qin Yun had said this, he wouldn't be surprised, because Qin Yun was a pervert. But this was Han Shi. Her coming to the hospital to watch over him was already shocking. Now she wanted to care for him like a personal nanny? How could he not be terrified? No, I can manage. Comparatively, suddenly undressing in front of her didn't seem so bad. At least it was less embarrassing than her holding it for him. Besides, Han Shi would be the one at a loss, not him. Han Shi leaned against the wall, quietly watching his movements. A phrase came to her mind, negotiation tactics indeed work. When you want to achieve a goal, it's best to propose something more outrageous first. The other party will then settle for your initial request. True to her word, Han Shi stayed with Fang Zhou the entire afternoon, frequently asking if he needed food, water, or a bathroom break. After the earlier incident, Fang Zhou wasn't keen on eating or drinking much. However, Han Shi was persistent, insisting on feeding him fruit, even if he didn't want it. "I asked the doctor. Eating more vitamins is good for your eye recovery," Han Shi said authoritatively. Fang Zhou was genuinely afraid that eating too much fruit would make him need the bathroom again. If it was just a small need, it wouldn't be too awkward, but he dreaded the thought of needing a major bathroom break with Han Shi waiting outside. God, he couldn't even imagine that scenario. Luckily, Li Siming arrived just in time to rescue Fang Zhou. This guy made quite an entrance, chattering away as he entered the ward, bombarding Fang Zhou with questions. Han Shi, who had been working, glanced at Li Siming and quietly left the room to take a phone call, giving them some space. Fang Zhou viewed him as a savior. "Buddy, thank goodness you came, or I'd have gone mad in this ward." Li Siming laughed, not quite understanding what Fang Zhou meant. But overall, he felt appreciated and gave Fang Zhou a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. "Man, your luck is really bad. Every time you join a dating show, you get hurt. Last time it was eating poisonous mushrooms, and now you got swept away by a flood." Fang Zhou scratched his head, equally puzzled. "I don't know why. Maybe I'm paying for my past sins. Did I tell you that all 4 of my ex-girlfriends are on this show?" Li Siming nodded lightly, then remembered Fang Zhou couldn't see, so he replied, "You mentioned it. I even watched the show. You've got quite the harem." It was obvious to anyone that the female guests were interested in Fang Zhou, and there was even some rivalry going on. He, like the other viewers, found it entertaining, almost wishing for a dramatic catfight. Fang Zhou forced a bitter smile, unable to laugh. He thought, "Would you like to trade places?" Li Siming continued, "That woman who just left, she must be Han Shi, right? Damn, she's so good to you? A big shot CEO taking care of you here when her time is worth thousands every minute." The implication was clear, Han Shi's time was precious, but she was willing to spend it with Fang Zhou, showing her sincerity. Fang Zhou nodded and then shook his head, explaining, "I don't need her to stay, but she insists on being here. I can't do anything about it." Li Siming gave Fang Zhou a reproachful pat, saying, "You don't know how lucky you are. Are you bragging or complaining?" Fang Zhou waved his hand and briefly recounted his past with Han Shi to Li Siming. "What would you do if you were me? True, you did hurt her badly. It's hard to be with her without feeling guilty." Fang Zhou shook his head and said softly, "The point is, a good horse doesn't graze the same pasture twice." Finding it too frustrating to discuss, he changed the topic to the studio they had been planning. Li Siming excitedly raised his voice, "The people you asked me to find are almost all in place. We rented a small studio in XX district for training, just waiting for you to recover and guide us." A big boss had approached Li Siming earlier, asking them to form a team for competitions. Now that the team was being formed, they needed training. As a game streamer and skilled player, Fang Zhou could serve as both a player and a coach, so Li Siming was looking forward to his return. Fang Zhou nodded, helping to strategize. They discussed team building, training plans, and friendly matches, all of which required careful planning. "I remember Su Yang had a plan we could reference," Fang Zhou said. Su Yang was a mutual friend and a retired coach. The two agreed on the idea and decided to call Su Yang, the 3 of them eagerly discussing. Han Shi returned after her call, noticing their conversation. She placed some fruit on the table for them without interrupting but listened quietly. Hearing them plan to meet the behind-the-scenes boss, Han Shi raised an eyebrow, thinking, it's too early to meet him. Fang Zhou might not like it. When dinner arrived, Li Siming was still there, and they ate together before he left. Han Shi had to attend an evening event, so she bid Fang Zhou farewell. I'll come visit in a couple of days. I can't come tomorrow, she said with a hint of reluctance. But Fang Zhou internally cheered, great, finally, you're leaving. I've been holding back on using the bathroom, lady? Han Shi responded softly, giving Fang Zhou a deep look before leaving the ward. She had her work in life, unable to stay with Fang Zhou all the time. Today's visit was an exception, but she still kept a close eye on his situation. Han Shi called her assistant, instructing them to stay with Fang Zhou tomorrow and inform her of any needs. Around 8 p.m., Fang Zhou felt sleepy and drifted off. The medication made him tired, unable to stay awake for long, so he slept to recover. However, he didn't expect to be so disoriented upon waking. He found himself unable to move, as if bound by something, with tape over his mouth. He felt terrified and panicked. It seemed like a kidnapping, but the smell of disinfectant told him he was still in the hospital. Someone seemed to be clinging to him, their limbs tightly wrapped around him, making it hard even to turn. MMMPH? MMMPH. Fang Zhou tried to make noise with his throat, hoping to attract the nurse's attention. But the sound was too faint, only waking the person beside him. Shush, don't make a sound. It was a woman's voice, too brief to identify. As he pondered who it could be, he felt a soft touch on his lips. Gentle, like a cloud. Even through the layer of transparent tape, he could easily feel the warmth of another person. And that soft sensation from his lips sent a shiver through Fang Zhou, immediately waking him up. Someone was kissing him. Who in the world could it be? So perverted? He was a patient right now, how could someone do this? Fang Zhou couldn't figure it out. How could such a strange person end up in the hospital? Are they here to rob me or take advantage of me? At least give me a chance to speak, buddy. Damn it, you just come up and kiss me. Who can stand that? For a moment, Fang Zhou even thought the person was a trafficker, eyeing his organs. But no one told him that traffickers would harass you like this. Fang Zhou knew he looked good, easily charming girls. But he never thought lying in a hospital would bring such unexpected trouble. MMMPH? MMMPH. Fang Zhou tried to shake his head, attempting to evade the person's lips. But the person seemed to sense his struggle, pressing a hand on the back of his head, deepening the kiss. Usually, it was Fang Zhou making his girlfriend's tongue go numb. When had he ever been kissed like this? For a moment, Fang Zhou felt his pride was hurt. Damn trafficker, being handsome isn't a reason to be harassed. He wanted to kick the person off the bed, but his hands and feet were bound, unable to move. He couldn't see, not knowing what the person looked like. It was infuriating. Fang Zhou regretted not learning how to untie knots before, he would have made the person pay dearly. Luckily, after a while, the person stopped kissing. But her warm breath still sprayed on Fang Zhou's face, carrying a sweet scent. Fang Zhou found it oddly familiar, but couldn't recall where he had smelled it before. The girl spoke a couple of words and then fell silent, as if afraid he might recognize her voice. Fang Zhou grew even more frustrated, wriggling around, wishing he could shake the person off the bed. Slap. Unexpectedly, a hand smacked Fang Zhou's butt, making him freeze. Damn, talking is one thing, but don't touch me, buddy. Fang Zhou felt completely humiliated. He had always been the one slapping others' butts, never the other way around. The act made him feel like a respectable woman being harassed. But then again, he was already tied up, naturally the weaker party. Fang Zhou was both angry and frustrated, his pale face flushing red, not knowing if it was from shame or anger. The person laughed lightly, seemingly waking up from a dream. Fang Zhou could feel an invasive gaze on his face, probably that woman staring at him. But she didn't speak, using that aggressive gaze to trace his features. Fang Zhou felt as if she had drawn his face countless times with her eyes. Pervert? Help, there's a pervert? Who climbs onto a patient's bed in the middle of the night to harass them? After the butt slap, Fang Zhou stopped struggling so fiercely. But his face still showed anger, and the woman seemed pleased with his stillness, chuckling softly. A faint breathy sound came from her throat, and she placed a hand on Fang Zhou's nose, sliding it down to his lips, the spot she had just kissed. Fang Zhou's lips were naturally well-shaped, the kind young girls admired. When angry, he pressed them tightly, exuding an intimidating aura. When he smiled, they lifted, making people feel comfortable. But people with thin lips were said to be unkind. Fang Zhou seemed to fit this description. The woman's eyes grew dark, like a cloudy winter sky. She rubbed Fang Zhou's lips with her thumb until he felt pain, then she let go. Fang Zhou truly felt he had met a pervert tonight, or why else would he be treated like this? Even if they wanted to sell his organs, at least make it quick, not torture him slowly like this. The worst part was he couldn't speak, couldn't see, and couldn't remember what his tormentor looked like. Sleep. The woman deliberately lowered her voice, not letting Fang Zhou recognize her. Fang Zhou still found it familiar, thinking she might be one of his ex-girlfriends. But he couldn't tell who exactly. Fang Zhou felt both hatred and urgency but could do nothing except let her hold him, resting her head on his chest and falling asleep. Long, even breaths echoed in the room. She seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. She did nothing more, didn't harm him, just wanted to sleep beside him. For some reason, Fang Zhou felt she seemed very tired, falling asleep right after speaking. Having slept early and napped in the afternoon, Fang Zhou wasn't sleepy at all now. He could only stare at the unseen ceiling, pondering who it could be. Who had this strange habit of appearing in his hospital bed in the middle of the night, binding him like this, and taping his mouth, not wanting him to speak, just to sleep beside him? He suspected Qin Yun, the only one who would do something so perverted. Fang Zhou tried to move his head, attempting to feel the person's hair. If he could feel a slight curl, it would prove it was Qin Yun. Tomorrow, he would demand an explanation. But the girl slept low, her head on his chest, out of his reach. Fang Zhou had to give up, frustrated. After a long time, sleepiness overcame him, and he couldn't think about it anymore. Since his life wasn't in danger, he fell asleep again. In the darkness, the woman opened her eyes, tracing Fang Zhou's face with the moonlight, then fell back asleep, satisfied. The next morning, Fang Zhou woke up urgently needing to use the restroom and found himself free of restraints. There were no ropes, no tape, and he felt completely refreshed, as if the events of the previous night had been just a dream. Fang Zhou scratched his head in confusion, beginning to wonder if he had indeed dreamt it all. His hands bore no pain from being tied up, instead feeling a clear, refreshing sensation, as if some ointment had been applied. The pressing need to urinate overtook his thoughts, and he quickly rang the bell for a nurse to help him to the bathroom. After relieving himself, Fang Zhou returned to bed, finally able to ponder the events of the previous night. But before he could think much, he heard the sound of high heels clacking in the corridor. Fang Zhou frowned, thinking, could Han Shi be back? She said she wouldn't have time to visit today. To his surprise, it wasn't Han Shi who spoke, but Qin Yun. I heard you were hospitalized, so I rushed over. I didn't bring any gifts, just some bananas. Hope you don't mind, she said, her voice always gentle, now tinged with a deliberate warmth to hide her darker, obsessive side. Her presence inexplicably lowered his guard. Fang Zhou wasn't one to mind such things, and was surprised enough that Qin Yun visited him at all. She was always so busy with hospital and school duties. However, in his eyes, her visit was like a weasel paying respects to a chicken clearly up to no good. But one can't refuse a smiling face, and Qin Yun's courtesy meant Fang Zhou couldn't drive her away. If he said something harsh, Qin Yun wouldn't listen. She had her own logic, and Fang Zhou had never won an argument against her. Thank you, that's very kind of you. But aren't you very busy? Qin Yun sighed softly, a barely noticeable fatigue in her voice. She seemed genuinely tired from rushing over, even carrying a trace of road dust. Yes, I was resting at my family home when I heard you were hospitalized. So I caught the earliest flight. You haven't had breakfast, right? I'll get you some porridge. Qin Yun's attentiveness seemed natural, making her look like a genuinely kind person. But Fang Zhou had long seen through her facade and didn't want to owe her any favors, fearing she would demand double in return. He coughed lightly and said, no need, a nurse will bring it soon. You should have some breakfast yourself. In reality, there was no nurse, just hotel staff Han Shi had arranged the day before. But he didn't want Qin Yun to know that Han Shi had people looking after him. He preferred Han Shi's kindness, as she was much easier to deal with than Qin Yun. Qin Yun didn't insist upon hearing that someone else would bring it. Instead, she found a place to sit down. Oh, okay. I already ate on the plane, but I'm still tired. Her casual attitude made Fang Zhou wonder if she was the one from last night. Qin Yun claimed to have flown in this morning, and her weary demeanor seemed genuine. But who else could have entered the hospital so brazenly and done such things to him? No, Fang Zhou realized he was overthinking it. Nowadays, if you have money, you can do almost anything. It probably wasn't Qin Yun after all. As he pondered in silence, he thought he heard Qin Yun starting to snore. She must have been too tired from the journey and fell asleep quickly, resting her head against the wall. But in reality, out of Fang Zhou's sight, Qin Yun was purposely making snoring sounds. Her gaze was fixed on Fang Zhou, watching him greedily. Like a beast that had only half devoured its prey, longing to finish the rest. She couldn't stare directly at his face because Fang Zhou was too sensitive. He had sensed her gaze even in the darkness last night. Daytime would be much easier. Yes, the person who had tied Fang Zhou up and sealed his mouth last night was indeed Qin Yun. She wasn't entirely lying about her journey. She had indeed rushed over, arriving in the middle of the night. Finding Fang Zhou sound asleep, she had felt drowsy too, wanting to share his bed. But knowing how alert he was, she feared he might wake up and kick her out. So she had gone to buy ropes and tape, tied him up, and then snuggled in for a nap. She had woken up before dawn, restored everything to normal, and applied ointment to his wrists. After all, being tied up could be painful. Qin Yun thought she was incredibly considerate, even thinking of such details. However, Fang Zhou was polite to everyone but her, which annoyed her. She had searched for him for so long, only to be treated like a predator when they finally met on the show, as if she would devour him. In reality, the worst she would do was tie him up in a room, not letting him out, but never harm him. Thinking about it, Qin Yun felt wronged. Sometimes, she really wanted to use her scalpel to cut open Fang Zhou's heart, to see if it was red or black, or if he even had one. She treated Fang Zhou with such sincerity, yet received so little in return, not even a smile. How could that not be hurtful? The most dangerous thing in the world is knowing how something feels and wanting it again. If she had never seen Fang Zhou's gentle and caring side, it would have been fine. But having experienced it and then losing it, only to watch him treat others well, was torture. Qin Yun felt no one would want to endure such torment. She used to think that if she wanted Fang Zhou, she needed not just his body but his heart and soul too. But now, she felt that if she couldn't have his heart, having his body would suffice. Hearts may change, but bodies can't run away. Time quickly passed, and just as Fang Zhou was lost in thought, he heard some commotion. It seemed the hotel staff had arrived with his meal. Qin Yun opened her eyes, watching with a half-smile as the staff entered one by one, setting up a folding table and carefully feeding Fang Zhou breakfast. She sneered inwardly, huh? This is a caregiver? Their presence is more imposing than some big shots. Fang Zhou, on the other hand, accepted the service with ease, as if this kind of treatment was nothing new to him. President Han mentioned you didn't like the preserved egg and lean meat porridge yesterday, so today we brought you steamed pumpkin with lily bulbs. You'll have it for lunch, one of the staff explained diligently, their smile growing wider at the mention of Han Shi. After all, she was a major client. Just her company's banquets alone could meet the hotel's quarterly targets. Under the influence of money, the staff dared not slack off, fearing that displeasing Han Shi might jeopardize their partnership. Fang Zhou didn't consider himself picky, it was just that the porridge from yesterday was too bland for his taste. He hadn't expected Han Shi to notice this detail and instruct them to change the dish. For a moment, Fang Zhou felt a mix of emotions. He indeed owed Han Shi a lot, and she didn't lack money. Sometimes, he really didn't know how to repay her kindness. Just as Fang Zhou was lost in these thoughts, Qin Yun's voice broke the silence. Are you sent by Han Shi? Her tone was soft, her smile bright and generous, instantly lifting the mood. The hotel staff, seeing her in the room, assumed she was also there to visit Fang Zhou. Thus, she must be his friend, and by extension, a friend of President Han. They smiled sincerely and replied, yes, President Han is very concerned about Mr. Fang's health and specifically asked our hotel to deliver meals. Their smiles were so bright, they almost considered Qin Yun an ally. Just then, Han Shi's assistant arrived and overheard their conversation. Peering inside, he saw Qin Yun. Inwardly, he thought, President Han was right to send me over. Otherwise, her rival would have had the upper hand today. President Han couldn't make it today, but I'll be here. If you need anything, feel free to ask me. The assistant stepped inside, standing before Qin Yun with a professional demeanor, much like Han Shi herself, reserved yet commanding. Qin Yun chuckled softly, a sound that was both mocking and acknowledging, then shifted her gaze to Fang Zhou. To have the assistant of a company president serve you, this caregiver must have quite a high daily rate. Her voice was soft but carried a clear undertone of displeasure. Qin Yun knew she shouldn't be jealous over such a trivial matter. After all, Fang Zhou was a patient, and it was normal for Han Shi to send someone to care for him. But the thought of her rushing over in the middle of the night, only to be deceived by him, especially regarding another ex-girlfriend, made her anger rise uncontrollably, burning in her throat. She had to say something to ease the frustration. Fang Zhou felt Qin Yun's gaze, like a fire burning on his head, making his previously good mood turn anxious. He laughed awkwardly, ha ha ha, indeed. What did I do to deserve this? Actually, yesterday Li Siming had indeed brought a caregiver, supposedly to accompany Fang Zhou, but Han Shi had sent them back, saying, I've already arranged someone. No need to trouble yourself. Li Siming had no choice but to take the person back. Qin Yun snorted and sat back down, her gaze shifting to the window, deep in thought. The hotel staff, who made a living by reading people's expressions, quickly sensed something was off. This person didn't seem like a friend of President Han but more like a rival. They glanced at the assistant, hoping for guidance. The assistant gave a reassuring look, indicating they should continue as usual. The staff resumed their tasks. Han Shi's assistant found a seat, pulling out his phone to text Han Shi while keeping an eye on Qin Yun. After all, Han Shi had specifically instructed him to keep a close watch on her. President Han, Qin Yun is in Fang Zhou's ward. She seems to have been here for a while. Han Shi, keep a close watch on their interactions. Inform me of any changes immediately. In a distant high-rise, Han Shi, after replying, shifted her focus back to her files, but Qin Yun's vivid face lingered in her mind. She didn't know Qin Yun was Fang Zhou's ex-girlfriend, but her sharp intuition told her their relationship was not ordinary. The female guests on the variety show were no pushovers, especially Qin Yun, who, despite her harmless appearance, exuded an overwhelming pressure comparable to her own. This opponent was formidable. In the seemingly peaceful ward, unseen tensions surged, like two invisible vines intertwining, each trying to strangle the other. Under this pressure, Fang Zhou finally finished eating. Just as he was about to ask for a napkin, he heard Qin Yun's gentle voice. Let me wipe that for you. He then felt a gentle touch on his lips, carefully wiping them clean. Han Shi's assistant widened his eyes, quickly raising his phone to take a photo, intending to send it to Han Shi. But he forgot to silence his phone. Click. The shutter sound echoed in the ward, startling everyone. All eyes turned to the assistant, filled with confusion and curiosity. Internally panicking, the assistant maintained his composed demeanor. I just thought the flowers outside looked nice. An attempt to explain his actions. The hotel staff internally scoffed, at least point your phone at the window. Why aim it at the patient? Qin Yun smirked subtly, glancing meaningfully at the phone. Then Fang Zhou heard her say, I wouldn't mind you documenting this. He felt something soft touch his face, lingering there, seemingly waiting for a photo. The assistant, realizing the gravity of the situation, quickly took several photos in rapid succession, sending them immediately to Han Shi. President Han? She kissed Fang Zhou. The assistant knew his tone was akin to a schoolboy tattling to a teacher. But there was no helping it. President Han had ordered him to keep a close watch on Fang Zhou and report any unusual activity immediately. As Han Shi's assistant, he had to align with the CEO's interests. Seeing the boss's companion being taken advantage of was akin to having his own wife harassed. Within 2 minutes of sending the message, Han Shi appeared on the video call. The assistant answered, revealing Han Shi's frosty expression. Her cold voice filled the ward. Where are they? The assistant quickly switched to the rear camera, pointing it toward Fang Zhou. Over there. Fang Zhou was still reeling from Qin Yun's sudden gesture. He felt something soft brush his face, most likely a kiss. Realizing there were so many people in the room, Fang Zhou grew anxious. He abruptly pushed Qin Yun's hand away and asked urgently, "What are you doing?" Just last night, he had been tied up and kissed. Now, fully awake and unrestrained, it was happening again? Enough was enough. The hotel staff were equally shocked, their eyes darting between Qin Yun and Fang Zhou, eager for gossip. Yesterday, Han Shi had shown such care for this man, leading them to believe he was her boyfriend. And now, this woman had kissed him without a word? Whoa, this was an exciting love triangle? They were thrilled. They wanted to see more drama? Unfortunately, Han Shi's assistant wasn't about to let them indulge. He cleared his throat, and despite their reluctance, the hotel staff had to leave. When Han Shi's video call came through, Fang Zhou was still confronting Qin Yun. Do you realize this is sexual harassment? Fang Zhou was furious. Last night, he had already endured a lot, and now Qin Yun was adding to it. Although he wasn't technically harmed, they weren't in a relationship, so who gave her the right? Unable to see where she stood, he raised his voice. Calm down, you'll hurt yourself. Qin Yun laughed softly, dismissing his anger. It was an accident. I lost my balance and fell on you. Fang Zhou was left speechless. Unable to see, he couldn't tell if she was lying. I just saw you do it on purpose. In Qin Yun's mind, Fang Zhou's anger was like a playful kitten's paw swipe, harmless and endearing. He would come down soon enough. What truly concerned her was Han Shi's call. She turned her gaze to the assistant's phone, where the woman was watching intently. Thank you, President Han, for sending someone to take care of Fang Zhou. You're busy, so don't worry, I've got this, Qin Yun said with a gentle smile. To the unknowing, it seemed like a gesture of goodwill, but only Han Shi knew it was a challenge, a declaration of dominance. Han Shi wasn't interested in verbal sparring. She shifted her focus to Fang Zhou. How are you feeling today? Recognizing Han Shi's voice, Fang Zhou felt a newfound warmth, appreciating her non-intrusive care. Much better, thank you. Take care of yourself too, don't overwork. He remembered how dedicated Han Shi was at work, even landing in the hospital once. Someone so committed shouldn't sacrifice her health. Fang Zhou's gratitude toward Han Shi was warmer than his earlier confrontation with Qin Yun. Han Shi's mood, which had plummeted, lifted with Fang Zhou's concern. Her icy demeanor softened, seeming to overlook the earlier incident. Fang Zhou couldn't see and was defenseless against Qin Yun's kiss. It wasn't his fault. All right, let my assistant know if you need anything. He'll get it for you? Han Shi's instructions were like a husband caring for his wife. Feeling a bit embarrassed by Han Shi's continued support, Fang Zhou scratched his head. No worries, I'm fine. You focus on your work. Their conversation was brief, and the assistant left with the phone. Han Shi turned to her assistant with a stern look. I didn't send you there to stand around. Keep Fang Zhou safe, understand? This included protecting him from other women's harassment. The assistant blinked, wanting to say, you didn't tell me what to do. But his survival instinct kept him quiet, instead offering a promise. Sorry, President Han. From now on, I'll keep a close watch on Fang Zhou and not let any other women near him. Han Shi rubbed her temples, knowing his words were only 70% reliable. Qin Yun was too much for him to handle, but some effort was better than none. Fine, carry on. Han Shi ended the call, and the assistant returned to the ward, sitting right next to Fang Zhou, watching him closely. Whenever Fang Zhou needed water, a bathroom break, or a blood test, the assistant helped, giving Qin Yun no chance. Frustrated but unable to act, Qin Yun sat back, watching the two with a hint of a smile. Though annoyed at being unable to touch Fang Zhou, seeing him was enough for now. She couldn't push too hard, or Fang Zhou would dislike her even more. Time passed, and as Fang Zhou was getting in for, the ward finally quieted down. Just then, 2 more visitors arrived. One tall, one short. They entered together, their demeanor either serene or gentle. Both had innocent smiles, like 2 blossoming pear flowers. Brother, how are you? The shorter girl rushed to the bedside, her eyes filled with worry. Behind her was Chu Xinran, dressed in a sky blue dress. Though smiling, she looked tired, as if she hadn't rested well. Upon seeing them, Qin Yun froze. Quickly, she turned her back to them, her calm facade hiding her internal chaos. Feng Wenjing's arrival felt like a cold wind cutting through her clothes in spring, chilling her to the bone. Why was she here? Normally, Qin Yun would never lose her composure just because 2 girls arrived. Anyone who knew her knew that Qin Yun was the type of person who wouldn't flinch even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of her. Even when she had a fallout with Fang Zhou, she could still handle her work affairs calmly before going to find him. But now, Feng Wenjing's arrival completely threw her off balance. Facing away from them, Qin Yun felt as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Why is she here? Isn't this something that should be kept from her? After all, Fang Wenjing was still a minor. Even if she was informed, there was nothing she could do. Images of Fang Wenjing from 2 years ago involuntarily surfaced in Qin Yun's mind. Back then, the girl was fair-skinned, full of collagen, and radiated youthful energy. Whenever she interacted with Fang Zhou, it seemed like she was glowing. Even the summer breeze favored her, gently lifting her hair. Qin Yun was driven insane by it, unable to maintain her composure. This led her to make mistakes later on. Of course, Qin Yun knew it wasn't Fang Wenjing's fault for having such a good aura or being so close to Fang Zhou. The blame lay with her own pettiness, her inability to tolerate even a grain of sand in her eye, and her overwhelming possessiveness of Fang Zhou, which clouded her judgment. There were few things in life Qin Yun regretted, but taking Fang Wenjing away was one of them. She could still remember Fang Zhou's murderous expression and reddened eyes when he found her. Late at night, she often dreamed that she had killed Fang Wenjing, and Fang Zhou, with a blank expression, plunged a knife into her chest, saying, "You killed my sister. Go to hell." Snapping back to reality, Qin Yun realized she was drenched in cold sweat. The conversation in the ward was clear to everyone present. The girl's voice carried a natural cheerfulness unique to teenagers. "Brother, I was so scared when I got the call the day before yesterday. Thank goodness you're okay." Fang Wenjing had been notified by the show's production team about Fang Zhou's accident. As a participant, Fang Zhou's disappearance and subsequent blindness had to be reported to his family. If anything happened to him, the show would be held accountable. Since Fang Zhou had only left an emergency contact number, which was his sister's, she was the one informed. Hearing his sister's voice, Fang Zhou initially thought he was hallucinating until he felt her gripping his clothes, smelling the familiar laundry detergent from home, confirming her presence. He gazed blankly in Fang Wenjing's direction, feeling a pang of guilt. He had only gone to participate in a show, but ended up causing such a mess, worrying his sister. He felt like a failure as a brother. There shouldn't be any major problems. We just spoke to the doctor, who said you'll recover in a few days. Chu Xinran, seeing Fang Zhou's awkwardness, stepped in to ease the tension. Her timely intervention made Fang Wenjing see her as the kind and understanding older sister. Not noticing her brother's discomfort, Fang Wenjing angrily slapped the bed, exclaiming, "It's all because of that rain? It caused so much trouble." Fang Zhou finally smiled at her childish yet adorable complaint. Following the force on his clothes, he held his sister's hand, gently patting it, and teased, "If you slap any harder, the bed might break, and I'll have to sleep on the floor tonight." Fang Wenjing's pale face blushed, and she quickly clarified, "No way, I'm not that strong. If the bed breaks, it's because you're too heavy, like a pig." "Humph, you're the pig, snoring all the time." After a brief moment of worry, the siblings returned to their usual banter. This was a familiar interaction mode for them, a special way of expressing their sibling bond. Chu Xinran stood aside, smiling at their playful argument, feeling her earlier anxiety melt away. Han Shi's assistant, ever the perceptive one, stepped back, waiting to assist Fang Zhou when needed. He swiftly informed Han Shi of Chu Xinran's arrival. "Miss Chu is here, and she brought Mr. Fang's sister." Han Shi read the message, frowning slightly. "Fang Zhou's sister is here? Isn't she still unwell?" During their short relationship, Fang Zhou rarely mentioned his sister, and after their breakup, they had almost no contact. Han Shi only learned about her later through investigations. Han Shi, keep an eye on his sister, monitor her health, and report any changes immediately. The assistant's eyes lit up, thinking, investigating this is my specialty. After chatting with his sister for a while, Fang Zhou finally asked how she got there. She blinked playfully at Chu Xinran and said, "Sister Xinran brought me. She was near our house and was coming to visit you anyway, so she brought me along." Hearing this, Fang Zhou thought his sister was naive. How could it be on the way? Chu Xinran lived in a wealthy neighborhood. And since when did they exchange contact information? He had no idea. Before he could ask, Chu Xinran spoke up. "After visiting your home last time, I found Wenjing quite endearing, so I asked Wushu for her WeChat. It was just a coincidence today." Her explanation was seamless, easing Fang Zhou's doubts. He couldn't help but feel a bit proud. "Of course, my sister is so adorable, everyone likes her." Embarrassed by the praise, Fang Wenjing tugged at Fang Zhou's sleeve, saying, "Brother, enough. I can't handle this flattery." Their conversation was warm and harmonious, resembling a family gathering. In the corner, Qin Yun felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. She wanted to leave but feared Fang Wenjing would see and recognize her. But staying wasn't a solution either, they would notice her eventually. After 2 years, Qin Yun didn't know how much Fang Wenjing remembered or if she knew she had harmed her. If Fang Wenjing recalled and confronted her here, Qin Yun wouldn't know how to respond. Indeed, one eventually pays for their misdeeds. Qin Yun sometimes felt that the saying "reaping what you sow" had some truth to it. The gift's fate bestowed upon her had long been marked with a hidden price. TLN, surprised face, finally Qin Yun's weakness. The arrival of Fang Wenjing and Chu Xinran brought a lively energy to the ward. It also brought a genuine smile to Fang Zhou's face. He hadn't seen his sister for almost half a month and wanted to ask about her condition. But with Chu Xinran and Qin Yun present, he couldn't bring himself to ask. He didn't want them knowing about his sister's situation. Fortunately, Qin Yun, wanting to break the awkwardness, offered to step out. She knew that avoiding the issue wouldn't help. If she wanted to be with Fang Zhou again, she had to address the incident involving his sister. Otherwise, it would remain like festering wound, causing pain and never healing. Unless, of course, his sister didn't remember the incident. Or if she planned to keep Fang Zhou locked away forever, preventing him from seeing his sister. But she didn't want Fang Zhou to hate her. So, she decided to take a gamble. Please take care of Fang Zhou. I have a friend in this hospital I need to visit. Qin Yun's words broke the conversation, drawing everyone's attention to her. But she only cared about one gaze. Fang Wenjing's. Did she remember her? Qin Yun looked into her eyes, searching for any sign. Was it panic or fear? Disgust or resentment? Or perhaps evident hatred? To her surprise, there was nothing. Fang Wenjing's big eyes held indifference. She turned her gaze away, treating Qin Yun like an irrelevant stranger. Brother, Aunt Wei's corgi had several puppies. I want to reserve one. Is that okay? Fang Wenjing continued talking to Fang Zhou, completely ignoring Qin Yun. Chu Xinran gave a nod and a smile, showing friendliness even to a rival. Fang Zhou, meanwhile, nodded while responding to his sister. Sure, but you'll have to wait until after your college entrance exams. Otherwise, you'll spend all your time with the dog. Fine. Qin Yun felt a mix of emotions, unable to pinpoint what she felt. She slowly walked out of the ward, feeling both pressure and relief. It seemed Fang Wenjing didn't remember her. Did this mean the biggest obstacle between her and Fang Zhou had quietly disappeared? If even the person involved didn't remember, why should Fang Zhou hold on to it? So, all she needed to do was win back Fang Zhou's heart, right? Leaning against the wall, Qin Yun exhaled deeply, as if trying to expel all the bad air from her body. But her sixth sense told her it wasn't that simple. For now, she could only take it one step at a time. Just a wall away, inside the ward. Fang Zhou ended the conversation about the dog and put on a serious expression. He couldn't see his sister's expression, so he asked directly. Do you remember that woman from earlier? 2 years ago, when Qin Yun took her, Fang Wenjing had been deceived. When he found her, she was unconscious and only woke up much later. Fang Zhou wasn't sure if Qin Yun had harmed her while she was awake. Even though there were no physical injuries, Fang Wenjing claimed she didn't remember what happened. He still feared it left a psychological scar. So, he avoided bringing it up, not wanting to trigger bad memories. Now that Qin Yun had formally met his sister, he had to find out. Fang Wenjing was silent for a moment before answering. I remember her. 2 years ago, before I got sick, she came to my school with a photo of you and took me after school. Then she brought me to a room, gave me a drink, and I fell asleep. When I woke up, you were very angry. Raising her eyebrows slightly, she added uncertainly. Brother, I remember you broke up with her after that. Was it because of me? The understanding girl showed a hint of guilt and regret. If she caused her brother's breakup, she felt she owed him an apology. So she had pretended not to recognize Qin Yun earlier, fearing she'd be blamed. Fang Zhou felt a mix of emotions. It turned out that during the incident, Fang Wenjing had been completely in the dark. She only knew that he had a big fight with Qin Yun, with their phone calls turning violent. Even now, she felt she needed to apologize to him. Fang Zhou found his sister's direction and gently patted her back, speaking softly. It wasn't because of you. Silly sister. You're the best sister in the world. Fang Wenjing not remembering was actually a good thing. After all, being kidnapped at a young age and almost harmed would be terrifying for anyone. At this moment, Fang Zhou was grateful that Qin Yun hadn't acted while his sister was conscious. Otherwise, if she developed psychological issues, he wouldn't have let Qin Yun off so easily. He didn't plan to tell Fang Wenjing about this, at least not until she was well. Being sick was already exhausting. He didn't want her worrying about this too. Then why did you break up? Is there any chance of getting back together? Relieved that it wasn't her fault, Fang Wenjing relaxed and even started worrying about her brother's love life. Fang Zhou chuckled and shook his head, telling her gently but firmly. We won't get back together, silly sister. In this world, there aren't many second chances. Once something is broken, it can't be fixed without leaving marks. He would never let his sister be in danger again. He was willing to protect the only blood relative he had left in this world, even with his life. Outside the hospital, traffic bustled and people flowed constantly. 2 young women stood in front of a convenience store, about to enter when Chu Xinran called out to the other. Shall we have a chat? Her voice was light and sweet, like a songbird singing. Though her tone was calm, her voice's natural charm was evident. Qin Yun raised an eyebrow, withdrew her hand from the store door, and turned to smile at her. Sure, what do you want to talk about? Let's find a place to chat. They moved to a nearby park, which was quiet except for a few elderly people walking dogs, playing with birds, or listening to opera. It was a scene of leisurely contentment. They sat on opposite sides of a stone bench, and it was Qin Yun who broke the silence first. Actually, if possible, retiring like this wouldn't be bad. Her gaze was on the elderly people enjoying their activities, a hint of envy on her face. Of course, given her current status and savings, Qin Yun could easily retire. But retiring so young left nothing for later in life. So, it was just a passing thought. Chu Xinran smiled slightly, watching an old man playing with a Chinese rural dog, and spoke softly. If possible, I'd love to retire with the one I love. Qin Yun subtly gripped her sleeve and rubbed it, thinking, she's finally getting to the point. Is she waiting for me to ask who her beloved is? Qin Yun's lips curled into a small smile, deciding to play along. Who do you want to retire with? Her voice was steady and her tone calm, as if she already knew the answer and was prepared for any outcome. Chu Xinran turned to meet her gaze, and without hesitation, said 2 words. Fang Zhou. I want to grow old with Fang Zhou. I love him, I want to be with him forever. Chu Xinran's straightforwardness would have shocked her friends, as she was usually shy and quiet. She rarely expressed her feelings so openly or showed her preferences so clearly. A pure girl, she kept her likes and dislikes hidden, not letting anyone pry. Even her friends rarely knew her true feelings. As the daughter of a billionaire, her personal traits could easily be exploited. So Chu Xinran had learned to hide her true emotions. Qin Yun looked into her round, dewy eyes, sparkling like stars in the sky. She thought, if I were a man, I'd definitely be moved. Who could resist such innocent and clear eyes? Men, being visual creatures, rarely refuse when a small, delicate woman asks for help. Youth was undoubtedly her greatest advantage. But Qin Yun didn't think she was any less. So facing this emotional challenge, she responded with a gentle smile, her confidence and poise shining through. That might be difficult, because I want the same. Qin Yun's first impression was of a bright, flamboyant, and eye-catching woman. Like a blooming red rose, the kind that draws immediate attention in a garden. Her unique charm made her unforgettable. Chu Xinran instinctively bit her lip, a conflicted expression on her face. She knew Qin Yun and Han Shi had a special bond with Fang Zhou. Han Shi was Fang Zhou's ex-boyfriend, but why did Qin Yun like him? Was it his handsome face or his caring nature? Chu Xinran had no way of knowing. She doubted Qin Yun would tell her. But she bravely lifted her head, like a newborn tiger challenging a much stronger enemy. I won't let him go to you. Her voice was just loud enough for Qin Yun to hear. For some reason, Qin Yun found the girl's innocent determination endearing. She chuckled, tapping her knee lightly before speaking. I never said you had to. And besides, Fang Zhou is already mine. You can't take him away. Qin Yun's calm demeanor only fueled Chu Xinran's determination, her eyes reflecting her displeasure. She recalled a past incident and asked softly, Really? If you're so confident, why did you delete our photos from my phone? Her voice was like a thunderclap in Qin Yun's ears. She instantly remembered deleting Chu Xinran's photos with Fang Zhou while she was asleep during a volunteer trip. At that time, Qin Yun was jealous of Chu Xinran's time with Fang Zhou. They looked so perfect together in the photos that she couldn't tolerate it. Qin Yun wasn't entirely confident. If she were, she wouldn't think of keeping Fang Zhou by her side forever. Her possessiveness and insecurity screamed from every part of her being, no, don't let him get close to anyone else. This might be the common trait of isolating yanderis. They would rather keep their loved ones close, away from others, than let them go free and risk forgetting them. Feeling seen through, Qin Yun's eyes flickered with guilt. Unconsciously, she scratched her knee, forcing herself to respond. I did delete those photos, but only because I thought I should be the one next to him. I was wrong, and I apologize. But I don't regret it. Qin Yun's voice was firm. Even though she admitted her mistake, she stood by her actions. This angered Chu Xinran, who retorted, Well, you can't delete them all. I have many photos with him. She began to pull out her phone, ready to show Qin Yun their photos. Most were photoshopped, as Fang Zhou rarely took pictures with her. But she couldn't lose face now, even edited photos had to be shown. Damn bad woman. Qin Yun knew seeing the photos might make her lose control, so she stopped her. What are you trying to prove? That you're his ex-girlfriend? So what? And by the way, I'm also his ex-girlfriend. The revelation left Chu Xinran stunned, realizing the competition was fiercer than she thought. You're also Fang Zhou's ex-girlfriend. The wind gently caressed Chu Xinran's hair, as if feeling sorry for the stunned girl. She sat on the stone bench, her lips slightly parted, seemingly wanting to say something but unable to. How could this be? Han Shi, herself, and Qin Yun were all Fang Zhou's ex-girlfriends? How could he have dated so many girls? Could Fang Zhou's heart really be divided into so many pieces, one for each girl? Chu Xinran suddenly felt it was incredibly unfair. She had liked him for 2 years, never wavering, yet he liked one girl and then moved on to the next. And even when she wanted to get back together, she was rejected repeatedly, without any room for discussion. Was it because he found someone he loved more, someone better than her? Chu Xinran felt as if Qin Yun's words were like a syringe, extracting her very soul, leaving behind a lifeless body, incapable of feeling pain anymore. Or perhaps it was because she was already numb from the pain. Her right hand rested on her left arm, unconsciously beginning to scratch. Was it because she wasn't good enough that she couldn't keep him? It hurt so much, she wished she could exchange this imperfect body for a perfect one. Qin Yun hadn't expected her words to render Chu Xinran so numb. She had only thought that the girl's provocations were meaningless. Because in this show, there were too many women interested in Fang Zhou. Might as well lay it all out. Everyone should show their cards and act accordingly. Qin Yun gently held Chu Xinran's right hand, stopping her actions, and said calmly, I'm not trying to show off. I'm just telling you, you'd better not compete with me, because I'm a lunatic. These words were as much for herself as they were for Chu Xinran. Maybe neither of them would win in the end. But Qin Yun couldn't let that happen. Even if it meant forcing it, she would keep Fang Zhou. In the hospital, Fang Zhou had just finished discussing his sister's condition and was about to ask about her studies when Chu Xinran and Qin Yun returned. One of them carried snacks while the other had water. Qin Yun handed a bottle to each person. When it was Fang Wenjing's turn, she subconsciously observed her expression. As expected, there was no hatred or fear in those innocent eyes. Instead, she looked grateful for the water. Thank you, sister. Fang Wenjing smiled, purely like a girl of 15 or 16, unguarded and without scheming. Just as she had been when Qin Yun first met her. Qin Yun nodded lightly and turned her attention to Fang Zhou. He was tightly pressing his lips together, seemingly unwilling to speak. Fang Wenjing was protected so well by him, like a pristine white sheet of paper, untainted by the world's dirt. Despite what had happened before, she remained gentle, just like her brother Fang Zhou. Qin Yun pondered if Fang Zhou hadn't mentioned the incident to her. Was he protecting his sister by not telling her, or did he not want to bring it up with her? She quickly dismissed the latter thought. Impossible. He had hated her so much back then, he couldn't possibly be indifferent now. Fang Zhou must have kept it from his sister to protect her. Qin Yun wanted to indulge in wishful thinking, but countless encounters with reality kept her grounded. A glimmer of hope sparkled in her eyes. As long as Fang Wenjing didn't know, or as long as she could get her forgiveness, Fang Zhou wouldn't hold it against her. Qin Yun felt she had found her direction again. Her movements became lighter, her mood noticeably improving. In contrast, Chu Xinran's low spirits were apparent. Even Fang Wenjing noticed. Sister Xinran, what's wrong? You seem unhappy. Since entering the ward, Chu Xinran had been staring blankly at Fang Zhou, not even putting down the snacks in her hands. Hearing her name, she finally snapped back to reality. Forcing a smile, she tried to appear natural. It's nothing, just feeling a bit sleepy. As she spoke, she handed the snacks over. These are for you. Fang Wenjing was pleasantly surprised, her eyes widening. For me. She glanced at the bag filled with snacks like spicy strips, dried fruits, and jerky. But she couldn't eat them, so she politely declined. I can't eat these, Sister Xinran, but thank you. Chu Xinran frowned slightly, puzzled. A girl her age typically loved snacks. She had bought them at the convenience store on a whim, thinking Fang Wenjing would like them. Why can't you eat them? Are you on a diet? But Fang Wenjing was already very thin, with barely any meat on her arms, even thinner than herself. Fang Wenjing lowered her head, feeling a bit down. She was about to explain when Fang Zhou interrupted. Her health hasn't been great lately, so she needs to watch her diet. His tone was flat, clearly indicating he didn't want to elaborate. Chu Xinran, already in a bad mood, didn't press further. She nodded lightly, placing the snacks on the table. Then have them when your eyes get better. Qin Yun, on the other hand, scrutinized Fang Wenjing with a curious gaze. Earlier, she had been too anxious to observe her closely. Now she saw a frail, thin girl, with pale lips and a face that was both pale and slightly yellowish, clearly unwell. It wasn't just a minor health issue, it seemed serious. Qin Yun decided to use her connections to investigate further when she got back. Chu Xinran, not in high spirits, made Fang Wenjing want to cheer her up. After all, she saw her as a future sister-in-law, so she pulled Chu Xinran along, suggesting they go look at the flowers outside. Sister Xinran, look at the magnolias outside, they're so pretty. Let's go take some pictures. No matter how low a girl's mood is, mentioning taking pictures can instantly lift her spirits. This was Fang Wenjing's belief, and her experience proved it effective. Following her gaze, Chu Xinran saw the pink and white magnolias blooming beautifully on the branches. Seeing the expectant look in Fang Wenjing's eyes, she couldn't refuse her kindness. All right, let's go. Do you want to come with us? She even turned to ask Qin Yun, showing no sign of their earlier confrontation. The older woman smiled gently, waving her hand to decline. No, you two go ahead. Watching them leave, Qin Yun remembered Chu Xinran's words in the park and slowly lost her smile. She had said, what a coincidence, you're crazy, so am I. Fang Zhou had initially thought that with Chu Xinran and Qin Yun both in his ward, the atmosphere would be tense and explosive. But to his surprise, it was incredibly harmonious. It was as if they had agreed to put aside their differences, with no signs of their previous clashes. Or perhaps it was because Fang Zhou couldn't see, making him unaware of any underlying tension. In any case, their peaceful coexistence was a good thing for him, saving him the trouble of mediating their conflicts. And so, a tranquil day passed. That night, Qin Yun had intended to stay with Fang Zhou, but Han Shi's assistant beat her to it. Dressed in a suit, the man with an amiable smile said, I'll stay. It's more convenient for a man to be here. And besides, Dr. Qin, don't you have an academic seminar tomorrow? You should get a good rest tonight. Unlike the cold demeanor of Han Shi, the assistant's words, though polite, carried the same dismissive effect. He must have investigated her, otherwise, how would he know her schedule? Qin Yun chuckled inwardly. Well, they say knowing yourself and your enemy is the key to victory. Indeed, she did have a seminar tomorrow, and her work was busy. She had already rescheduled many tasks to be here today. Before leaving, she gave Fang Zhou a meaningful look, then stepped out. Chu Xinran also took Fang Wenjing home, not staying the night. She wasn't in a good mood and feared losing control and making Fang Zhou worry about her despite his condition, though she longed for his care and attention. That night, Fang Zhou slept soundly for the first time in a long while. The dreadful feeling of being surrounded by predators had finally disappeared. On the third day of his hospital stay, Fang Zhou's vision began to return, no longer shrouded in darkness. The feelings of vulnerability and anxiety vanished without a trace. The joy of seeing again filled him with excitement, making him jump for joy. This is great. Fang Zhou beamed brightly, while the attending doctor remained calm, advising him, you still need to continue the medication I prescribed. Even after you go home, avoid strenuous activities for a week and then come back for a follow-up. The blood clot in your brain has dissolved, but there's always a risk of other complications. This meant Fang Zhou could be discharged. His external injuries had mostly healed with the medication. Grateful, Fang Zhou shook the doctor's hand, showing a big smile. Thank you, doctor. I'll remember that. No more worrying about perverts sneaking into his bed at night. Han Shi's assistant, who had slept on the companion bed, was also in good spirits. Upon hearing the good news, he immediately took out his phone to inform Han Shi. However, when he turned on his phone, a piece of entertainment news caught his attention. The bold headline read, shocking. Top star Qiao Sisi visits XX hospital to see her boyfriend. On the surface, the assistant seemed like a loyal subordinate to Han Shi. In reality, he was also a fan of Qiao Sisi. He was the type who supported all her merchandise, movies, and TV shows. Seeing this news, he felt as if the world had turned dark. No way, how could Sisi have a boyfriend? He clicked on the news, determined to see who the homewrecker was. On the small screen, two photos appeared. One of Qiao Sisi and the other of Fang Zhou. The paparazzi had even found photos of them both wearing white shirts, making them look like a perfect match. The assistant's eyes widened, staring at Fang Zhou in shock. It was him? No way, he couldn't be her boyfriend. His first reaction was to think the unscrupulous paparazzi were making things up. Sisi must have visited Fang Zhou because they were on the same show, and Fang Zhou got hurt protecting everyone. However, as he was about to switch to inform Han Shi, another news notification popped up, making him unable to laugh. Shocking? Qiao Sisi's first love turns out to be Fang Zhou. The assistant looked up in surprise at Fang Zhou, thinking, no, this can't be true. Fang Zhou, having finished talking to the doctor, was resting on the bed with an foredrip, when he felt a strong gaze on him. Han Shi's assistant was staring at him intently. Fang Zhou instinctively touched his face and asked, what's wrong? Do I have something on my face? That couldn't be. He had washed his face thoroughly in the morning. The assistant swallowed hard, retracting his gaze, and suppressed his shock while screenshotting the entertainment news to send to Han Shi. No way I'm dealing with this heartbreak alone, the boss has to join me. President Han, Mr. Fang's vision has returned, and he can be discharged this afternoon. At that moment, Han Shi was in a shareholder meeting at the company. She glanced at her vibrating phone and was about to set it aside. But the content of the second screenshot caught her off guard. Fang Zhou is Qiao Sisi's first love? The one she mentioned on the show, the first love who tolerated everything about her? The file in Han Shi's hand slipped to the floor, drawing the shareholder's attention. President Han, are you dissatisfied with my proposal? The shareholder speaking, He Ping, was presenting plans for the company's market development for the next 2 quarters. He, riding on his father's status as a company veteran and his own significant contributions, felt no less capable than Han Shi but resented her for being CEO. Seeing her falter, he couldn't resist pointing it out. The other shareholders, already displeased with Han Shi for abandoning company matters to film a dating show, seized the opportunity to voice their criticism. President Han, if you have a better idea, please share it. Oh, right, President Han is busy with her love life. How could she have time for the company's survival? Forget it, let's fend for ourselves. We wouldn't want to delay President Han's romantic endeavors and incur Cupid's wrath. Their comments seemed aimed at solidifying Han Shi's dereliction of duty. Han Shi calmly picked up the file, unperturbed. Indeed, your plan is good, but too simplistic. The international market is dominated by big brands. Advertising alone won't suffice for us to break through. Standing up, Han Shi articulated her perspective clearly. For the promotion aspect, we can also. Her sharp and insightful critique left He Ping speechless, while the other shareholders shifted from skepticism to admiration. As expected of President Han, excellent suggestions. Heh, I was wrong earlier. I shouldn't have said that. I apologize. Their opportunistic attitudes were nothing new to Han Shi, and she paid them no mind. What truly concerned her was that piece of entertainment news. The news shocked not only Han Shi but also others. At a university lecture hall, Qin Yun saw the message and nearly tore the paper in her hand. She laughed coldly, picturing Qiao Sisi's seemingly delicate face in her mind, thinking, she hid it well. So, a variety show managed to gather 4 of Fang Zhou's ex-girlfriends plus a childhood sweetheart. Haha, Fang Zhou is truly fortunate. Who knows, maybe there are even more ex-girlfriends yet to be discovered. Qin Yun felt an itch in her hand, craving a way to vent her frustrations. She glanced at her colleagues and excused herself to the restroom to wash her face. Calm down. Don't act impulsively. Qin Yun was genuinely afraid she might lose control and rush back to the hospital to confront Fang Zhou. Chu Xinran also heard about the news from a friend's phone call. She stared blankly at the comments below, as if her soul had left her. OMG, Fang Zhou is actually Sisi's first love. No wonder they look so good together. They're a real couple. I'm going to dig into their past. Even old sugar is sweet. Crying, Fang Zhou is Sisi's unforgettable first love. I bet she joined the show just for him. Devoted actress joins a dating show for love? This is like a novel come to life. Damn, what did Fang Zhou do to deserve this? That's Sisi, the best girl in the world. Chu Xinran's phone slipped from her hand, hitting the ground with a loud crack. First love. Those two words were an eyesore. Chu Xinran felt her heart ache, like being pricked by countless needles. The paparazzi said their relationship started years ago, even before she met Fang Zhou. Fang Zhou was her first love, but his first love was Xiao Sisi. I thought the tenderness I received was unique. But it turns out someone else had already enjoyed that tenderness before me. Meanwhile, in an advertising agency in the capital, Xiao Sisi's manager, Sister Zhu, frowned at the entertainment news on her tablet and looked at the woman getting her makeup done. This is bad. She knew visiting Fang Zhou would cause trouble. The news article even included photos of Xiao Sisi, wearing a mask and sunglasses, leaving the hospital. The unscrupulous media had spiced up the story, making it sound convincing. If Sister Zhu hadn't seen Xiao Sisi's dejected expression herself, she might have believed Xiao Sisi and Fang Zhou had rekindled their romance. This kind of scandal, coming out just before Xiao Sisi's new drama premiered, was terrible timing. It could disrupt the new drama's promotion and affect its performance. Sister Zhu sighed, mentally preparing several PR strategies to suppress the scandal. Xiao Sisi, hearing her sigh, kept her eyes closed as the makeup artist worked on her eye makeup, but couldn't help asking, "What's wrong, Sister Zhu?" Sister Zhu coughed lightly and said, "I'll tell you after you finish shooting this commercial." It wasn't a big or small matter, and she didn't know if Xiao Sisi would be happy or angry. To avoid affecting her work, it was better to wait until the shoot was over. If Xiao Sisi were still an unknown actress, Sister Zhu could have handled it directly without consulting her. But Xiao Sisi had grown wings long ago, and the agency couldn't control her. Otherwise, they wouldn't have just watched her join a dating show. From another perspective, Sister Zhu even thought that Xiao Sisi's years of hard work in acting and building fame were for this moment. When her scandals spread, they wouldn't impact her career too severely. In fact, if she wanted to, she could openly date without issue. After all, she was a skilled actress, not one of those idols relying on fanboys. The makeup artist carefully applied green eyeshadow to Xiao Sisi's eyelids, adding highlights. When she finally opened her eyes, everyone around was amazed. Wow, this green eyeshadow is beautiful. Like mountains meeting at the brows and waters reflecting in the eyes. I'm completely smitten. Sisi, you look stunning. Xiao Sisi smiled warmly, her eyes full of joy. Stop flattering me. Let's get to work. The actress under the spotlight was confident and radiant, every gesture filled with pride and poise. Perhaps people are like that once in their element. They shine with confidence and brilliance. Sister Zhu appeared calm but was internally anxious. Within minutes of the news breaking, the drama's producers and the lead actors team had already called her several times. Sister Zhu, what's going on? Our new drama is about to premiere. We've been promoting it for so long. If the new drama's couple doesn't click, don't blame the lead actor. Sister Zhu could only reassure them, urging them to think positively. Consider it free publicity. We're all skilled actors, no need to stress. Who knows, this might boost our premiere ratings. About half an hour later, Xiao Sisi finished shooting the commercial. Sister Zhu seized the moment and showed her the tabloid news. Sisi, look at this. Whether to clarify the situation or how to handle it was up to Xiao Sisi. Sister Zhu felt that being a manager for a top star wasn't easy. Some decisions weren't hers to make. Xiao Sisi glanced at the article, raising an eyebrow, and calmly said, "Ignore it. Let them say what they want." Sister Zhu frowned and showed her the recent call logs. But the drama's director and the lead actors team have some complaints. Xiao Sisi nonchalantly removed the prop ring from her hand, giving Sister Zhu a playful look. They can't tell who's carrying the drama. Forget a first love scandal, even if I got married today, it wouldn't affect the drama's quality. In acting, Xiao Sisi was as bold and confident as a young person fresh out of college. Sister Zhu was speechless and decided to contact Xiao Sisi's major fans, asking them to use this opportunity to promote the new drama. After all, if the actress herself didn't care, meddling would just bring unnecessary trouble. Xiao Sisi, meanwhile, took out her phone and looked at the photos of herself and Fang Zhou, smiling contentedly. At least those paparazzi had good taste. The white shirts and red background made them look like newlyweds taking wedding photos. Cheerful and perfectly matched. While rumors about Xiao Sisi and Fang Zhou were flying everywhere, Fang Zhou was finishing up his last 4 drip, packing his bags, and preparing to go home. However, as soon as he stepped out of the hospital doors, he was swarmed by a crowd. Some people had cameras pointed directly at his face, while others were shoving microphones toward him, demanding an interview. "Mr. Fang, we heard you had a past with the big star Sisi. Can you tell us about it?" Fang Zhou, as Xiao Sisi's first love, appearing with her on the dating show, was it accidental or intentional? "Are you two rekindling your old flame? When Sisi visited you in the hospital yesterday, what were your thoughts?" The reporters were chattering so loudly that Fang Zhou's eardrums felt like they were about to burst. Not to mention the flashing cameras that blinded him. Instinctively, Fang Zhou tried to retreat back into the hospital, but he found himself surrounded from behind as well, with no space to move. He was utterly shocked, unable to comprehend how these people knew about his past with Xiao Sisi. But then it dawned on him it must have been because Xiao Sisi was spotted at the hospital yesterday. Indeed, their relationship had existed, and it was only a matter of time before it was uncovered. But he hadn't expected it to happen now. As Fang Zhou was about to explain, a reporter's microphone nearly jabbed into his mouth. Feeling cornered and knowing that saying the wrong thing could lead to backlash, he restrained himself. Moreover, he wasn't sure about Qiao Cici's stance or if there was a need to keep things under wraps. Behind Fang Zhou, Han Shi's assistant quickly stepped up, doubling as an impromptu bodyguard. "Excuse me, please step aside. Mr. Fang isn't feeling well and can't take interviews right now." The tall, imposing assistant led Fang Zhou through the crowd, then opened the car door and shoved him inside. He followed suit, instructing the driver Han Shi had sent. "Drive. Get us out of here." The extended Lincoln sped away, leaving behind a sea of envious gazes. Fang Zhou is this rich? He's riding in such a fancy car. Damn, wasn't he a washed-up streamer? Does he have a secret identity? Hurry, post this. This will definitely go viral. In the car, Fang Zhou finally had a moment to pull out his phone and check the situation. On Weibo's entertainment section, his and Qiao Cici's names were trending in several hot topics. The most prominent was titled, "Top star Qiao Cici rekindles romance with first love Fang Zhou." Fang Zhou felt a headache coming on. What is this? Who's rekindling what with her? Qiao Cici had only visited the hospital, and it turned into this. These media outlets were really blowing things out of proportion. Scrolling further, he saw fans' shocked and angry comments. "Damn it, my Cici has been taken. I'm so mad I could die. Damn man, how dare you break Cici's heart after capturing it early on. Unless she dumped you, I'll drown you in salt water." Wow, Fang Zhou hid this so well. I thought he was a decent guy on the show, but he pretended not to know Cici. This last comment felt unfair to Fang Zhou. It wasn't that he pretended not to know her. With 4 ex-girlfriends on the show, he couldn't acknowledge any of them openly. If he acknowledged one, what about the others? Acknowledging all of them was unthinkable. Among the critical comments, there were actually a few people genuinely shipping the couple. "Oh my god, my ship has sailed. Everyone, who else is on board? If their reconciliation is true, I hope they stay together forever. Get married already. They look so much like a married couple. I don't get why some fans are barking. Where will you find someone more handsome than Fang Zhou for Cici?" The more Fang Zhou read, the more anxious he became, so he decided to turn off his phone. He rubbed his temples, feeling a headache despite no physical injury there. Han Shi's assistant, sitting beside him, was about to speak when he heard the video call sound and saw it was from the boss. "Hello, President Han." Answering the call, he saw Han Shi's icy expression. Give the phone to Fang Zhou. Knowing that she had arranged for him and the driver to take Fang Zhou home, she assumed he was nearby. The assistant didn't delay, nudging Fang Zhou's arm and handing him the phone. "Mr. Fang." Fang Zhou opened his eyes, feeling a bit guilty upon hearing Han Shi's voice. Wait, she's an ex-girlfriend now. Why feel guilty? After mentally steeling himself, he answered the call. "Han Shi, how are your eyes?" Fang Zhou nodded instinctively, replying honestly, "Much better. If you're feeling better, don't go home yet. There's a banquet I need a male companion for. Can you help me out?" Her gaze was firm, her expression calm, revealing no emotion. She spoke naturally, with no hint of anger, as if she wasn't bothered by the tabloid news about him and Qiao Cici. Fang Zhou was taken aback, uncertain. "A male companion? Me?" Han Shi nodded slightly, affirming, "Yes, I couldn't find anyone suitable on short notice. Can you help?" The usually assertive and domineering CEO used a questioning tone, tinged with a barely noticeable hint of vulnerability and unease, as if afraid Fang Zhou might reject her. Fang Zhou had never experienced this before and felt a soft spot in his heart. He hesitated, wanting to refuse. "But I rarely attend such events. I'm afraid I'll embarrass you. Maybe you should find someone more suitable." He was being truthful. Ordinary people rarely had the chance to attend such high-profile events. On the other end, Han Shi, surprisingly, smiled, like a thawing lake in February touched by the spring breeze. She said, "It's all right, I'll be there with you. Just help me this once, okay?" Fang Zhou recalled the excellent meals he had been enjoying recently and thought, "I owe her for that. Fine, it's just a banquet. I can stay in the corner. All right, just this once." Ultimately, Fang Zhou agreed. In a villa in a suburban area, a young girl sat in the courtyard, staring at the blooming flowers absent-mindedly. She was surrounded by many flowers in full bloom, jasmines, camellias, and more, creating a visually pleasing scene. Unfortunately, the girl didn't seem to be in a good mood. She used a book to cover her face, avoiding certain aspects of her life. A well-dressed lady in a kipao, holding a bouquet of fresh flowers, walked slowly from the other end of the garden. The flowers in her hands were still dripping with water, indicating they had just been picked. The lady placed the bouquet on the table and looked at the girl with the book-covered face, her eyes filled with concern. She spoke softly, "Xinran, what's wrong? Are you feeling down?" The lady was Chu Xinran's adoptive mother, Chu Xian. Hearing her voice, Chu Xinran removed the book from her face, opening her wide doe eyes. She hadn't been asleep, just resting her eyes. A flash of panic crossed Chu Xinran's face upon being seen through, but remembering it was her mother, she felt it was okay to show some emotion. She nodded slightly and replied, "I'm not feeling great, not exactly happy. After all, learning that the person you like has multiple ex-girlfriends, all gathering on the same show, who could be happy about that? Moreover, these ex-girlfriends seemed to be eyeing Fang Zhou, wanting to rekindle their relationships. How could Chu Xinran be interested in that? The trending topics had been on the platform all day without anyone addressing them, indicating that the involved parties didn't care or possibly even wanted the hype. This made Chu Xinran suspect Xiao Sisi, who likely wanted the whole world to know Fang Zhou was her ex-boyfriend. Such a high-profile declaration of love couldn't possibly go unnoticed by Fang Zhou. Chu Xinran's heart ached again, her mood sinking further. Chu Xian, feeling her daughter's distress, reached out to stroke her head, comforting her softly. If something's bothering you, you can tell Mom. I'll help you resolve it. Such a simple sentence somehow hit Chu Xinran's emotional trigger. Throughout her childhood, Chu Xian had poured all her love into her adopted daughter. When Chu Xinran was bullied by her peers, Chu Xian would directly approach the teachers and school, forcing an apology and guarantees from the offenders. Since then, no one at school dared to bully her. As she grew older and became more attractive, pursued by boys at school, Chu Xian initially turned a blind eye. But when those boys started crossing the line, wanting to take Chu Xinran out alone, Chu Xian stepped in. No matter what, her mother was always there, supporting her behind the scenes. Except for the matter with Fang Zhou, she had been very good to her. That was the coldest and most heartless she had ever seen her mother. Chu Xinran felt a lump in her throat, blinking back tears. She thought to herself, even if I tell her, Mom won't agree. She would only take the opportunity to meddle, making things worse and pushing Fang Zhou further away. So Chu Xinran chose to keep it hidden. It's nothing. I'll be fine soon. Don't worry about me. Is that bouquet juice balcony? It looks beautiful. Chu Xinran shifted her attention to the bouquet her mother had just placed on the table, touching the orange-yellow flowers. She knew her mother loved gardening. Chu Xian had even created a large private garden in the villa, taking care of the flowers herself, rarely letting the gardeners intervene. Chu Xian nodded gently, following the topic. Yes, I'll ask Aunt Wang to put some in your room later. Chu Xinran smiled genuinely. Thank you, Mom. As she played with the leaves, another thought crossed her mind. Fang Zhou also liked the juice balcony flower. The yellow roses blooming on the balcony during the rainy season were like rays of sunshine, brightening one's mood. They also symbolized beautiful love, luck, and blessings. A hint of confusion flashed in her eyes. Did Fang Zhou like juice balcony because he longed for beautiful love too? If that were the case, why didn't he believe they could create that beautiful love together? Chu Xian didn't miss the confusion and sadness in her daughter's eyes, sighing inwardly. This silly girl must be heartbroken over that man again. She suddenly remembered the invitation she received that morning and had an idea. Xinran, there's a banquet tonight. Will you come with me? Chu Xinran hesitated, instinctively not wanting to go. Previous banquets were either subtle matchmaking attempts or covert blind dates. Mom, Sensing her reluctance, Chu Xian interrupted. It's a charity banquet. You just returned from the mountains, right? We can do some good. Thinking of the children in the impoverished mountainous areas, Chu Xinran's heart softened. All right, I'll go. Chu Xian smiled, satisfied, thinking, although it's a charity banquet, there will be many distinguished guests. Only the rich or those with outstanding achievements in certain fields can attend. More importantly, there will be many excellent young men. With so many promising young men, she couldn't believe Chu Xinran wouldn't find one to her liking. Her smart daughter was so confused about love. Why get stuck on one tree? But it's okay, she would help her move on. Chu Xian smiled confidently, already planning how to find a suitable match for her daughter. Meanwhile, Fang Zhou was at a clothing store, following Han Shi's arrangement, choosing an outfit. According to Han Shi, tonight's banquet was quite important, and as her companion, his attire must be impeccable. After trying on 5 or 6 outfits, Fang Zhou felt exhausted. Han Shi's discerning eye was as demanding as ever. Finally, when he came out in a white suit, he saw a look of satisfaction in her eyes. All right, this one. Put it on my tab. Han Shi made a gesture, and the store attendant, delighted, agreed immediately. Fang Zhou scratched his head, feeling like he was in a scene from a romantic drama where the domineering CEO buys clothes for the little wife. Maybe I should pay for it. After all, it's for me. Han Shi raised an eyebrow, looking at his suit, and said, You're helping me, so of course I'll cover it. With that, the store attendant brought over a rack of women's clothing for Han Shi to try on. Feeling bored, Fang Zhou glanced at the price tag and was stunned 6 figures. Suddenly, he felt relieved he didn't insist on paying to show off. He couldn't understand the world of the wealthy. Around 7 p.m., outside a castle-style hotel in a certain district of the capital, over 200 media reporters had gathered. Their cameras flashed constantly as they aimed to capture every attendee arriving at the event. Under the escort of security personnel, a dark blue Mercedes sped through the hotel gates, its tinted windows blocking any view from the outside. Inside the car, Fang Zhou watched as they passed through the gates and onto a spacious pathway lined with small bridges and flowing water, all in a European manner style. In the distance, a golf course stretched out under the lights, looking particularly expansive. Soon, the vehicle stopped in front of a castle-like building. After Fang Zhou and Han Shi got out of the car, they underwent identity verification by the security staff before being allowed to enter. Fang Zhou couldn't help but marvel internally, is this what a top-tier banquet is like? With such strict checks, it must be tough for just anyone to get in. As they walked further inside, there wasn't a single reporter in sight, likely because many wealthy attendees preferred to stay out of the public eye. The grand, opulent hall was already filled with many guests waiting. As soon as Han Shi and Fang Zhou entered, they attracted a lot of attention. Fang Zhou could hear people whispering about them. President Han is here. I need to talk to her about a collaboration later. Who's the man with her? Is he from a prominent family? He looks quite distinguished. It's rare to see President Han with a male companion. Could he be her date? I heard she was on a TV show. Did she find someone she likes? If not, maybe I have a chance. Dream on. Even if President Han didn't find anyone, she wouldn't choose you. The fact that her companion is so handsome means her date must be extraordinary too. Han Shi clearly heard these voices but paid no attention, leading Fang Zhou further inside. A man in a suit, accompanied by a female partner, approached them, greeting Han Shi. President Han? Finally, you're here. I've been waiting for you, and this is... The man's gaze fell on Fang Zhou, scrutinizing him. Han Shi smiled slightly and introduced him. This is my companion, Fang Zhou, and this is President Luo. Nice to meet you, President Luo. I'm Fang Zhou. Fang Zhou nodded and stretched out his hand for a handshake, trying to be polite since he was playing the role of Han Shi's companion tonight. President Luo studied Fang Zhou and found his appearance remarkably outstanding and his demeanor refined, giving off an air of sophistication. This was unusual, as Han Shi's companions at these events were either company subordinates or business partners. This young man was new. Could he be Han Shi's boyfriend? He couldn't be blamed for thinking so, given Han Shi's low profile. Generally, wealthy CEOs, male or female, have some tabloid stories. However, Han Shi rarely had any, and even those rumors quickly disappeared. So anyone Han Shi brought to such an event couldn't be just an ordinary friend. Suppressing his surprise, President Luo responded with a warm smile. No wonder you're President Han's companion. Truly impressive. Han Shi smiled, satisfied, and nodded gracefully. She thought, of course, my people are always better than the rest. President Han, I've been eagerly waiting for you. 2 or 3 more people, holding wine glasses, approached Han Shi. Fang Zhou also smiled and greeted them. He had attended a similar event with Han Shi before, but it wasn't as grand, and he had been there as an assistant, handling tasks and feeling more nervous. Today, his only role was exactly as Han Shi had said, just to be a companion. After a while, Han Shi signaled Fang Zhou to take a break while she discussed business with the others. Fang Zhou was happy to relax and found a corner seat. Soon, a waiter brought him drinks and small cakes. Sir, please enjoy. There are more desserts available if you'd like. Fang Zhou nodded and thanked the waiter. In truth, he wasn't fond of sweets, so he didn't touch them and instead pulled out his phone to watch videos. At that moment, 2 women entered the hall, drawing a lot of attention. One wore a white off-shoulder evening gown, and the other a sophisticated black velvet dress. What caught people's attention wasn't their dresses but their identities. President Chu? I didn't think she'd come. President Chu is here? The host must have great influence. Wow, hasn't Chu Xian avoided these events for years? This is unexpected. Is that her daughter? She's stunning. SHH, keep it down. That's the richest person in X City. They own countless businesses. You never know when you might collaborate with them. Chu Xian, accompanied by Chu Xinran, slowly entered the hall. Soon, many people approached to speak with her, not missing the chance to praise Chu Xinran. Is this President Chu's daughter? She's grown even more beautiful. Such a lovely girl. I wonder who she'll marry. Chu Xian graciously accepted the compliments, releasing a signal. Xinran is just in her early 20s. It's too soon to talk about marriage, but finding a good partner is certainly on the table. Hearing this, the surrounding people's eyes lit up. So Chu Xian was looking for a boyfriend for her daughter? Haha, look at my son. He's smitten with Xinran. By the way, President Chu, remember our old arrangement for a childhood engagement. Verbal agreements don't count. My second son would be perfect for Xinran. As they spoke, they led their sons over to meet Chu Xinran. Chu Xinran, forced to meet many young talents, held up her WeChat QR code, smiling until her face grew stiff. She couldn't embarrass her mother in such a large gathering. Adding someone on WeChat wasn't a commitment. Seeing more people approaching, Chu Xinran finally found an excuse to leave. Mom, I'm a bit hungry. I'll go get something to eat. Seeing that 7 or 8 young men had already added her on WeChat, Chu Xian thought it was enough for now and nodded. All right, go ahead. Chu Xinran escaped the spotlight, looking for a darker corner to hide, hoping to avoid more introductions. Suddenly, her gaze fixed on a corner. Is it my imagination, or did I just see Fang Zhou? In the dimly lit corner, a young man sat alone, bathed in soft blue lighting, as if blessed by the gods. His perfect profile was like a sculpture crafted by God's own hands, blooming in solitude in an unnoticed corner. He held a phone in his slender hands, his focused gaze fixed on the screen, seemingly engrossed in something important. Chu Xinran was mesmerized, her breath slowing as she wondered if she was imagining Fang Zhou because she missed him so much. How could it be? Why would Fang Zhou be at an event like this? Not that she looked down on him, but she had just learned that Fang Zhou had been discharged from the hospital. He should have gone home first, not come here. But even if it was a hallucination, she didn't want to let it go, her eyes glued to the young man, afraid he'd disappear if she blinked. Good evening, miss. What would you like to drink? A waiter interrupted Chu Xinran's gaze. She blinked and grabbed a random fruit cocktail from the tray, thanking the waiter. When she looked back, the spot where Fang Zhou had been was empty. Chu Xinran sighed and lowered her eyes, thinking it was indeed a hallucination. She walked slowly to the corner where Fang Zhou had been, sitting down and staring blankly. The news from today had affected her deeply. Even at a lively banquet, she felt an overwhelming sense of helplessness. What should she do to make Fang Zhou belong to her alone? In fact, the moment Chu Xinran noticed Fang Zhou, he received 2 messages from Xiao Sisi. One was a photo of his profile, and the other was a message. Come out for a bit. Meet me in the hallway by the restroom. Fang Zhou frowned, wondering why Xiao Sisi was here too. But then he remembered she was a top star. Attending a charity banquet for some good PR was normal, giving her both a good name and opportunities. Considering the news about their past relationship breaking out today and still unresolved, he felt it was necessary to discuss it with Xiao Sisi to avoid damaging either of their reputations. So, just as Chu Xinran looked down to grab her drink, Fang Zhou stood up and walked out, causing them to miss each other. After asking for directions, Fang Zhou headed straight to the hallway leading to the restroom. There were several corners, and since the banquet hadn't officially started and many guests hadn't arrived, the hallway was deserted. At the end of the corridor, he spotted Xiao Sisi in a flowing purple gown. Her hair color had changed again, now a striking shade of blonde that complemented her dress and showcased her flawless beauty. Seen from a distance, she looked like a goddess who had just descended, noble and beautiful. Hearing footsteps, Xiao Sisi looked up. For a moment, everything else paled in comparison. Fang Zhou felt as if he were back at their first meeting, the same scenario, love at first sight. But times had changed, and so had his feelings. What do you want? Fang Zhou got straight to the point, wanting to finish the conversation quickly before Han Shi started looking for him. Our past relationship has been exposed. Xiao Sisi leaned against the wall, her expression calm, her eyes fixed on Fang Zhou, as if trying to see through him. What would Fang Zhou do? Deny it or go with the flow and get back together? A hidden anticipation rose within her. If Fang Zhou wanted to get back together, she would immediately publicly acknowledge it, ensuring he wouldn't face any backlash. However, Fang Zhou's response disappointed her. I know. Do you want to issue a statement, or should I? Or should we do it together? The word clarify pierced Xiao Sisi's heart like a needle, bringing a faint pain. He didn't want to get back together. She closed her eyes briefly and gestured for Fang Zhou to come closer for a conversation. Come here, I'll tell you how to issue the statement. Fang Zhou looked around, seeing they were alone. Still, there was always the risk of eavesdroppers. If someone overheard and thought they planned this publicity stunt together, it would be troublesome. In this age, the mental state of netizens was something to be cautious of. With long strides, he stepped forward, standing in front of Xiao Sisi and speaking softly, go ahead. Xiao Sisi's lips curled into a sly smile as she said playfully, it's simple, just. She grabbed Fang Zhou's arm, pulling herself into his embrace and wrapping her arms around his waist tightly. Just wait here for someone to notice us. She finished her sentence. Fang Zhou was taken aback, not expecting this move. What do you mean? He tried to pry her hands off his arm, but just as he managed to free one, the other wrapped around him again, like an octopus. It means we confirm our reconciliation. This way, you won't be bothered by other female guests, and I get what I want. A win-win situation. Xiao Sisi looked up, giving a pure smile, as if sincerely considering their best interests. Her breath fell on Fang Zhou's chin, and a few strands of her blonde hair draped over his collarbone, nestling there like a resting creature. But Fang Zhou wouldn't be swayed. We haven't reconciled, and we won't. What you're doing is pointless. As he spoke, he forcibly pulled Xiao Sisi's hands away, trying to distance her. In an instant, Xiao Sisi's gaze darkened, turning sinister and deep. She whispered, even if you don't agree, as long as I admit we're back together, who else can you be with? Her whispered words felt like a dark snake hissing in Fang Zhou's ear, sending a chill down his spine. With Xiao Sisi's influence, even if he issued a statement denying their relationship, netizens wouldn't believe him. They'd see him as a cowardly man, unable to admit his relationship. In such a scenario, any future girlfriend would be labeled a homewrecker, and he'd be seen as a heartless man moving on too quickly. Meanwhile, Xiao Sisi could play the victim in any scenario. This tactic was truly ruthless. Xiao Sisi knew that using this threat was quite immoral. But before achieving ultimate victory, any means justified the effort, right? She just wanted to be with the person she loved. What was wrong with that? Thinking about the women around Fang Zhou, each eyeing him like a predator, how could she sit still? Unless she lost completely, with Fang Zhou marrying and having children with another woman, she would rather take Fang Zhou with her and end it all. A dark light flashed in Xiao Sisi's eyes as she lowered her gaze, hiding the sinister look from Fang Zhou. She laughed softly and asked in a gentle tone, you don't have anyone you like now, so why not give us another chance? It's not that I want to threaten you, it's just that you seem so far away, and it's painful not being able to get close. The actress could play the role of a fragile, innocent girl effortlessly. Her face showed a mix of grievance and confusion, her pink lips shining, evoking a sense of pity. The mix of genuine and fake words left Fang Zhou feeling like he was seeing through a fog. Which one was the real her? Was it the spoiled and pretentious one? The fragile and harmless one? Or the dangerous one he had just glimpsed? Looking at Xiao Sisi, Fang Zhou felt he had never truly known her. She wasn't like this before. Back then, Xiao Sisi was just a spoiled girl hiding her fragile heart behind a facade of stubbornness, not like how she was now. But Fang Zhou had to admit, even he had changed a lot. What wouldn't change over time? Moreover, he was the one who initiated the breakup, and he hadn't handled it well, leading to Qiao Cici's lingering resentment and obsession over the years. Fang Zhou hesitated, pondering if he should give her what she wanted. Maybe once she had what she desired, she'd grow tired and let go. She had been navigating the entertainment industry for years, surely she'd realize how dull he was and lose interest, right? Qiao Cici looked up at the handsome man before her, her gaze dreamy. His eyelashes trembled like small brushes, his eyes flickering as if he was seriously considering her proposal. A secret joy rose in her heart, like a butterfly fluttering, matching her emotions that swayed with Fang Zhou's every move. Was he going to agree? The thought of their future happiness made Qiao Cici smile uncontrollably. Just imagining it felt sweet. Fang Zhou said nothing, and Qiao Cici didn't rush him. They stood in the hallway near the restroom, and if anyone had walked by, they would have immediately noticed something between them. They stood too close, and Fang Zhou's hands were still on Qiao Cici, looking like he was about to embrace her. At that moment, someone truly did walk down the corridor. Wearing elegant pale blue attire and flat shoes, she looked fresh and radiant like a blooming flower. The flat shoes made no sound on the carpeted hallway. When she turned the corner and saw the entangled duo, they hadn't noticed her approaching. Fang Zhou closed his eyes, and when he opened them, it seemed he had made a decision. He spoke in a deep voice, "Your request, I can. What can you?" A clear voice interrupted Fang Zhou, making him swallow the rest of his words. He widened his eyes in surprise, looking at the newcomer. "What are you doing here?" It was Zhang Xian. When asked why she was there, Zhang Xian smiled gently and said, "I'm here as a special guest, to recommend the final auction items." "And why are you two here?" Her gaze fell on Fang Zhou's hands still on Qiao Cici, as if trying to separate them with an invisible force, gentle but firm. Fang Zhou looked down, realizing, and quickly withdrew his hands as if burned. "I wasn't trying to take advantage of her," he instinctively explained, afraid Zhang Xian would misunderstand. In her presence, he completely forgot he had almost agreed to Qiao Cici's demands. Qiao Cici, freed from his grip, felt a bit displeased and huffed, "We were just catching up." This woman's timing was too perfect. If she had been a minute later, she might have succeeded. Qiao Cici's opinion of Zhang Xian grew worse without her realizing it. Though she was Fang Zhou's friend in name, anyone could see Zhang Xian's feelings for Fang Zhou were more than just friendship. "Oh, are you two that close? Have you really reconciled?" Zhang Xian's lips were tightly pressed as if responding to Qiao Cici, but her eyes were fixed on Fang Zhou. She wanted to hear Fang Zhou's words. She needed to know if Fang Zhou had ignored her advice, if he was truly fearless. That dream had tormented her for so long, and she had finally mustered the courage to share a bit of it with Fang Zhou. If he didn't care, what could she do to prevent that outcome? Some superstitions were hard to ignore. For a moment, Zhang Xian's eyes seemed turbulent, like waves crashing, dark layers rolling over each other. Fang Zhou felt a chill on his scalp, suddenly recalling the day he and Zhang Xian were swept away by the flood. She had cried out to him, "Stay away from your ex-girlfriends, okay?" In that instant, clarity struck him, and he took a step back, shivering with goosebumps. He was grateful for Zhang Xian's interruption. He had almost fallen into Qiao Cici's trap. With her Yandere tendencies, would she really let him go easily? The Qiao Cici who had once gone crazy seeing him comfort another girl wouldn't let him off even if she didn't like him anymore. Moreover, if he agreed to Qiao Cici's threats, what if his other ex-girlfriends used the same tactics? What would he do then? Fang Zhou's half-step retreat almost caused the malice in Qiao Cici's eyes to spill out uncontrollably. Why are you avoiding me? Do you really like Zhang Xian?" She slowly raised her head, looking at Fang Zhou with a face full of confusion. "What were you about to say? Can you continue telling me?" Just when Fang Zhou had finally figured out the key issue, there was no way he would continue. Agreeing to her request would be like pushing himself into a pit of fire. Shaking his head, Fang Zhou changed the topic and seriously told her, "I can help you issue a clarification statement if it's inconvenient for you. And yes, I was the one who initiated the breakup back then. It's my fault, so I can bear the brunt of the fans' backlash." His eyes were filled with sincerity, seemingly thinking only of Qiao Cici's well-being. Little did he know, this very attitude of considering her feelings infuriated Qiao Cici. She smirked, a trace of irony in her smile. "You're still so self-righteous. You were like this when we broke up, and you're still like this now. Do you really think what you believe is good for me is actually good for me? Did you ever ask if I wanted it?" Her voice was soft but carried a seriousness that made her expression daunting. Fang Zhou fell silent. Indeed, he had never asked for Qiao Cici's opinion. But wasn't that the best decision he could make for her? He didn't think he was wrong. The atmosphere in the corridor grew tense with Qiao Cici's questioning. If Zhang Xian hadn't witnessed it herself, she would have thought their breakup was due to incompatibility. Now it seemed there was more to the story. No wonder Qiao Cici couldn't forget Fang Zhou, he must have done something she couldn't accept. Fang Zhou felt his throat clogging up. He opened his mouth but ended up just apologizing. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. If you don't need clarification, I won't take any action." His voice became hoarse, lacking the clarity it had earlier. Seeing this, Zhang Xian took 2 steps forward and said to Fang Zhou, "Can you hold my bag? I need to go to the restroom." She gave him a look, signaling him to leave the area. Fang Zhou nodded lightly, agreeing, "Okay." He then walked out, leaving Qiao Cici and Zhang Xian alone in the corridor. One wore a purple gown, the other a blue one, standing on either side as if natural-born rivals. Zhang Ziyan looked at the exquisite actress opposite her, feeling a mix of emotions. Previously, she had been too weak to face Fang Zhou's affections for another woman, too afraid to accept her own failed crush, leading her to flee abroad. Now that she was back, she wouldn't be a weakling anymore. Having decided to protect Fang Zhou, she knew Qiao Sisi, his first love, had to be kept away from him. Qiao Sisi withdrew her gaze from Fang Zhou's departing figure and smiled meaningfully at the famous author across from her. He seems to listen to you. With Fang Zhou gone, she no longer needed to pretend. But as a friend, don't you think you're overstepping? Qiao Sisi implied that Zhang Ziyan was meddling too much. Zhang Ziyan caught the sarcasm but didn't care. Her dark eyes shifted slightly as she replied softly, asking him to hold my bag was just a small favor, something any gentleman would do. Miss Qiao seems to be overthinking. Qiao Sisi snorted, knowing Zhang Ziyan was deliberately misinterpreting her, but she didn't want to waste time arguing over it. Her gaze darkened, fixing on Zhang Ziyan as she warned, Fang Zhou is my first love and will be my future husband. He can have friends, but I don't want him to have overly close female friends. Do you understand, Ms. Zhang? At that moment, Qiao Sisi's aura became oppressive, like a lioness protecting her territory. Dominant and fierce, ready to pounce and tear apart any intruder. Zhang Ziyan almost laughed out loud. Anyone unaware would think Qiao Sisi was a kind, gentle person offering heartfelt advice. Facing Qiao Sisi's inexplicable hostility, Zhang Ziyan wasn't intimidated. Instead, she met her gaze head-on. You said he's your future husband. But, Miss Qiao, the future is the most uncertain thing. It's full of variables. Zhang Ziyan smiled, exuding a calm and confident aura that made her seem like she belonged at the top, admired by many. She leaned in and whispered in Qiao Sisi's ear, the unknown is the most terrifying thing, isn't it? With that, Zhang Ziyan straightened up and walked into the restroom, leaving Qiao Sisi standing there in a daze. Was she officially joining the fray? Entering the competition to see who would emerge victorious? Zhang Ziyan had spent years in Fang Zhou's life, understanding his temperament and habits better. If she chose to interfere, it would indeed be more convenient. But why would Qiao Sisi fear her? A woman who had never truly had Fang Zhou, why should she be afraid? Crossing several corridors, Fang Zhou returned to the hall to find the charity auction had already begun. Han Shi was seated in the front row, with an empty seat beside her, seemingly reserved for Fang Zhou. She spotted him immediately and signaled for him to come over. Remembering that he was here as her companion, Fang Zhou felt he should be useful and sat next to her. Take this, and bid. Han Shi handed him a paddle, signaling for him to participate in the auction. Fang Zhou was puzzled but did as Han Shi instructed, raising the paddle whenever she nodded. After a few rounds, with the auctioneer's gavel striking, the first item found its owner. 3 million once, 3 million twice, 3 million thrice. Congratulations to President Han for acquiring this Qinlong-era artifact for 3 million. Han Shi nodded lightly and told Fang Zhou, it's yours. Fang Zhou's expression was one of complete bewilderment. What? He had raised the paddle a few times, and it cost 3 million? Oh wait, the important part was, Han Shi casually gifted him a 3 million artifact? TLN, interesting. So right now Qiao Sisi vs Zhang Ziyan, Qin Yun vs Chu Xinran. Right now only Han Shi not confronting directly to anyone. Maybe Qin Yun, but surely they all gonna be in one big fry IG, let's just see. Perhaps Han Shi's decisive bid for the antique drew a lot of attention. Several people who knew her turned their gazes toward her, offering praises. As expected from the Han family, such grandeur is unmatched by ordinary people. President Han, you're so generous, adding bricks to the foundation of charity, we all admire you. For the next item, President Han, please show some mercy. I really like this flower and bird painting. Don't compete with me for it. Han Shi responded to them all with a smile, remaining mostly composed as if spending 3 million was an ordinary affair. But to Fang Zhou, this scene was incredibly impactful. 3 million? For an antique vase he didn't even appreciate? Fang Zhou admitted he didn't understand art or the cultural significance of the antique. He only knew that Han Shi had told him it was his. Are you serious? It's really for me. Fang Zhou's expression was a mix of disbelief, unsure if Han Shi was joking or serious. From what he knew, Han Shi rarely joked. Sure enough, when she heard Fang Zhou's question, Han Shi glanced at him and adjusted her posture, crossing her right leg over her left, saying coolly, yes, it's real. Consider it your appearance fee for being my companion tonight. Fang Zhou was speechless, stunned by Han Shi's generosity. Who gets an appearance fee of 3 million? Except for extremely important figures or big celebrities, and even celebrities don't charge for attending charity events, right? He thought of Qiao Sisi, was she here just to support the event too? Moreover, Fang Zhou understood the concept of not biting the hand that feeds you. He had learned from past experiences and was too cautious to accept. Such an expensive item, I can't take it. You should keep it for yourself. I don't even understand this stuff. Han Shi smiled lightly, seeing through his thoughts. She leaned in closer and whispered, actually, this item isn't worth 3 million. It's only priced that high today because of the event. The money will be donated to the orphanage, and we have a budget for charity expenses. If we don't spend it today, we'll spend it tomorrow. Just consider yourself participating in this charity event. You can handle the antique however you wish afterward. This was the most Han Shi had spoken to Fang Zhou since their reunion, all to persuade him to accept the antique. Fang Zhou hesitated, clearly tempted. Han Shi leaned in closer, closing the distance further and said, "Of course, it's not entirely free. I need a regular companion for future events. Just come whenever needed." She was essentially hiring Fang Zhou as her regular companion with the antique as payment, eliminating the need to find someone new each time. It sounded like a great deal for Fang Zhou. He earned 50,000 on the show, and this antique was worth at least 100,000. Fang Zhou suddenly felt that even if Han Shi wanted to buy him, it might not be so bad. Wait, not buy hire. Thinking of the medical expenses needed for his sister's recovery, Fang Zhou hesitated only briefly before agreeing. All right, consider this an advance on my salary. Even if future events were a trial by fire, he would brave them. For the first time, a slight warmth melted the constant frost in Han Shi's eyes, revealing a hint of spring. Pleasure doing business with you, Mr. Fang. Pleasure doing business. They exchanged smiles, both pleased to have achieved their goals. This intimate conversation and mutual smiles didn't go unnoticed. For some, it was like a needle piercing their hearts. Chu Xinran and her mother, Chu Xian, sat in the third row, directly behind Fang Zhou and Han Shi. Initially not paying attention to the people in the first row, Chu Xinran looked up reflexively when the auctioneer congratulated President Han. Her first sight wasn't Han Shi but Fang Zhou sitting beside her. Chu Xinran's heart leaped, wanting to greet him, but then she noticed their close conversation and smiles. That smile, to Chu Xinran, was an eyesore. He rarely smiled at her like that. Thinking of the rumors about him and Xiao Sisi earlier that day, Chu Xinran felt even worse. He could have rumors with anyone, but not her. She clenched her skirt, her eyes filled with turmoil. Fang Zhou, what must I do to get your attention? Can you not smile so happily at others? It hurts me. It feels like my heart is being plunged into an icy cave on a scorching summer day, leaving me shivering. Help me, please. I want to escape this cold world with you. Only you can save me, Fang Zhou. The more Chu Xinran thought, the more she trembled. Noticing her condition, Chu Xian grasped her hand, asking softly, "What's wrong, Xinran? Is the air conditioning too cold? Shall I have someone bring you a blanket?" Her words of concern snapped Chu Xinran back to reality. Forcing a smile, she shook her head and replied softly, "It's not the air conditioning. Mom, it's my heart that's cold. Air conditioning won't help with that." Seeing her daughter's desolate state, Chu Xian felt a pang of sympathy. She had hoped to cheer up her precious daughter and introduce her to some new male friends tonight. But it seemed ineffective. Never mind, maybe I should buy her something to distract her. Just then, the fourth auction item was brought up. It was a peacock blue filigree and gold-embroidered phoenix coronet, shining beautifully under the lights. Chu Xian looked up and immediately took a liking to the coronet, her face showing determination. This should be perfect for Xinran's trousseau. Chu Xian made 2 bids, and upon seeing it was her, others respectfully refrained from bidding further. In the end, Chu Xian won the coronet. The auctioneer, thrilled, congratulated her repeatedly. Congratulations to President Chu for acquiring this phoenix coronet for 5 million. Everyone turned to look toward Chu Xian, including Fang Zhou. Seeing Chu Xinran and Chu Xian's faces, Fang Zhou was flustered. What are they doing here too? Although Fang Zhou had only met Chu Xian once, over 2 years ago, the impression she left on him was unforgettable. Who would have thought that the elegant, dignified lady maintaining her poise at the event could look at a college student with such disdain, as if he were garbage? Yes, Fang Zhou admitted he didn't have money and couldn't provide much materially for Chu Xinran back then. But he had genuinely liked her, and he couldn't stand such contempt and threats. With the passage of time, old memories resurfaced with Chu Xian's appearance. The humiliation and discrimination he faced back then couldn't hurt him now, but the impression of Chu Xian being difficult to deal with remained in his heart. Next to him, Chu Xinran saw Fang Zhou turn around, a flash of joy in her eyes quickly overshadowed by gloom. He just noticed me now? And the person she saw in the corner earlier wasn't a hallucination, right? Was he purposely avoiding me? The more Chu Xinran thought, the more distressed she became, her gaze growing increasingly sorrowful. Her whole being radiated resentment, almost enveloping those around her. Han Shi also noticed the mother-daughter pair, surprised but not overly so. Given the Chu family's status, attending this banquet was entirely within their reach. Noticing Fang Zhou's troubled expression, she leaned over and asked, "What's wrong?" Fang Zhou looked away and shook his head, saying nothing. "It's nothing. When can we leave?" If possible, Fang Zhou didn't want to face Chu Xian. Back then, he had been threatened partly because he lacked power. 2 years had passed, but he still didn't want to see the person who had been so unfriendly to him, bringing back unpleasant memories. "We'll need to stay for about another hour. The dinner hasn't started yet." Han Shi checked her watch and gave a time frame. Fang Zhou nodded, understanding that Han Shi would need to network with potential business partners and couldn't leave too early. An hour was manageable. They silently agreed not to mention the 2 women behind them, focusing on the auction on stage. Chu Xinran's distress hadn't gone unnoticed by Chu Xian. Following her daughter's gaze, Chu Xian saw a young man's back that seemed familiar but couldn't place where she had seen him before. When the young man stood up and picked up a female handbag, walking away, she recognized him. It's him. No wonder Xinran was so distraught, she had seen the person she couldn't forget. At this moment, she wasn't angry at Fang Zhou but felt heartache for her daughter. The strong-willed woman sitting next to him seemed too formidable for her gentle, rabbit-like daughter to compete with. Then she heard her daughter say, "Mom, I need to use the restroom." Chu Xinran stood up, but her direction was clearly towards the man. Chu Xian felt a lump in her throat, discomfort. Her daughter was still too stubborn, never backing down from difficulties, only to be hurt in the process. But she didn't voice her feelings. Let her experience this heartache. Once this period is over, she'll let go. Only then can she rise from the ashes and be reborn. Fang Zhou had gone over to return Zhang Xian's bag. They shared a smile, understanding each other without words. For a moment, it was like being back in high school when a single glance could convey their thoughts. Zhang Xian found a seat, and Fang Zhou was about to return to Hanxi. Suddenly, he turned and bumped into someone. Sorry, I didn't see you. Are you okay? Turning around, he saw it was Chu Xinran, and his apology trailed off. Why is it her? Wasn't she sitting over there just now? And coincidentally, the glass of red wine she was holding had spilled all over her. Her clothes were soaked, and she was looking at him with her sad, wet eyes, filled with endless sorrow. My dress. Chu Xinran pouted, looking aggrieved, her soft voice evoking pity. Fang Zhou felt a pang in his heart, seeing the large, wet stain on her dress. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Let me see if there are any spare clothes. Fang Zhou stepped towards Hanxi, thinking she could find some spare clothes in the hotel. Just as he took a step, Chu Xinran grabbed his arm. No need, I have some in my room. Can you come with me? Chu Xinran tilted her head, her eyes pleading, wanting Fang Zhou to shield her from prying eyes. Fang Zhou thought it through. He had caused the accident, and with so many people around, seeing a girl with a stained dress might lead to unfriendly assumptions. So he nodded in agreement. They walked along the edge of the hall, guided by hotel staff, to another building's accommodation area. Chu Xinran pressed the button for the 5th-floor elevator. Once inside, away from prying eyes, she sighed in relief. Thankfully, no one noticed. Otherwise, my mom would scold me. She mumbled to herself, pouting. Fang Zhou couldn't help but find it amusing. She was so grown up but still afraid of her mother, but considering how strong-willed Chu Xian was, she probably paid attention to every detail of Chu Xinran's life. Sorry, how much is the dress? I'll pay you back. Fang Zhou knew such dresses were expensive, but having just accepted Hanxi's employment, he could afford it. Chu Xinran didn't respond, and when the elevator arrived, she used her key card to open her room door. I'll wait outside. Fang Zhou stopped, politely waiting outside. However, Chu Xinran looked up with her teary eyes and said, Do you dislike me so much that you can't even be in the same room with me? Can't you tolerate being with me? Fang Zhou's eyes widened in surprise. That's not what I meant. Then come in. I have something to tell you. Here we go again with I have something to tell you. Qiao Sisi had said the same thing to him. Fang Zhou felt a surge of rebellious defiance. Why do they always see me as a pushover? Am I destined to be manipulated? TLN, AAHH finally guys, 200 chapters mark. I'm so tired, but thankfully my coin reader is here to support me, also my dearest readers. If you guys like my translation, please consider donating me on my Ko-fi, it will surely help me to maintain my translation and health. Thanks you guys for supporting me, I hope my translation is good enough for you guys.
Hello everyone! As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500+ novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.